This boy was stuck at level 0. His name was Itsuki. On the day of awakening, everyone gained extraordinary abilities, but when it was his turn, the students laughed. The crystals shone, and nothing happened. In reality, Itsuki had awakened a monstrous ability. Even though he was stuck at level 0, he could analyze his enemy's abilities and infinitely increase his own stats. And so, Itsuki became the genius of the academy, bringing all the nobles to their knees. Suddenly, rifts called abysses began to appear all across the planet's sky. Soon after, an energy barrier formed, trapping people in the city. Monsters known as demons emerged from the portals, led by Linga, the demon of ruin. With that, they began a terrible and merciless slaughter against all of humanity. A desperate father throws himself in front of the monster to save his son, screaming for him to run. The scene was pure chaos, with civilians running and trying to escape the creatures in the streets. One of the monsters, covered in blue flames, lets out a terrifying roar amidst the destruction. The creature then prepares an energy attack, aiming for a defenseless girl in the middle of the street. But at the last second, someone saves young Itsuki, pleading for him to get away from there. The scream of his name echoes in his mind, bringing back the pain of that day. Back in the present, a friend nudges him, asking why he was so spaced out. She gives him a suspicious look, wanting to know if he was really okay. But then she notices a tear on his face and asks why he's crying. Just then, two boys approach and start making fun of the way he dresses. It's explained that after these attacks, humans with powers known as the Awakened began to appear. His classmate explains that the man there is Izumi Hento, a famous general from the continent. Itsuki is lost in thought as the boy says that Izumi was the first awakened in history. On top of that, he's known as the Light of Hope for being the strongest. A recent study shows that normal people can awaken by touching a type of monolith. The man on stage then announces that they are there to give everyone that chance. Suddenly, a giant monolith emerges from the ground, glowing with powerful energy. All the students go wild, shouting and celebrating the chance to gain powers. Itsuki's friend turns to him, super excited, saying the moment has arrived. He then runs off to the line, while his female friend tells Itsuki to wait for his turn. But inside, a dark aura consumes him, revealing a frightening determination. With a wicked smile, he thinks that the day he's been waiting for has finally come. The ceremony begins, but the first student to touch the monolith fails to awaken. The other students get nervous, since not even the school's best athlete could do it. The security guard just impatiently tells the next person in line to step up. The crowd starts to worry, thinking that no one from their school will awaken. The guard then calls the next in line, a bully named Oishi Hikaru. The students get worried, as it would be a nightmare if that guy got powers. But suddenly, the monolith glows and blue lightning surrounds the bully's body. A status screen appears, revealing he is a very strong thunder elemental. A woman in armor informs her superior that they have finally found a promising awakened. With an arrogant smirk, the newly awakened boasts about being the first one from there. But out of nowhere, our protagonist walks by and bumps into him without even a sideways glance. The bully gets furious, yelling and asking if Itsuki wanted to die for touching him. The crowd whispers that it's over for him now, for picking a fight with the wrong person. From above, the observers sense an incredibly intense emotion coming from our hero. He touches the stone, thinking that his determination comes from the hatred he feels for the monsters. At that moment, the masked man's eyes widen, sensing a power that shouldn't exist. A giant and powerful spiritual image manifests behind our protagonist. The monolith reacts with full force, unleashing an energy that shakes the entire structure. Then, this energy explodes upward, creating a massive lotus flower above the school. Everyone is in shock at the energy flower, which is hundreds of times larger than the other one. His friends celebrate joyfully, shouting that he finally managed to awaken his power. From above, the observers are stunned, as this is the sign of a destroyer. The bully has a look of pure hatred, not believing he was surpassed like that. The scene changes to Itsuki, who finds himself inside the flower, wondering if he has awakened. Suddenly, a status screen appears, showing his class, Destroyer, and the gift Nirvana, but he panics when he sees that all of his attributes were completely 0. Just then, his special ability activates, increasing all his stats by 200 points. With a smile, he understands that he can now get stronger to annihilate the beasts. Outside, the light becomes so intense that it blinds everyone who was looking, and amidst all that light, the silhouette of our protagonist begins to emerge. Oishi refuses to believe what he's seeing, shouting that it's impossible. The woman in armor is shocked by his stats, saying he's a monster of a rookie. It's revealed that he has become the strongest, with all his attributes at 200. The crowd goes wild, celebrating that their school now has a legendary awakened. Enraged, Oishi yells that the protagonist stole the applause that was meant for him. Angrily, he releases his energy, preparing to attack the classmates who provoked him. He then decides to use his new skill, Silver Serpent, to show off. But the protagonist's system detects the attack and immediately begins to analyze the skill. As the analysis progresses, Itsuki stares him down with a serious and completely calm gaze. The bully then unleashes a powerful lightning whip, shattering the ground on impact. Suddenly, Itsuki vanishes in the blink of an eye, leaving everyone confused about where he went. Then, he reappears right behind the bully, who freezes in fear upon sensing him. In a dark voice, he warns that if Oishi were a monster, he'd already be dead. The bully falls to the ground, trembling, while the others laugh at his fear. The skill analysis is almost complete, and a new aura surrounds Itsuki's body. With the analysis at 100%, he finally acquires the Thunder Wave skill. The light shines again, and one of his classmates even puts on sunglasses to handle it. Itsuki realizes he's pulled into this space every time he finishes analyzing a skill. The screen shows the details of the new skill, which can absorb attacks and increase his agility. Back in reality, a wave of blue lightning surrounds our protagonist's body. The bully is outraged, not understanding how he learned a skill like that so quickly. To everyone's surprise, his stats increase once more, showing his growing power. But suddenly, the sky darkens, and a heavy rain starts to fall out of nowhere. Next, a giant dark monolith appears in the sky, falling towards the school. The woman orders everyone to evacuate, realizing they are the target of the attack. With a frightened face, she says that fighting isn't their team's specialty. But the masked man points to the boy, saying he has more courage than they do. As everyone runs, Itsuki stands still, and the woman yells, asking why he isn't fleeing. The monolith then lands with a violent impact, releasing a sinister energy. Itsuki warns his friends that a monster is coming, but that he'll finish them all off. Desperate, they beg him to run since he just awakened and is no match for it. He just turns to his friend and, with a serious look, asks her to trust him. She agrees, but tells him not to blame her if he ends up dying in this fight. With a wicked smile, he thinks that his first enemy as an awakened has finally arrived. He feels lucky, as it's the same type of monster that killed his parents. A skeleton soldier emerges from the portal, and the system displays its battle stats. With a determined look, he decides to test the skill he just learned. The protagonist then charges the monster with everything he's got, unleashing all his energy. He unleashes a wave of thunder, shouting that he won't let anyone else die. The blow hits the skeleton soldier dead on, with absolutely devastating force. The impact sends the creature flying, and it explodes against the school building. The onlookers are shocked, saying he's too strong for a newly awakened rookie. But the masked man explains that this kid is on a whole different level of power. Suddenly, the skeleton gets up and uses a blue fire skill called Bonfire. Seeing the danger, his friends scream his name, completely terrified by the scene. Meanwhile, the bully cracks a purely evil smile, hoping he fails miserably. Itsuki's system begins to analyze the new skill, which accelerates when he's hit. The armored woman worries, because not even a level 10 awakened could withstand this. His body begins to burn, and he finally understands the pain his mother felt. A terrible memory shows his mother being consumed by the same blue flames. From a distance, the general watches everything, wondering if Itsuki is already using his full power. Even while on fire, he shouts that as soon as the analysis is done, the monster is history. One of his classmates despairs, but then gets excited seeing the blue lotus appear again. The analysis finishes, and the system announces he's acquired the Black Ice Wall skill. This new ability boosts all his stats and completely heals his injuries. He thinks that with his increased attack power, he can now break through the monster's defense. Back in reality, the Blue Lotus flower opens, illuminating the entire battlefield. From within it, our protagonist reemerges without a scratch, fully recovered. His friends go wild, celebrating in relief when they see he's alive. The observer is shocked, unable to understand how he can have both healing and lightning powers. He looks at his perfect hand, curious about the limits of his regeneration. Just then, the skeleton soldier roars in anger and attacks with its blue flames once more. But the protagonist activates his new skill, creating a black ice shield on his arm. Fearlessly, he stands still as the infernal fire rushes towards him. The ice wall completely nullifies the attack, creating an impressive clash of power. The energy blast is so powerful it violently throws the monster backward. Seizing the opportunity, he attacks with a lightning whip, slamming the monster to the ground. But the creature gets up, now wielding a giant sword made of ice and thunder. In a swift move, Itsuki appears behind the monster and cuts it in half with one strike. The students are speechless, saying he moved so fast it looked like teleportation. Even the observer is shocked by his immense power, wondering if he's really a rookie. It's explained that he can create weapons of any shape, making him perfect for both offense and defense. The battle ends, and his friends finally run toward him, shouting his name. His friend hugs him, incredibly relieved, but Itsuki just asks where Saya is. He explains she was just here a second ago, looking like she was about to cry. Itsuki scans the crowd but can't find her, thinking maybe she got mad at him. Impressed, The woman remarks that he defeated a monster that even a level 10 awakened would struggle with. His friend tries to calm him down, saying she probably went to the nurse's office, worried about him. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him, asking if he's Itsuki Tenma, which surprises his friend. The masked man approaches the boy, staring him down with an imposing presence. The other students start whispering, wondering if Izumi is going to make him his disciple. His friend then says he'll go look for Saya for him and waves goodbye. Then, the masked man faces him and says he's a very special boy. Itsuki turns to him, confused, asking what he meant by that. Izumi then reveals that the young man's heart is completely filled with rage and hatred. With that, he says he wants to know the real reason behind so much resentment. The protagonist explains that 10 years ago, his parents died to protect him. We get a flashback of him as a child, seeing a monster attack coming right at him. He says he was about to die, but an awakened saved him right in front of his mother. But he had to watch his mother get killed, saying goodbye as she was burned alive. The little boy panics, screaming desperately as he watches the horrible scene unfold. He felt guilty for their deaths, but something inside him screamed that this was wrong. The source of all that evil was the demon leading the attack, the one to blame for everything. At that moment, consumed by fury, the young Itsuki made a promise to himself. With a tear rolling down his cheek, he swears he will kill every last monster of that species. Izumi then questions him, asking how he can still cry with a heart so full of hatred. Itsuki explains that his right eye cries on its own, which keeps him from forgetting his hatred. Hearing this, Izumi invites him to be his disciple and join the Saviors Alliance. He explains that it's an organization created to fight monsters strategically. The members, called Saviors, receive training, powerful weapons, and a great salary. But Izumi warns that this treatment isn't free, as they risk their lives. The protagonist says he doesn't care about the money, because what matters most to him is being able to fight on the front lines, declaring that he wants to be a savior too. Izumi then reveals there's an annual tournament where only the top 100 qualify. He says the points record might not be a great benchmark, but he reveals that the record is 115,000 points, set a year ago by Kazunari Tsutsumi. Itsuki remembers the name, recognizing the strongest awakened his friends mentioned. The man warns him not to compare himself, but says his talent could rival Kazunari's. With unshakable determination, Itsuki declares he will surpass the great Kazunari Tsutsumi. The general is surprised by the boy's audacity, but sees potential in his confidence. He concludes by saying that someone like Itsuki will be a new rising sun for humanity. With a hopeful gaze, Izumi says the rising sun he's been waiting for has finally arrived. The scene changes, and they arrive at a futuristic building, with Itsuki asking what it is. Izumi explains that the monuments are portals, and if they aren't destroyed, more monsters will appear. The general says the building isolates the monuments that can't be destroyed and serves as a training ground. Itsuki understands it's a training ground, and Izumi warns that they are very dangerous stages. He then warns that this particular stage is the deadliest, known as the Rookie Graveyard. Then he reveals that Kazunari, as a rookie, cleared this stage in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. With that, the general challenges him, saying that if he wants to beat the record, he needs to do it in 3 minutes. Izumi then promises that if he clears the stage in that time, he will make him his disciple. As they enter, people are shocked to see the famous Izumi with a rookie by his side. Our protagonist realizes instantly that the man is far more famous than he ever imagined. He sees on a panel that the monsters inside are level 10, much stronger than the skeleton. The awakened whisper that he won't go in, thinking he's just there to show off. Unfazed, he walks up to the counter and tells the receptionist he wants to enter the stage. The woman asks how many people are going, but he informs her he'll challenge the place alone. Everyone in the lobby falls silent, surprised by the boy's absurd confidence. Furious, the receptionist yells at him to stop joking around, as this is no place for it. The crowd starts laughing, saying there's always one who gets the wrong idea and gets chewed out. He then explains that she misunderstood, as his only interest is challenging the stage. Tired, the woman tells him not to play hard to get, and offers her number for him to leave. With a dark look, he repeats that he doesn't care about her number and just wants her to let him in. Scared, the woman hands over the device, but warns that she's not responsible if he dies. The crowd mocks him, saying a level 0 rookie challenging a level 10 stage is suicide, but others comment that even with a special gift, his level is too low for this. He approaches the door, ready to scan his wristband and start the challenge. With that, his entry is approved, and the gigantic door slowly opens. Once inside, he prepares himself and says the promise is to finish in 3 minutes. The timer starts running, marking the official beginning of his great challenge. With an aura of power, he runs at full speed, not wasting a single second. He spots the monument, realizing the artificial space is huge and challenging. Just then, he senses the enemy's presence and announces that they're coming. A tree spirit attacks him, but Itsuki greets it with a strike of ice. He then creates an axe and splits the creature in half with a single blow. With a mocking smile, he asks how it feels to see their friend split in two. Several other monsters appear, screaming furiously and surrounding our protagonist. Outside, the woman asks why he sent him to such a difficult stage. Izumi explains that to surpass Tsutsumi, one must go beyond the limits of humanity. At that, the woman remembers seeing Tsutsumi easily kill a level 97 monster. She describes his eyes as cold and lonely, as if they weren't human. She finishes by saying his eyes were like those of a god, a divine presence. Izumi agrees the boy has potential, but he's still a diamond in the rough. He adds that if Tsutsumi is a god, Itsuki is a demon, his exact opposite. Back in the stage, our hero defeats them all, noticing his skill didn't even activate on them, but suddenly, a giant shadow appears behind him, revealing the true boss of the area. Without a second thought, the protagonist charges forward and strikes the creature with an ice attack. The monster falls to the ground, defeated, and he wonders if that's all there was to the stage. But he finds it all too easy for a place called Rookie Graveyard. Something was wrong. His system then detects the monster's regeneration skill and begins analyzing it immediately. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise, realizing the fight wasn't over yet. The creature regenerates completely, becoming an even bigger and stronger monster. The protagonist is in shock, as the beast healed even with half of its head cut off. He understands it won't be easy, as the monster's stats have increased absurdly. To defend himself, he activates his black ice wall and blocks the creature's attack. To stop the healing, he needs to deal massive damage, so he prepares a final attack. Using 2 blades, he slices the monster into dozens of pieces with a swift attack. His final blow cuts the monster exactly in half with surgical precision. The monster opens its eyes in anger, looking at him before completely falling apart. With a confident smile, he declares he's sliced it so thinly that it can't regenerate. He then raises his sword and cuts the creature once more, this time vertically. The monster explodes into several pieces, finally defeated by our hero. With the battle over, he feels his mana draining from the continuous use of the wall. But to his surprise, the monster regenerates once more, now in the form of tentacles. He dodges the attacks, finding it impressive that the beast hasn't died after all that. But he notices that each regeneration increases the analysis speed of his skill. He deactivates the wall to save mana and decides to keep his distance until the analysis is complete. But time is running out, and he knows he needs to be faster to win. He then activates his lightning and ice skills, planning to attack and defend at the same time. He understands that if he can't activate the skill in time, he'll die from lack of mana. But he faces the risk, thinking that if he dies, it's because that was the extent of his power. With his eyes glowing red, he uses all his strength in one last desperate attack. His strike hits the creature dead on, but it defends itself, showing its resilience. Despite all his effort, he can't pierce its defense and laments his failure. His body is pierced by the tentacles, and he realizes his mana has finally run out. But at the last second, the analysis finishes, and he discovers the skill doesn't require mana. A blue lotus emerges from his body, and he acquires the Lotus Burst ability. The new skill causes explosive area of effect damage, proportional to the mana spent by the user. With this, all his stats increase by 20 points, and his wounds are healed. The creature faces him, but he simply activates his new and powerful ability. The protagonist snaps his fingers, releasing destructive energy across the entire field. A gigantic explosion of fire and energy consumes the monster completely. The stage boss is completely incinerated, with no chance of regenerating again. With a satisfied look, he praises the power of the skill he just learned. He realizes his skill restored his mana, even after it had reached 0. Amidst the wreckage, a bright green stone appears, making him curious about what it is. Outside, the receptionist panics as time is running out and he hasn't come out. The general's assistant doubts he can do it in 3 minutes, finding the task impossible. But suddenly, the screen turns green, announcing that a new record has been set. The woman is in shock, wondering if he actually managed to complete the challenge. The panel then confirms the achievement, showing he finished in 2 minutes and 56 seconds. The door opens, revealing our hero on the floor, completely exhausted from the battle. Everyone celebrates, shocked that he survived and beat the great Tsutsumi's time. Itsuki gets up and asks Izumi if he will finally fulfill his promise. With a victorious smile and a bruised face, he officially calls him sensei. Izumi praises him, and the assistant realizes she hadn't seen her father this happy in a long time. The crowd understands he only succeeded because he's Izumi's student, but they question his future. Just then, the receptionist approaches, apologizing and handing him a gift. He accepts, saying her concern only proves she's a good person. With a simple thank you, he leaves her completely embarrassed and blushing. The assistant then calls out to him, warning that they're leaving and he'll be left behind. The assistant scolds him, telling him not to get a big head just for being her father's student. Izumi then says that with his current ability, he can go to an advanced stage. The general explains that level isn't the only factor that defines a monster's strength. He reveals that the most important thing is the species, as those without intelligence are easy. But there are intelligent species that are incomparable to common beasts and far more dangerous. The assistant adds that only humans possess classes, which define their powers. She warns him that an advanced stage has these monsters and that it's his next destination. With a sadistic look, he wonders if intelligent monsters feel pain when attacked. The woman is frightened by his terrifying aura, not understanding what was going on in his head. Elsewhere, a group comments on a man who controls the area and kills anyone who enters. One of the guys tells the other to shut up, warning that if the man hears him, he'll erase him too. We then see Reiji Kinoshita, the son of the boss who runs the entire North 4th District. One of his subordinates asks when he will leave, but he says he decides when. With a snobbish smile, he says that waiting in line is something only commoners do. Itsuki opens a detailed little box, revealing a small stone that glows brightly. The scene changes, showing them talking in a garden, and the boy remembers that moment. Izumi Hento then asks if he had ever seen a karma stone like that before. The protagonist remembers he has, as a similar one dropped after he defeated a monster. In his flashback, he held a much larger crystal, noting its green color. The blue-haired woman is shocked, as a stone like that shouldn't be there. She then offers to explain, saying it's basically an experience stone. It's explained that karma is released from monsters and absorbed to level up. In short, karma stones store this energy to be used as an item, but the young woman is still confused, since these stones aren't supposed to appear naturally. At this, Izumi Hento says it probably happened because of Itsuki's gift. The boy and the woman look at him, not understanding what his gift had to do with it. The man in the helmet explains that Itsuki didn't absorb the karma, but the energy doesn't just disappear. He mentions that the karma from the beast at the school was absorbed by all the awakened ones. But since Itsuki was in a sealed place, the energy solidified and became the stone. The young woman then asks how he raises his stats without leveling up, leaving Itsuki thoughtful. But Izumi Hento scolds her, warning that this is a secret you don't share. He says Itsuki can either sell or keep the stone, and that Ageha will take care of him. Before leaving, the man sets 4 rules, including keeping his gift a secret. With a smirk, Itsuki agrees and calls him master, accepting the alliance. The scene changes to a training field, where students are being blocked by some thugs. One of them complains, saying the place was reserved by the Kinoshita family for today. He threatens to call the guild, but a giant shadow with red eyes appears behind him. Suddenly, the blonde student attacks with a skill, flying towards the new guy. The masked man, Kazunari, simply stops the blow with one hand effortlessly. In the blink of an eye, he retaliates with a powerful blow that hits the student dead on. The blonde is shocked, yelling that his B-rank skill had no effect at all. Kazunari then says that it didn't even tickle, his eyes glowing with rage. The boy is terrified, thinking that this guy could only be a real monster. With pure fury, Kazunari grabs him by the collar, ready to teach him a lesson. Without hesitation, he lands a devastating blow, leaving the blonde student completely knocked out. The others are startled, as they realize he is Oga Take, one of Reiji's pillars. He then holds up the boy, and warns that he'll do the same to anyone who disobeys. The 2 students are left on the ground, and Uga warns that no one should dare to help them. Seeing the scene, his cronies start laughing, telling him not to be so rough. Disgusted, Uga throws the boy to the ground, showing he wasn't there to play games. But just then, Itsuki and his partner arrive, helping the injured student. The crowd is in shock, not understanding why a level 0 would get involved in this. Uga then glares at him, telling the newbie to leave if he doesn't want to end up the same way. Itsuki realizes that to get in, he would have to defeat that brute first. But he says he didn't have to, as his master taught him to fight for what's right. Calmly, he hands the injured student to someone else, and asks them to take care of him. A sinister aura explodes around Itsuki, and his status reveals his special class. Uga feels the pressure, not understanding how a level 0 could do that to him. He becomes furious, refusing to be intimidated by someone so much weaker than him. Uga glares at the newbie with hatred, unable to believe his courage to challenge him. In the reflection of his eye, he sees Itsuki rushing towards him, ready to attack. In a surprise move, the boy lands a solid punch right in the brute's face. The crowd is shocked by his speed, questioning if he really is a level 0. But Itsuki's fist hits hard metal, as Uga has activated his defense. He takes a step back, realizing the guy blocked the hit with the metallized skill. With metal hands, Uga catches his fist, then compliments the boy's speed, but he warns him that he lacks power, and throws Itsuki away with a blow that cracks the ground. Thrown back, our hero thinks he'll need to use his lightning ability to win. At that moment, his copy skill activates, beginning to analyze the enemy's technique. Itsuki readies himself on the ground, knowing he now has to fight with everything he's got. He understands the defense is tough, so he decides to focus on the non-metal parts of the body. The boy plants his feet firmly on the ground, launching himself into another super-fast attack. Uga then starts to taunt him, calling the boy weak, with no strength or speed. But Itsuki smiles, because now that the enemy has let his guard down, he would use his acceleration. Covered in lightning, Itsuki charges forward, giving the enemy no chance to defend. He starts to unleash a barrage of blows, and his skill analysis percentage climbs. The crowd is bewildered, starting to think that this rookie might actually win. Uga starts to panic, as the boy's speed doesn't even let him breathe. He tries to scream for help, telling his henchmen to stop just watching the fight. With no other choice, the brute grinds his teeth, deciding to play his last card. With a furious roar, he rips his own shirt, releasing all his power. The guy then metallizes his entire body, thanking Itsuki for forcing him to evolve. He explains that his defense now exceeds 500, making him a living fortress. With an evil grin, he promises a quick death as a reward for the help. The crowd is terrified, knowing that no one at that level could break such a defense. But Itsuki analyzes the situation, deducing that the transformation consumes a lot of mana. Uga calls it nonsense, but inwardly he's startled by the boy's intuition. With the analysis at 100%, Itsuki declares he's going to end it now. His partner recognizes the aura, saying that the blue lotus flower is about to get stronger. The crowd is astonished by the giant lotus, not understanding how it could defeat Uga. But the system shows that the analysis is complete, and he has acquired the piercing sphere skill. Itsuki notices that the ability ignores defense, and since the target is stationary, the timing is perfect. With his eyes glowing, he promises to shatter that absolute defense to pieces. Upon acquiring the skill, all of his stats increase by 10 points, making him stronger. In the midst of that blue aura, the protagonist creates a sphere of dark energy in the palm of his hand. He then aims the sphere and challenges the enemy to try and dodge the attack. The crowd wonders if a level 0 can break through that defense, but they have faith in him. The small dark sphere glowed intensely, concentrating an unimaginable power within. Slowly, the attack floats towards Uga, who stands still, waiting for the impact. Seeing this, the audience is disappointed, thinking it's just a weak little ball. Uga scoffs, thinking it's incredibly naive to try and beat him with that. He remains motionless, full of himself, as the sphere draws closer. The brute then warns that if this is his trump card, he's in for a pathetic death. But the moment the sphere touches him, it pierces his metal skin effortlessly. A burst of blood erupts from his body, and he screams in agony. With the guy on the ground, Itsuki explains he aimed for his arm since he didn't dodge. He then turns to the henchmen, telling them to stop staring and take him to a hospital. With a cold stare, the protagonist simply tells all of them to get lost. Terrified, the men grab their boss and carry him away without looking back. The crowd erupts in celebration, cheering for the rookie's impressive victory. Seeing his strength, two guys approach and invite Itsuki to form a team with them. The guys try to convince him, saying the monsters in this stage are tough to beat, but Itsuki finds this perfect, as it could increase the speed of his new sphere. They then pressure the boy, asking him to finally decide what he's going to do. With a serious look, he simply announces that he'll enter the dungeon alone. The people around are shocked, thinking the victory has gone to his head. Seeing his refusal, the two give up and say they'll look for another team to play with. His partner questions him about the mana cost, but he assures her he'll be fine. She gets flustered, saying she isn't worried, she just doesn't want to take the blame. Before he leaves, she warns him that the monsters move in packs and to be careful. He then places his hand on the panel, and his entry into the stage is finally approved. Inside, he realizes the number of enemies is greater than he expected. The stone beasts looked much stronger, with far higher levels and stats. After analyzing one of the monsters, he confirms its defense is quite high. With this, he decides to test the passive condition of his piercing sphere on the enemies. The sphere activates, releasing a dark purple energy ready for attack. He fires the dark sphere, which flies straight towards the stone monster. The attack pierces the creature with ease, defeating it in a single blow. With that, the sphere's speed doubles, just as our protagonist predicted. But right after, several other stone monsters appear, surrounding him completely. He considers them perfect targets, as they are slow and ideal for leveling up his skill. Using the doubled speed, he takes down two more, and his sphere's power increases again. He climbs onto a pile of rubble, but realizes his mana is almost depleted. Seeing more enemies approaching, he worries, as the boss hasn't appeared yet. With no time to waste, he decides he needs to defeat two monsters with a single shot. Itsuki then throws the sphere to the ground, creating a decoy to lure the two enemies. At the right moment, he leaps away, shouting for them to fall into his trap. With a fierce look, he yells that he's about to unleash the final blow he had prepared. The sphere shoots up, piercing both beasts and increasing its speed once more. Exhausted, he collapses to the ground, wishing he had a skill to recover his energy. Looking at the screen, he sees the sphere is now fast enough to hit any target. The system screen shows his sphere has reached the maximum flight speed buff, but suddenly, a giant stone fist descends from the sky, catching Itsuki by surprise. The blow hits the ground with absurd force, causing a small explosion of rocks. From the shadows, the stage boss finally appears, a level 15 stone man. Finding the monster too large, he activates his thunder wave to increase his agility. He runs across the beast's body, doubting his sphere could take down something that big. Then, he considers aiming for the head, as it might be the giant's only weak spot. Seeing an opening in the monster's guard, he fires his sphere with all his might, but the sphere was too small and didn't cause enough damage to the giant monster. Taking advantage of him being airborne, the golem retaliates with a violent slap to crush him. Itsuki panics, knowing he can't dodge the attack in mid-air. With no choice, he activates his black ice wall to try and block the fatal blow. The impact is so strong it completely shatters his defense, breaking it to pieces. He's thrown against the rocks, admitting the brute was stronger than he looked, but his copy skill detects the monster's ability and begins its analysis. Even injured, Itsuki smirks, realizing the monster used a skill to become giant. The scene shifts to a mansion, where a servant receives a call and is shocked by the news. With a cold gaze, Reiji Kinoshita tells him not to make a fuss in front of him. The man apologizes, and his boss asks what all the commotion is about. He then explains that someone defeated the Royal Fang and invaded the training area. Furious, Reiji slams his fist on the table, wondering if it was an awakened one above level 30. But his servant informs him that the strongest are busy, and only rookies were there. He finds it impossible for a level 10 to win, but Reiji orders him to investigate further. Reiji says that's not necessary, as the dungeon takes a while, giving them time to get there. With a deadly glare, he yells that they're going there right now, no more excuses. The man is terrified by the order and agrees immediately, sweating cold with fear. Standing up, Reiji vows he will make them regret crossing the Kinoshita family. Back in the fight, the analysis finishes, and Itsuki celebrates that he won't have to run anymore. Just then, a bright blue lotus symbol appears on the giant golem's forehead. The system screen confirms that the analysis of the gigantification skill was a success. He realizes his piercing sphere has leveled up to 2, gaining a new effect. The passive speed effect doubled, but the best part is he could now adjust its size. Excited, he decides to test it right away, and the system also heals him completely. With this, all his stats increased by 20 points, making him stronger. He then uses all his mana to create the largest piercing sphere he can manage. The giant sphere then fires a massive energy beam with absurd power. The attack pierces the golem's body from top to bottom, completely destroying it. With his mana depleted, he gives a slight smile, thinking he might have overdone it a bit. The system confirms his victory, and his sphere's speed increases by another 200%. He calculates that in 2 more rounds, his attack will be as fast as a car. Holding the Karma Stone, he realizes the passive effects are much more useful. He then remembers that Lotus Burst also increases the range of his skills. We're told that the skill's passive ability increases its range with each defeated enemy. With this, he imagines that one day he'll be able to hit targets miles away. Outside, the big screen announces his success, breaking the record by 3 minutes. The crowd is shocked, as he beat the time of the monster Kazunari, who was watching. When he comes out, everyone finds it strange, since he was still level 0 and without a single scratch. His partner smiles, impressed that he broke the record and came out unscathed again. She comments that he was really fast, and Itsuki replies that the monster was weak. He then notices a glowing butterfly on her hand and asks what it is. The girl reveals her class is a Shikigami user, and that was her creature. Itsuki is amazed, saying it's the first time he's ever seen one and that it's beautiful. He takes the opportunity to ask about the classes, which surprises his partner. The girl explains that classes are divided into 4 types, and he's already seen 3. The first is the Elementalist, the most common class with the highest basic combat power. She recalls that one of his classmates used the lightning element. The brute from before, Auga, was also this type, which is why he used metal. Next, she introduces the second class, Shikigami users, who summon beasts. She introduces herself as Ageha Izumi, a Shikigami user, along with her jade butterfly. With a smile, she asks if he has any questions about the explanation so far, but Itsuki asks why her level is lower than her butterflies. The question leaves her shocked, unable to believe the boy's cluelessness. She then calms down and explains that Shikigami also gain experience and level up. With a dark look, Itsuki realizes he just needs to focus on defeating the master. Ageha feels a shiver, frightened by the sinister aura leaking from him again. He breaks the tension by asking about the other classes she hadn't mentioned. The girl becomes thoughtful, saying that the third class is the most mysterious of all. She then reveals that his class, the Order Breaker, is precisely that one. Ageha explains that his class is a mystery because of its unique abilities, like Lotus Flower. We're told that others can control their body size or even create infinite clones. Normal skills range from C to S rank, but Order Breakers possess Z rank skills. She says that's why her father scolded her, as the secret of their skills is their greatest weapon. But she considers him an exception, since he uses at least 3 elementalist skills. Itsuki gets worried, thinking that if his master found out about this conversation, he'd be in serious trouble. He then asks about the last class, but she's secretive about it. With a smile, she says she'll only tell him when he meets a user in person. The boy agrees, and she takes the opportunity to let him know that the student he saved is doing well. She then asks about his plans, and he says he wants to repeat the stage to farm more, but she informs him that the stage has a cooldown and will only reopen in 2 days. Frustrated, he asks if there's another stage with a large number of monsters for him. With a mischievous look, she says she knows the perfect place for him to go right now. She introduces him to the Locust Desert, a place with an absurd number of monsters. She questions him about not having an area of effect skill, but he accepts the challenge on the spot. The group gets worried, but Itsuki says he'll be fine, even without an AoE skill. They're shocked by the boy's courage, but decide to leave to avoid any trouble. A short time later, Reiji arrives at the location, but finds no one to interrogate. His servant informs him that the target has already left, and Reiji is stunned by his speed. He can't believe his plan failed and is furious for being made a fool of. Determined to get revenge, he orders his servant to call a tracker to hunt the boy down. With deadly hatred, he vows to capture him alive to make him suffer greatly. Meanwhile, a wounded man hides in an alley, regretting that he accepted the mission. He celebrates his narrow escape, saying he would have died if he hadn't been fast. Thinking he's safe, he relaxes, but a growl startles him from the darkness. A giant wolf with red eyes leaps toward him, ready to devour him. The beast bites him without mercy, leaving him gravely injured with no chance of escape. A mysterious man appears and tells the wolf to take it easy, as he wants some information. Confused, the guy asks how they managed to find him in that alley. The man in the hat simply replies that his wolf's sense of smell is very good. He introduces himself as Charles, the wolf dog, and says he can smell the scent of death. Desperate, the man begs for his life, pleading not to be killed like this. But Charles refuses, saying Kinoshita would be angry and that his wolf was hungry. With a malicious look, he then gives the order to his wolf, saying it's mealtime. The creature lunges forward, its enormous fangs ready to devour its victim. After the meal, a status window appears, showing that he is finally leveled up. He then takes out his phone and tells someone that the job there is done. Charles is surprised to hear that Ugo is injured and says he's on his way. With a smile, he tells his wolf that a new prey has appeared for them. Itsuki arrives at a desolate place known as the Locust Desert, wondering if this is it. He looks over the wheat fields, questioning if there are really that many locusts around here. His companion then explains that the disaster beasts choose environments they prefer to invade. She mentions there's not even a signal, because the danger level of the place is too high. Itsuki is confused since the level is low, but she explains that's not the real problem. It turns out, the beasts in this place are aggressive, and their numbers are absurdly high. She warns him that if he lets his guard down even a little, he'll be completely surrounded, and in the end, he'd be eaten alive until nothing but his bones remained. But Itsuki cracks a smile, thinking it's great that there are so many beasts for him to fight. With a confident look, he says he's not desperate enough to die being eaten by insects. Seeing his attitude, she watches him enter the portal, believing he'll be fine. She thinks to herself that he went in on his own, so the responsibility was all his. But suddenly she panics, realizing she forgot to warn him that they never stop coming. Worried, she decides she has to go in there and tell our protagonist. But just as she tries to go, 2 mysterious figures appear and block her path. A mysterious man appears with a sinister look, saying he's looking for someone here. The scene shifts, and we see Itsuki already inside the desert, finding the place quite abandoned. With a confident smile, he claps his hands and yells for the pests to wake up, because he's come to exterminate them. He realizes the monsters are weak, but perfect for using his skill, Lotus Burst. His analysis shows they are just malignant locusts, with ridiculously low levels like 1 and 2. Suddenly, a gigantic swarm of insects appears in the sky, heading straight for him, but he thinks this is great, creating a lotus flower of pure energy between his hands. His plan is to wait for the insects to gather so he can crush them all at once. As soon as the swarm engulfs him, he shouts, "Now!" releasing all his accumulated power. With that, Lotus Burst is activated, creating a light that devastates everything around. Several notifications pop up, confirming that each defeated locust increases his skill range. He stands amidst the destruction, observing the result of his massive attack. It's explained that the skill has a passive effect that improves its range with every kill. Seeing the 110% bonus, he realizes he defeated 110 monsters at once. With a smile, he calculates he can use the move 10 more times, planning for a 1000% increase. He thinks that if this skill had no cooldown, things would be much smoother. But then he finds it strange that the success message hasn't appeared, and he starts to get suspicious. Just then, a screen appears announcing that a C-rank skill called Mother's Will has been activated. Itsuki turns around, surprised, unable to believe there were still survivors after his attack. Suddenly, more giant locusts emerge from the ground, surrounding him from all sides. One of them attacks him, and he realizes he let his guard down, thinking there was no boss. The problem now was having no idea where the boss was, which complicated things. He then decides he'll defeat all the small ones to force the boss to appear. With that, he uses the burst again, receiving several notifications of increased range. His bonus reaches 220%, making the skill's range enormous. The system window shows that the attack now has a diameter of 16 meters. Even after defeating another 110 monsters, the boss still doesn't show up. The scene shifts underground, revealing a nest with eggs from which more monsters were being born. Itsuki sees the locusts emerging from the ground again as his boss analysis progresses. He checks his mana and gets worried, as he can only use the burst 9 more times. Determined, Itsuki readies his fire, saying he'll finish them all no matter how many appear. He then clenches his fist, shouting that he'll wipe them all off the map at once. With a burst, he destroys several, and the notifications show the increase in his skill range. Then, he fires the attack in sequence, unleashing multiple bursts to clear the area quickly. The system shows his range bonus has reached 990%, but the effort takes its toll, and he realizes he only has enough mana for one more burst. To his despair, another endless swarm appears, leaving him frustrated with the situation. He thinks that the boss isn't showing up and considers retreating to try again later, but he quickly dismisses the idea, thinking that's something a loser would do. With a determined gaze, he prepares to fight, declaring he will defeat all the beasts. With that, he unleashes one last powerful Lotus Burst with all his energy. Exhausted and on his knees, he's left powerless, believing he has solved the problem. But he's shocked to see the locusts are still there, and their numbers haven't even decreased. Suddenly, a light goes off in his head as he realizes all the monsters are level 1. The analysis finishes, revealing the Locust Queen and her ability to reproduce infinitely. He understands that fighting is pointless without killing the boss, since the monsters just multiply. Just then, the analysis is almost done, and a sphere of energy shatters, completing the process. With this, he gains mana detection, which finds enemies and also restores his energy. He smiles, realizing this is the perfect skill for this tricky stage. But he remembers Ageha is waiting, so he decides it's best to end this quickly. The new skill restores everything, healing his wounds and boosting all his power stats. Fully recovered, he activates the detection to finally locate the true boss of the area. Blue energy waves then spread across the field, searching for any sign of mana. The energy pulse travels a great distance, revealing the Locust Queen hidden underground. His eyes glow with power, and he announces with a smile that he's finally found her. He then prepares a sphere of dark energy, aiming it directly at the Queen. The Queen tries to use her children as a shield, but he sees her tactic is useless. He yells that it won't work, launching a lotus of energy that will reach her. The system confirms the attack's range is 120 meters. Enough to hit the target. The attack hits dead on, piercing through the Queen and ending the threat at once. Covered in lightning with his armor activated, he charges forward to finish the Queen. With a confident smile, he faces the enemy up close and declares checkmate. In one swift move, he pierces the Queen's carapace with a fatal and brutal strike. With the leader's death, he watches the locust swarm fall into complete chaos. With a flaming hand, he tells the others he's sending them to join their mother. The system screen shows his skills now have over 1200% range. He's satisfied with the result, already planning to come back to increase this effect even more. As he exits the portal, he sees it took 17 minutes and worries about Ageha waiting. He thinks she'll probably act cold, even though she's relieved he's back. But he finds her way of acting cute, and gets ready to tell her he's back and everything is fine. But suddenly, his eye glows with a fury he's never felt before. He finds Ageha injured, and the mysterious man asks if he's the one Reiji was looking for. The villain explains that he tried to get information from her, but even though she was hurt, she didn't say a word. Filled with rage, Itsuki tells him to let Ageha go, threatening to just give him a beating. But the man laughs, telling the level 0 rookie not to get cocky. In the blink of an eye, Itsuki lunges forward, covered in lightning, ready to wipe him out. The villain is shocked by his speed, feeling that death is coming for him. But a giant demon dog appears out of nowhere, blocking the blow with its own head. Itsuki realizes the dog is a Shinigami, which makes the guy a user of that power. The man analyzes his speed, now understanding why Uga lost the fight. With a smirk, he says he has the dog and the hostage, tightening his grip on the girl's neck. Itsuki gets distracted and shouts her name, creating the perfect opening for the monster's attack. The dog then opens its mouth, ready to rip off the protagonist's arm with one bite. The villain scoffs, saying the best that can happen is that he only loses an arm. Suddenly, The man is in shock, unable to believe what's happening right in front of him. With his other hand, Itsuki shoves a sphere of energy straight into the demonic creature's mouth. The energy explodes from within, destroying the dog's head and killing it instantly. Itsuki analyzes the enemy, knowing that without the Shinigami, the user is completely defenseless. The villain scoffs, wondering if the rookie doesn't know the creature can be resurrected. It's explained that the dog has a rebirth skill that shortens the waiting time. The monster gets up, and the man yells for him to become prey to his Shinigami once again. But Itsuki activates his detection, and waves of energy spread across the battlefield. He reveals that he left his detection on, and that it was the right choice. With the analysis almost complete, he avoids using the Blue Lotus to not arouse suspicion. The villain is terrified because the boy has power, speed, and a detection skill. Desperate, he threatens Ageha's life, shouting for him to stop resisting. Itsuki decides to finish the analysis without the Lotus, and the system confirms the skill acquisition. It's revealed that the new ability, Shinigami Devourer, allows him to control enemy creatures. He realizes he can control the creature, but he didn't receive the healing and status bonuses. Even without the recovery effect, he feels ready, as he was already at full strength. He understands that the new ability can steal Shinigami from other users. With this new power, he prepares to turn the tables, creating a sphere of light. Itsuki charges forward with everything he's got, shouting that he's going to take the dog for himself right now. He then lands a blow on the creature, which begins to be enveloped by his energy. With a powerful strike, he throws the Shinigami far away, in the direction of its former master. The villain is furious with his dog, yelling that the beast was completely useless. Out of options, he threatens again, saying he'll break Ageha's neck if he reacts. But even though she's badly injured, the girl tells him not to worry about her at all. Seeing the situation, Itsuki raises his hands and surrenders, telling the man not to touch her. The man gives a victorious smile, saying she wouldn't have suffered if he had just obeyed. Itsuki then asks why they are chasing him, as he doesn't remember doing anything wrong. The villain then reveals that Reiji Kinoshita is furious because he entered the dungeon without permission. Upon hearing Reiji's name again, he decides he'll settle things personally. But the villain scoffs, warning that the Shinigami will rip his legs off without mercy. He then gives the order to the creature, telling it to rip off both of the boy's legs. However, with a cold gaze, Itsuki tells the dog to prove it is worthy of serving him. The creature turns instantly and attacks its former master, who is terrified by the betrayal. In a swift move, Itsuki scoops Ageha into his arms, saving her from the imminent danger. The villain panics, screaming and asking why his own Shinigami attacked him. Itsuki then praises the dog, which now obeys him as its new master. With a look of pure hatred, he vows to return all her pain 100 times over. The man becomes desperate, begging and saying he can lure Reiji into a trap. Itsuki seems to agree with a terrifying look, saying it's a good proposal. Thinking he's fooled him, the villain smiles and shouts that he's caught him in his trap. He then throws some kind of attack crystal, yelling for our hero to just die already. But Itsuki responds coldly, saying he's more than enough to kill Reiji by himself. With that, he gives an order to his new dog, telling it to make the man suffer. The man begs for forgiveness, asking for one more chance and saying it was a slip-up. But the creature advances slowly, ready to carry out its new master's order. In a panic, he tries to remind the dog that he was its master and had fed it for years, but it's no use, and the creature opens its mouth to devour him without any mercy. Without even looking at the scene, he realizes someone has been watching him the whole time. He then asks how long the person will hide, telling them to show themselves. The scene cuts away, showing that there was indeed someone at the top of that structure. A mysterious hooded guy appears, saying he noticed that Itsuki saw him. Itsuki asks if he's a friend of the guy from before, still holding Ageha in his arms. The blonde guy panics, denying it, and desperately asking for our hero to listen to him. But Itsuki says he doesn't have time, telling his new dog to follow him after it's done eating. The young man watches the dog, thinking that maybe this man could be his salvation. He then introduces himself as Iberia, compliments the fight, and recognizes Itsuki as a famous guy. Then he offers a reward, like mana stones or weapons, in exchange for help. But Itsuki simply ignores him, leaving Iberia confused about what his master taught him. A flashback shows a blacksmith explaining that rewards need to be smart and useful. He said the right thing to do is to give a blade to someone who wants revenge, or medicine to the injured. With this memory, Iberia gets a brilliant idea, realizing what he needs to do. He runs and warns that Ageha is going to die, because the nearest hospital is too far away. With a smile, he shows a shiny healing item, saying he luckily had one. He then shouts that he can save her, making Itsuki finally stop walking. Our protagonist turns around in surprise, asking if what he said was true. Iberia warns that he can't fully heal her right now, but he can save her life. He then uses a special bandage on Ageha, explaining that it's not an ordinary item. Itsuki is confused, and Iberia thinks it's normal since he must have just awakened. We're told that modern weapons can't harm beasts, which is why these tools exist. This special equipment is divided into 4 levels, from normal up to the rarest. Normal equipment is like a common weapon, but it can actually hurt the monsters. Rare equipment slightly increases the user's stats, like agility and mana. Meanwhile, epic equipment increases stats and also has very powerful special effects. And finally, unique equipment, the ultimate goal of every artisan in the world. Iberia explains that this is why artisans are so respected by all awakened beings. He brags that his father is not just anyone, as there are only 10 like him. With great pride, he reveals that 3 of the 10 unique tools were made by him. The guy reveals that his father is known as the artisan king of the northern continent, but Iberia gets angry, realizing that Itsuki wasn't paying any attention to him. Itsuki then picks up the crossbow from the ground, recognizing the weapon Charles was using. Iberia is shocked that he didn't even care about his father, while Itsuki thinks about the crossbow's usefulness. He notices the weapon is rare but has no arrows, and Iberia explains that it creates its own ammunition. Suddenly the crossbow vanishes, and the blonde guy says that tools store themselves in the inventory. Itsuki thanks him for the help and says he needs to go, as he's now going to look for this Reiji guy. The blonde guy thinks it's crazy for him to pick a fight with Reiji, and Itsuki asks if he should just give up. But Iberia reveals that, in fact, they both share the same target to defeat. He then invites him to team up for the tournament, which Itsuki was already training for by chance. Itsuki asks what this has to do with Reiji, and Iberia explains that the tournament takes place there. We're told that Reiji is the administrator's son, so it would be a disgrace if he lost. With this, he understands why the guy monopolizes the dungeons, but he still doesn't see the reason for the help. Iberia says his instinct tells him he's strong, but Itsuki questions his haste. The blonde guy gets serious and starts to explain why this tournament is so important to him. In a flashback, we see that he always admired his father, who was a great weaponsmith. His biggest dream was to become an awakened being to fight with his father's equipment. But upon awakening, his father said it was too soon, as only the saviors could use them. He explains that after much pleading, his father set the condition that he must pass the tournament. With a determined look, he shouts that this is why he needs to win the preliminaries. Itsuki finds it strange because with a famous father, he wouldn't need to team up with a level 0. But Iberia says his father forbade him from using his name to get strong allies. He complains that the strong ones have already been bought by Reiji, and the others have already formed teams. But then he heard about a guy who defeated one of the kings and broke a record. Itsuki accepts the partnership, but warns that he'll take Ageha to the hospital first. Excited, Iberia immediately starts suggesting various team names, annoying Itsuki. At that moment, he remembers his friends, wondering if they also entered the tournament. The scene changes, and we see Ryuto suddenly sneezing in the middle of his intense training. Saya asks if he has a cold, but he thinks it was Itsuki talking about him. She gets worried, wondering how much time has passed and how Itsuki must be doing. Ryuto notices and teases her, asking why she didn't go after him sooner. Annoyed, she attacks with a water whip, but he manages to dodge at the last second. He complains it was a cheap shot, but she says it's his fault for letting his guard down. Their teacher arrives, announcing that the preliminaries start the day after tomorrow, with no time for fooling around. The two get excited to fight, and the system shows each of their stats. Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone picks up a briefcase full of experience stones. Reiji Kinoshita is worried, finding it strange that his henchman hasn't shown up at the location yet. In a rage, he crushes one of the stones to gain power, blaming his useless subordinates. He then tells them to forget about the guy, as the tournament is the priority so he won't be punished. His servant informs him that they've already convinced 887 participants to cooperate. Satisfied with the result, Reiji says the servant is the only one he can truly trust. With that, he uses the last tool stone, finally managing to level up again. Now at level 12, he feels ready, saying it's more than enough to crush the commoners. Itsuki Tenma stands amid the lingering energy of the battle, his expression serious. In his thoughts, he apologizes to his sensei for getting Ageha involved. Just then, Izumi Hento approaches and asks what to do with the fallen enemy, but Itsuki gives him a firm look, saying it's best to leave the matter to him. Hento agrees with the decision and asks him to explain the details later. Iberia watches the scene, thinking that Hento is a far more mysterious person than he imagined. The scene shifts to the hospital, where Itsuki explains that he'll be entering the tournament with Iberia. Ageha, in her bed, says she's already recovered, thanks to an artifact Iberia used. Hento then looks at Iberia, asking if he's the son of the artisan, Aiden. The blonde is surprised, as Hento not only knew about the artifact, but also knew his father. Trying to act confident, he gives a thumbs up and shouts that he is Aiden's father. Everyone falls silent, and Hento calmly says that he's got it all wrong. Embarrassed, Iberia corrects himself, whispering that Aiden is his father. Hento then thanks them for saving his daughter and promises to take them to meet Aiden. He dismisses the two to prepare for the tournament, letting them know he and Ageha will be watching. Excited, Iberia promises Hento that they will definitely pass the preliminaries. Once they're alone, Ageha comments that her father likes Tenma, just as he liked her and Kazunari. Hento explains that Itsuki has a self-destructive impulse due to a childhood trauma, but that urge vanishes when he has people by his side he wants to protect. That's why, Hento reveals, he placed Ageha near him, asking her to become his friend. She then understands that she needs to be his weakness, the person Itsuki will want to protect the most. The conversation shifts, and Hento reveals that the attack at the school was a planned act. He looks out the window, saying that humanity's future looks utterly bleak, but he has faith, believing that Tenma will surely light up this path. And with that, the boy will become the great light of hope for everyone. The scene then takes us to the tournament arena, the site of the preliminaries. Itsuki and Iberia arrive to see a massive crowd, which only grew with the news about Hento. Elsewhere, a competitor complains that Izumi Hento's presence has created too many variables. Another group of fighters notices the red ribbons and speculates if Itsuki is there too. Suddenly, the event's host appears, preparing to explain the rules to everyone. The host explains that the arena has an outer and an inner area, with everyone starting in the corners. He announces that the goal is to reach the center, and only the fastest 300 will advance. Ryuto is surprised by the wristband's function, and Saya finds the mass elimination very cruel. As the host permits the use of artifacts, Iberia draws Itsuki's attention to something. He points to Reiji Kinoshita, who is giving orders to his hired team in the arena. Iberia then suggests they get to the inner area quickly to ambush Kinoshita there. But the next second, the blonde boy turns pale, his face a mask of complete despair. It's because Itsuki was already in front of the enemy group, saying he heard their entire plan. Ignoring the commotion, the host gives the signal and announces that the first stage has begun. From above, he observes the competitors, thinking that quality is more important than quantity. Beside him, Haiten Akira comments that in his time, there were many participants above level 15, but we are shown that in his year, only he and Kazunari Tsutsumi had such a high level. Akira smiles, saying it would be boring without rookies like Kazunari to shake things up. He then asks Izumi if the rumor about a new, super strong protege is true. Imposing in his seat, Izumi Hento simply confirms that the story is entirely true. Akira asks if this person is among them, deducing they must have incredible talent. Curious, the host starts checking the participants' data to try and figure out who it is. He first analyzes Riku, but dismisses him due to his low-grade gift. Next, he checks Saya, but also concludes that it's probably not her. Then, he bets it must be the girl, Hana, since her level is quite high. But Izumi Hento corrects him, revealing it's none of them, although Hana is the strongest. Akira then asks if, by any chance, there's a level 0 participant in the tournament. Back in the arena, Reiji's group mocks Itsuki, asking if the boy got lost. Unfazed, Itsuki activates an ability in his hand, facing down the taunters. Reiji then recognizes the technique, shouting that it belongs to Charles and demanding to know who he is. With an intimidating gaze, Itsuki asks if they weren't looking for him. Reiji is furious, unable to believe that a low-level piece of trash defeated his subordinate. He then orders his goons to finish the boy off, and they prepare to attack. But a dark energy erupts from the ground, and Itsuki warns that he has no time to waste. With all enemies down, the protagonist walks past them without a second glance. From a distance, Akira comments that the outcome of the fight is obvious and suggests they should beg for their lives. Iberia is worried, because even if he takes care of one, Itsuki would have to fight 4. With that, he decides he has no choice but to use that thing to help. A new enemy approaches, scoffing that the first opponent he finds is a level 0. But Itsuki, without even looking up, simply tells him to get out of the way. The man is shocked for a second, not believing what he just heard, and then he bursts into laughter, finding the boy's attitude hilarious. Watching from above, Akira says he likes the kid's attitude and will save him if he dies. The red-haired man threatens to crack the boy's head open, but Itsuki just responds with a laugh. Suddenly, a devastating blow lands square on the man's face, sending blood flying. With the enemy down and defeated, Itsuki coldly repeats that he told him to move. Akira is shocked, unable to believe he instantly killed an opponent stronger than him. The remaining henchmen are shocked, but one of them tells the others not to panic. He then prepares a fireball, shouting that he'll burn the rookie to ashes. Iberia is startled by the explosion. It was so fast he didn't even have time to react. The enemy group scoffs, saying it's normal to die in the preliminaries if you're weak. But as the smoke begins to settle, one of them points, warning that something is very wrong. Turns out, a giant wall of black ice had appeared from nowhere, protecting them both. Iberia, now holding 2 daggers, is impressed by the defense that was created. But Itsuki gives him a cold stare, simply telling him to get back immediately. A system screen appears, explaining that the wall has increased his defense stats. With his defense boosted, he thinks he needs to test the skill's passive effect again. The enemy is stunned, wondering how he used an ice ability without being a water element user. Itsuki then points at him, telling him to attack again, because this time he won't block. The guy gets enraged, asking if he's being messed with, and Itsuki confirms that he is. Furious, the enemy prepares his strongest attack, a superheated, powerful flamethrower. The blast of fire surges forward, but Itsuki notices that even though it's stronger, it's still just a B-rank skill. The torrent of fire advances with full force, engulfing the arena with its devastating power. The enemy brags, saying the strength of this blow is comparable to that of a level 89. He realizes the attack took all his mana, thinking it a waste against a level 0. But suddenly, the man looks to the side with a look of complete terror, unable to understand what's happening. Itsuki then confirms that the ice's passive effect doesn't work twice on the same target. With the test finished, he faces the other enemies and warns them it's time to end this. The brute is shocked, but the other one says he's already figured out the kid's weakness. With that, the big guy prepares to use his skill, a powerful fire blast. He launches several fireballs, but Itsuki activates his ice wall again to defend himself. The attacks explode in succession, creating a curtain of fire and smoke in front of him. The enemy smirks, planning to drain the kid's mana, since it must be limited. But as he gets ready, his hands are suddenly grabbed with absurd strength. The big guy is in shock, breaking into a cold sweat at what has appeared before him. It's Itsuki, now in a suit of ice armor, having crossed the distance between them in an instant. The brute then tries to use his strength, yelling that if the kid's strong suit is speed, theirs is power. Inside the armor, Itsuki asks disdainfully if the enemy is even trying. Seeing the brute's effort, he says he'll go easy on him and throws him to the ground. The system screen then analyzes the clash, showing the calculation of the defense increase. The remaining enemies try to flee, but Itsuki notices they are lightning users and comes up with a plan. He glares at them with a deadly look, asking if they really think they can escape. Desperate, the two use their electric abilities, trying to take the protagonist down with them, but the system screen reveals that he has absorbed the attacks, increasing his agility. Akira, watching everything, is impressed by how easily he defeats stronger opponents. Enveloped in an electric aura, Itsuki stands amidst the already defeated enemies. He then understands that the absorption effect, just like the ice one, doesn't activate twice. Iberia approaches the bodies, confirming with his hands on his hips that everyone has been knocked out. With a smile, he says he thought it would be tough, but he didn't expect Itsuki to be so strong. The masked enemy, on the ground, shouts, asking who he is, because he can't be a level 0. Iberia then stands next to him, and Itsuki wonders why he said we. With a smug smile, Iberia announces that they are Double I, the strongest duo. Itsuki ignores the idea, already dragging Iberia along so they can go after Kinoshita at once. Lying on the ground, the defeated enemy thinks the duo's name is totally lame. Far away, Reiji Kinoshita senses the commotion and deduces that the level 0 must be getting beaten up by now. But he recognizes Charles's weapon, deciding he'll have to investigate it later. Suddenly, a competitor on fire flies past him at high speed. Elsewhere, a participant celebrates making it through, bragging about being a speed specialist. But out of nowhere, a purple lightning bolt strikes the speedster, who screams in pain. He falls to the ground, not understanding who managed to hit him while he was running at full speed. Then, a foot wrapped in purple energy stomps hard on the man's back. It was Reiji, who warns that this is what happens when someone runs ahead of him. He scolds his team, telling them not to waste their time on this kind of trash. In the private boxes, a woman comments to Hento about the administrator's son's arrogance. Although it's not against the rules, Reiji takes advantage of others to fill up his stamina. With his plan working, he's sure he'll pass the second phase with ease. Finally, he reaches the entrance to the inner area, thinking it was surprisingly easy. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the arena, calling for Kinoshita amidst the lightning. Reiji turns around instantly, a shocked look on his face, trying to figure out who called him. His henchmen get on the defensive, and one of them points, warning that it's that level 0 rookie. In the rain, the silhouettes of Itsuki and Iberia approach, putting the group on high alert. When they get closer, the enemies confirm that it really is the kid from before. Reiji can't believe it, finding it impossible that he defeated all his men. With an angry smile, he accuses the rookie of being a piece of trash who won't stop following him, but Itsuki warns him that he's staying right there until they settle things. Reiji says he's busy, but he has prepared some playmates for them. With a furious look, he orders his new henchmen to take care of the kid. The group then surrounds the duo, mocking a level 0 for having so much courage. Iberia becomes desperate as he counts over 100 enemies and asks what they're going to do. Itsuki then places a hand on his head, telling the boy to hold on tight. At that moment, blue lightning bolts erupt from the ground, surrounding all the henchmen in front. Reiji turns back, sensing the energy from the attack that was just launched. In the blink of an eye, Itsuki leaps and creates a barrier of lightning that traps Reiji. The leader has no idea what happened, while Iberia watches everything with a panicked expression. Then, Itsuki says that maybe he didn't explain himself properly, deciding to rephrase his statement. With a serious look, he warns that no one is leaving until they settle things. Harino says that they would have been eliminated if they had not stayed together. Even so, he thought that they were among the fastest of all. Elsewhere, a woman asks Akira if he is already hungry. Then they look at the first place holder, Kana, who is already level 16. Harino points to the sky, warning that someone is flying in their direction. The girl looks up, watching the person who is rapidly approaching. Suddenly, Iberia crashes hard onto the ground, right in front of the duo. He turns back, injured, and desperately shouts Itsuki's name. Harino then asks if he really heard the fallen boy call out for Itsuki. His partner confirms, saying that was exactly what she heard as well. The scene shifts to a memory of Itsuki standing with his back turned in the rain. He faces someone and says he will not let him leave until they settle the score. Back in the present, Fujiwara wonders why Itsuki is fixated on Reiji. Beside him, a woman with glasses watches the whole situation with concern. Fujiwara then asks Akira Heighten to help the boy if he gets into trouble. Akira Heighten reflects on Itsuki's speed, wondering if he could achieve that. In the flashback, Reiji faces his opponent and tells him to get ready. He continues, stating that what is about to begin is not a simple battle. Then the man shouts that it will be the total humiliation of his adversary. He explains that it will be, in other words, a lynching against one person. Back in the present, Itsuki says that his priority now is to avenge Ageha. Reiji points at the boy and shouts, ordering everyone to kill him. The whole group advances at once, running toward Itsuki. One of them steps forward, saying he will take his head with his punch, but Itsuki simply blocks the attack with only one of his hands. Next, he grabs his opponent's arm and twists it forcefully. Itsuki throws the man face first straight into the ground, knocking him out. The others step back, and one of them says there is no way they can lose. Itsuki says that is fine with him, as a system notification appears. Then he says he will put an end to this farce quickly and activates his skill. The boy spins his arm, releasing a large amount of energy around him. Then he causes a massive explosion that sends all his opponents flying away. Harino is shocked and asks if that really was Itsuki's ability. Akira questions what that explosion was, and the girl says that is just a snack. The first place holder, Kana, also turns to observe what just happened. Fujiwara is astonished, questioning how he used a skill that is not from his class. The woman says she did not know that Itsuki had an area of effect ability. Itsuki states that 30% is enough, since he does not want to kill them. Reiji looks over the battlefield, seeing all of his men fallen. Itsuki stares directly at him and warns that now only he is left to fight. Reiji shouts, asking why he is so obsessed with him. Reiji, Itsuki says he will return all the pain his friend felt because of him. Reiji gets irritated and says he can reach levels that others would never dream of. He shouts that his foundations are different and swears that he will kill Itsuki. Reiji fires off a massive attack, and Itsuki's system begins analyzing it. At the last second, Itsuki dodges and completely evades Reiji's strike. Reiji falls to the ground, saying it is impossible to defeat someone with that speed. Then he panics and starts shouting the name of someone called 40. A bald man rushes forward at high speed, deciding that he will break the rules. Reiji smiles and warns that 40 is level 35, telling Itsuki to get ready. Far from there, Akira gives an order to his subordinate, who says he understands. Itsuki realizes that someone is approaching with anti-magic and at high speed. The analysis of Reiji's ability was still ongoing in the boy's system. At that moment, 40 arrives to attack, but is stopped by a wall of stone. The rock wall rises from the ground, completely blocking the man's attack. Itsuki looks to the side, watching who has just interfered in their fight. It was Akira Heighten, who holds 40 and tells Itsuki to please continue. Itsuki then turns to Reiji and warns that his help will not arrive. Reiji begs him to stop, mentioning his family's important positions. The scene ends with Reiji completely defeated on the ground, and Itsuki standing. Itsuki says to himself that with this, Ageha has finally been properly avenged. The woman with glasses watches the unfolding situation carefully from a distance. Fujiwara comments that he won, and wonders why he is looking at them. The system shows the analysis at 99%, and he pauses it. A voice calls out to him, making him turn toward the sound. He recognizes the voice of the one who called him, and looks back in surprise. Itsuki sees the pink-haired girl and calls her by her name, Saya. Saya approaches and tells them to go somewhere covered quickly. She continues, warning that he might catch a cold if he stays there. He replies that it has been a while, and the system announces his new rank. Iberia and Harino run to hug him, happy that he is safe and sound. Harino looks at Iberia and asks who he thinks he is to be crying on Itsuki. The blonde boy responds by introducing himself as Itsuki Tenma's official partner. Harino accuses him of being a traitor, while Saya watches the scene amused. He asks the name of the team, and Iberia replies that they are not children. Harino says of course they have a name and tells Iberia to say it. Iberia then proudly announces that their team's name is Double E. Harino starts laughing, saying the name is pathetic, and Iberia gets irritated. The scene shifts and Fujiwara announces that the second phase will begin soon. He explains that everyone will fight alone against a beast for a full hour. Iberia is shocked, while Itsuki simply confirms that the second phase has finally begun. Elsewhere, Akira Heighten says he had been looking forward to this moment. The main competitors are shown, ready to prove what they are capable of. The scene shows us the inside of the arena, where the qualifiers were already gathered. A competitor then asks if the second phase of the tournament will take place in there. Ryuto meets up with Itsuki and asks if his level is still really stuck at 0. He wants to know how Itsuki gets strong without leveling up, but the hero says it's a secret. But Saya appears, telling him he doesn't need to justify his abilities. From above, the hosts observe the group, and the MC asks if everyone is ready. Suddenly, Iberia looks up with a panicked expression, completely shocked. The crowd recognizes the legends there, like Fujiwara, Akira, and even Izumi Hento. The host then steps forward and announces he'll explain the rules for the second stage. He explains that beasts will appear, and the score will depend on the chosen difficulty, and after each victory, they'll only have 1 minute before moving to the next level. A fighter named Gaku shows off, saying he's going straight for the nightmare level. In the middle of the explanation, Itsuki raises his hand and says he has a question. Some competitors make fun of him, thinking he's scared of a one-on-one fight, but Fujiwara allows it, telling him to ask whatever he wants without any problem. Itsuki faces the group and asks if Nightmare Mode is the highest difficulty of all. Akira smirks, while the host is surprised by the bold question. The other competitors start mocking him, saying a level 0 doesn't stand a chance. But Fujiwara explains that, in theory, there is no difficulty limit for the beasts. Ryuto is shocked and says it's pointless to think about that, as it would be lucky just to beat the hard mode. The host then reveals that the points accumulated here will count towards the main tournament. The crowd is surprised by the news, and Iberia decides he'll have to use his secret technique. Itsuki remembers Kazunari's record, seeing this as the perfect chance to surpass him. With the rules explained, Fujiwara orders everyone to enter the testing arena immediately. The second stage begins, and Itsuki sees that the place isn't much different from normal stages. But suddenly, several pairs of bright red eyes appear in the darkness before him. A pack of calamity hounds emerges, and he finally seems excited to fight beasts. He activates his ice wall, thinking he needs to finish them off as quickly as possible. In the control room, Akira asks if Fujiwara is monitoring the kid again. With a wicked smile, Akira says this guy is much more interesting than the others. Akira excitedly yells that the beasts have arrived, but Fujiwara doesn't understand the reason for his surprise. In the arena, Itsuki defeats all the hounds in a single second, earning 100 points instantly. Fujiwara is shocked by the time, and Akira brags, saying he told him the guy was interesting. He thinks it's possible since they were only level 1, but the next enemy is level 8. Then, a giant level 8 fire salamander appears in front of the protagonist. Akira thinks it's going to be tough for him, but Hento says this salamander is no threat. Hento asks about the others, and Ageha realizes her father is trying to divert the focus from Itsuki. Fujiwara looks at his tablet, commenting that most are still stuck on the beginner level. The scene shows Saya using her water abilities against one of the beasts in the arena. Elsewhere, a competitor appears, crushing his enemy with a giant sledgehammer, and we are shown that Kana Hanyu is the only one managing to keep up with Itsuki's pace. Back in the viewing box, the woman with glasses gets worried, saying this is bad for Itsuki. It turns out he was completely engulfed by the salamander's flames, disappearing into the fire. Fujiwara wants to call the medics, but Akira stops him, telling him to wait a little longer. From the flames, Itsuki emerges unharmed, activating his powerful black ice wall to protect himself. With his ice armor, Itsuki charges forward and cuts the salamander with a precise strike. The blow is so powerful it splits the fire beast in two instantly. He stands over the monster's body, having taken only 5 seconds to win. Fujiwara is shocked by the armor, and Akira wonders why he took the hit. But we see it was all a plan to use the wall to increase his defense. With that, his defense reaches the incredible number of 434. He then ignores the rest time, ready to test his new defense on the next beast. Back in the room, they comment that this difficulty tests both speed and combat. The next creature is a level 10 electric rhinoceros, a very dangerous opponent. Fujiwara explains that its horn can pierce the body of anyone without defense, and those without lightning resistance end up paralyzed and unable to move. He says the way to win is to use speed to attack when the beast gets tired, but suddenly, his jaw drops, unable to believe what the kid is planning. Itsuki calmly approaches the rhinoceros, touching its electric horn. He faces the beast and says that its horn is perfect for testing his defense. The rhinoceros becomes enraged by the touch, snorting and preparing its electric charge. With that, The beast charges full force, hitting the protagonist head-on with its horn. Itsuki is launched into the air by the force of the impact, enveloped in electricity. In the viewing box, the woman with glasses screams his name, desperate at the sight. But Akira thinks that despite being unpredictable, the kid always delivers incredible results. Suddenly, an explosion of ice and blue energy erupts in the middle of the arena. Itsuki lands on the ground, realizing that level 10 beast can no longer harm him. With his eyes glowing red, he announces that now it's time to settle this. He then activates his Thunder Wave, increasing his agility by 50%. The rhinoceros stands still, its horn broken and smoking after the attack. The beast then turns, only to be enveloped by a flurry of sharp blue energy. In the blink of an eye, Itsuki is already sitting on the defeated rhinoceros's back. In the room, Akira comments that it took him less than 15 seconds to beat both beasts. Fujiwara becomes thoughtful, knowing the next creature is a much greater challenge. He then describes the next monster, which has sharp claws that shred everything. Fujiwara continues, describing a giant mouth that spits chains to swallow everything, and also a huge body, covered in armor that looks like an exoskeleton. He explains that this is the strongest beast of the preliminaries, the final objective. Then, the level 15 Purgatory Giant appears, the Nightmare Mode Beast. But without wasting any time, Itsuki activates his Piercing Sphere and fires a purple beam. The attack goes right through the monster, and the system announces that the projectile speed has increased. In the control room, everyone's jaw drops, unable to believe what they just saw. The screen shows the total increase was 900%, making its power absurd. One of the arena's security cameras focuses on the fight, recording every detail of the action. He prepares for the next one, and the system shows that the fight took only 3 seconds. Meanwhile, one of the arena beasts fires a blast of energy from its mouth. The scene shifts to Saya, who uses her water bullet, thinking about her class advancement. Gaku Oe also rushes, skipping his rest to be the first to reach the normal level. Kana Hanyu, on the other hand, prefers to be cautious, recovering her mana before continuing the fight. Suddenly, an alarm sounds, announcing that someone has completed Nightmare Mode in 21 seconds. Saya's jaw drops, realizing instantly it could only have been Itsuki. Gaku is also furious, wondering if it was Hanyu who managed to be faster. Meanwhile, Kana just observes the situation, a serious expression on her face. Back to Itsuki, he points forward and asks if they can move on to the next one. In the control room, the staff is shocked that he killed a level 15 giant instantly. Akira then smiles and orders them to increase the difficulty, wanting to see how far the kid will go. In the arena, Itsuki is disappointed to see they only increased the number of enemies. The two Purgatory Giants then prepare to attack the protagonist with everything they've got, but Itsuki decides to take care of one of them, while the other was still preparing. With that, he activates his sphere and defeats one of the giants, upgrading his skill again. Fujiwara is shocked, unable to understand how he can use the sphere as many times as he wants. Akira then reveals that, despite its power, that ability has a fatal flaw. In the arena, the second giant charges towards Itsuki, ready to attack with full force. Itsuki immediately realizes that this monster's speed is greater than any other. In the VIP box, Hento comments that people are often deceived by the giant's size. Back in the fight, Itsuki prepares to attack with his dark energy sphere. He fires the projectile, which speeds towards the creature. But Hento explains that the giants are actually speed types, not strength types. The analysis screen shows the monster can't use magic, but its other stats are higher. And to Itsuki's surprise, the giant manages to dodge his attack at the last second. Hento then explains that the kid only won before because of the surprise attack. Akira adds that if he doesn't increase the sphere's speed, he won't pass. At that moment, the giant charges and strikes with enough force to create a crater in the ground. The blow sends out a shockwave that destroys part of the arena. Itsuki manages to escape the attack, but he realizes the monster can dodge from a distance. Akira deduces he must have another card up his sleeve to keep insisting on that attack. With a confident smile, Itsuki acknowledges the monster's speed and decides to close the distance. He activates his Thunder Wave, dashing across the arena at an absurd speed. The protagonist then leaps over the giant, preparing to attack from behind, but the monster retaliates with a powerful blow, hitting him squarely in midair. The force of the blow is so great it slams Itsuki against the arena wall. In the VIP box, the woman with glasses is shocked, covering her mouth with her hand. Fujiwara grabs his phone, yelling for them to call the rescue team as fast as possible. But Hento stops him again, telling him to wait and see what happens. Akira comments that the blow's power is immense, but it's useless if it doesn't hit. The dust settles, revealing the giant's hand stuck in the wall, covered in a strange liquid. When it turns around, it sees Itsuki calling out to it, standing on the other side of the arena. The monster then looks at the wall and realizes what it hit wasn't the boy. It's completely confused, not understanding how it was tricked like that. But from a distance, Itsuki takes advantage of the distraction and fires his sphere right at the nape of the monster's neck. Shrouded in energy, Itsuki prepares for another attack, his gaze determined. The projectile pierces straight through the giant, pinning it to the arena floor for good. Standing over the monster, he sees his sphere has become even faster with the victory. With that, he finishes the fight in 12 seconds, earning another 10,000 points in total. In the VIP box, Ageha's friend comments that it's very rare to see her so worked up, but Ageha tries to play it cool, saying she was just praying for everyone's safety. All embarrassed, she stumbles over her words, saying she didn't think Tenma was cool or anything. Her father then comments that she's become much more talkative since the last time they saw each other. Then, Fujiwara asks Akira how he knew Itsuki was dodging the attacks. Akira explains that his normal speed isn't much different from the giant's, but when electricity flows through his body, his speed increases drastically. With that power, it was impossible for the giant's attack to hit him. Fujiwara then says that with his current score, first place is already guaranteed, but Itsuki thinks that to surpass Kazunari, the strongest of them all, he can't stop. With a purple aura, he yells that he can't rest, not even for a second. The system then announces Phase 3, with 3 giants appearing before him. With a smile, Itsuki fires his purple sphere, ready to take down the first one. Akira comments that he decided to continue, as expected of the man he chose. But Fujiwara points out that Akira didn't go straight to Phase 4 like the kid did. He says that not even Akira could handle it, and wonders what will happen to Tenma. In the arena, the second giant charges with all its might, trying to hit the protagonist with a strike. But Itsuki dodges with ease, using his agility to confuse the monster. With Thunder Wave, he closes the distance and prepares to attack from behind. He then fires his sphere and defeats the second giant, increasing his power even more. Fallen on the ground, he thinks there's only the third one left, but his body feels exhausted. The last giant then lunges and manages to bite down on Itsuki, trying to devour him, but the monster senses something strange, as if the boy's body feels different. Suddenly, a light begins to shine from inside the giant creature's mouth. With his eyes ablaze, Itsuki activates his Lotus Explosion, ready to destroy everything. An orange light explodes from within the monster, illuminating the entire arena with its force. The explosion defeats the giant, and the system announces that the range of his skills has increased. The boy falls amidst the flames, earning another 15,000 points for his victory. Fujiwara is shocked, unable to understand what just happened right in front of him. He then remembers this was the same skill that defeated several opponents in the first phase. Itsuki gets up, realizing his mana has dropped to 0 after that attack, but he knows that as long as the beasts keep appearing, his mana will continue to regenerate. Then, Phase 4 begins, and his magic recovers, thanks to the 4 new enemies. In the viewing box, Akira comments that only Kazunari has ever passed Phase 4. Itsuki prepares to fight, knowing that each hit makes his sphere faster. And with greater speed, the chance of hitting the target also increases significantly. He thinks that if he keeps this up, he'll be able to hit them without getting close. But he knows his mana is limited, and he can't afford to waste a single attack. The giant then spits out its chains, charging at the boy with everything it has. But Itsuki manages to dodge the attack, preparing to counter the monster's strike. Itsuki realizes the giant used the chains to pull its body back. With this move, the monster dodges the projectile, which grazes past its head. It then lands a powerful blow, slamming the protagonist into the ground with full force. The impact is so strong that Itsuki thinks it's all over for him. With the giant's claws on top of him, he realizes he can't move. The creature then squeezes with all its might, ready to crush him at once. The attack seems to have been fatal, and an image of a bloody skeleton appears. The giant throws his body away, creating a crater in the arena with the force. Itsuki falls to the ground, bruised and covered in blood, unable to move. In the viewing box, Fujiwara screams in desperation, telling Akira to go help him immediately. Akira is frozen, wondering if this is where the boy's journey ends. He remembers when he was defeated, seeing the same scene repeat itself before his eyes. Determined, he turns and says he's going to save the boy, but someone stops him. It was Hento, who looks at him and calmly says that Tenma hasn't given up the fight yet. Everyone panics, but Akira explains that his situation is completely hopeless. But Hento says he can see that he still has an ace up his sleeve. Fujiwara asks how he knows that, and Hento replies that it's because of his eyes. His eyes are not those of someone who has accepted their end, but of someone who will fight. Itsuki then remembers he did everything to nullify himself, and activates his over-mimesis ability. In the fight with Kinoshita, he had activated the analysis of one of his abilities, but he decided to cancel the analysis at the last second, when it reached 99%. He saved the 100% complete analysis for a dangerous situation like this. In the box, the woman points excitedly to a blue lotus flower that has appeared in the arena. Akira is confused because Ageha seems happy, and he wonders if she knows something. The system screen explains that his skill can now absorb lightning attacks to become stronger. Itsuki's hand, which was previously injured, begins to regenerate completely. With his hand clenched, he recovers, blue energy enveloping his entire body. With the evolved skill, he gains 20 points in all stats and heals his wounds. He stands up and announces that the warm-up is over, and now he'll fight with everything he's got. His stats then rise, with all his attributes increasing by 20 points. Fujiwara is stunned as he healed faster than a professional healer. Itsuki then fires his spheres, defeating the remaining giants all at once. With Phase 4 complete, he declares he won't lose, no matter how many more appear. He continues to fire his spheres, now at an absolutely absurd speed. The projectile pierces the monster's chest with ease, before it can even react. The sphere then ricochets, hitting the other giant right in the back. The last monster is hit head-on, and Itsuki successfully completes another phase. In the viewing box, everyone is speechless, with their jaws dropped at what they've just witnessed. In the arena, Itsuki sits on the bodies, wondering who the real monster is here. Exhausted, he calls for the next phase, but realizes no more giants are appearing. Fujiwara grabs the microphone, saying he can't believe what's happening is real. He then presses a red button, preparing to make an important announcement. With a trembling voice, he informs Tenma that the test is over for him. It turns out the boy has defeated all the giants they had prepared for the test. In the arena, the host's voice echoes, announcing he has defeated all the prepared giants. Itsuki is confused as he thought the test's difficulty had no limit. He wonders how many points he scored, since the limit closed the gap with Kazunari. Additionally, the system informs him that he achieved his goal of increasing the sphere's speed. Now his ability is so fast that a screen compares it to a high-speed car. A blue aura then envelops his body, and he feels a strange energy rising, but he glances aside with a tired look, as if remembering something. He sighs, realizing he had completely forgotten a small detail. Since he can't level up, all the experience from the arena turns into a large karma stone. In the private box, Hento explains that since he doesn't absorb XP, it materializes. Akira understands that if he fights in a duo, his partner can take all the experience. Itsuki picks up the stone, and Fujiwara thinks he's lucky to be human. With the test over, he says they've done what they needed to, and it's time to go. He then approaches the arena exit, and the large door begins to open. Seeing him leave the proving grounds, Fujiwara tells the others that he made it. The system then announces the results, with Itsuki in first place with a high score. Fujiwara approaches him, saying he has great potential and offering him a new mentor, but Itsuki refuses, explaining he already has a teacher, which irritates the host. Akira then steps in, saying that if he keeps insisting, it'll end badly for him. He mentions he took care of Kinoshida's goons, as they were just a bunch of thugs, and with a smile, he reveals that the boy is the legendary Izumi's student. Fujiwara is shocked by the revelation, and Itsuki simply thanks him for the help. Akira confirms the information, making it clear he's a pupil of the great Hento. Just then, Hento approaches, and Itsuki refers to him as his teacher. The woman with glasses then congratulates the boy, saying she saw his entire performance. Itsuki says he's fine, just a little tired, but nothing a little rest won't fix. Fujiwara and Akira comment that it makes sense for him to be so strong, being Izumi's student. The host explains that the test now goes up to Phase 6, thanks to Kazunari. Akira then tells him to relax, since the second stage has barely begun for the others. We see Ryuto, who can barely lift his arms, finishing on hard mode. We see Saya, who's trying to suffocate the beast with a giant water bubble. With that, she also finishes her run in the challenge, but it takes her 19 minutes. Itsuki comments that they both stopped at hard mode, and Fujiwara explains that they're good. The host says that competitors can only leave the arena if they're severely injured. Suddenly, Akira announces that another participant has reached nightmare mode. The screen shows us Gaku Oe, who could probably defeat at least one giant, and also a Shinigami user, who has a lot of grit to have made it this far. She then yells, and her creature transforms into its full beast form. Now a giant werewolf, the Shinigami charges at the enemy with everything it's got. The giant tries to fight back, but the creature easily stops its blow. Hento explains that Shinigamis can shapeshift, and that one must be careful with them. Itsuki then thinks about the dog he got from Charles, deciding he's going to level it up. He turns to leave, saying that since his friends have already given up, there's no reason to stay. But he stops suddenly, his eyes wide, seeing something shocking in front of him. It was Iberia, encased in a strange armor, probably a gift from his father. Iberia brags, saying it's the strongest epic armor his father has ever made. We then see the armor's stats screen, which grants an extra 100 attack and agility. He explains that the armor has a will of its own, and it was difficult to tame it, but he has to win in 15 minutes, or he'll suffer severe penalties. With the armor, his attack and agility stats increase by 120. He charges forward, saying he needs to push himself so he doesn't hold his partner back. He then strikes the giant, yelling that they are the double-eye duo after all. Itsuki watches from the corner of his eye, realizing his friend has gone into full berserker mode. Suddenly, a siren blares, announcing that the second phase of the tournament is finally over. Fujiwara announces that only the top 10 will advance to the main event, with prizes for the top 2. Lying on the ground, Gaku Oe boasts that the special reward is already his. The host then prepares himself, saying he will now announce the top 10 ranked participants, and the screen shows the results, with Itsuki in first place, with over 100,000 points. The other competitors are shocked, as the previous record was 60,000. Gaku gets up, furious about placing third, and asks who Itsuki Tenma is. Kana Hanyu says she would love to cross swords with Itsuki Tenma one day. Saya, on the other hand, is discouraged by the power gap between them. In the private box, Ageha celebrates, exclaiming that the results are out and Itsuki is in the lead. She feels that her father is very happy, as humanity's new sun is shining brightly. Lying on the ground, Iberia smiles, saying he already knew Itsuki would take first place. He stands up, proud to have delivered a performance worthy of their duo. Itsuki then praises his friend, telling him he was amazing and left him completely shocked. Iberia gets all goofy from the praise, making the face of a complete, happy idiot. With that, the preliminaries of the 21st National Tournament are finally concluded. Itsuki carries Iberia on his back, since his friend used up all his energy in the fight. The scene shifts to the southern continent, where a white-bearded old man meditates peacefully. One of the guards complains, but another scolds him, explaining that he is the supreme commander. His name is Balgar, and he's known as a prophet capable of foreseeing the future. The skeptical guard then asks why the barriers always go up before the warning, but it's explained that he can only foresee a small part, yet he is still very powerful. Suddenly, Balgar's eyes fly open, panicking at the vision he just had. He leaps to his feet, shouting that his predictions are always 100% accurate. At that, he nearly faints, but urgently warns that the northern continent is in great danger. He explains that a massive attack by beasts is coming, including some above level 100. Back at Hento's house, a gentle breeze blows through the garden trees. Itsuki looks at his status screen, seeing he's finally passed 1,500 points. His agility and defense stats have grown a lot, thanks to his passive skills. We're shown that with each level, the awakened gain 50 status points to use. He then calculates that his total points are equivalent to a level 30 awakened. His passive skills can increase his agility and defense infinitely, which is great, but he's worried about his attack since he has no way to increase that stat. Suddenly, a voice shouts, announcing that the food is finally ready. It was Ryuto, who arrives all excited, saying he made Itsuki's favorite dishes. Itsuki walks towards them, thinking that over-mimesis might give him an attack skill. The scene changes to the table, where everyone gathers for a feast prepared by Ryuto. Itsuki then asks about Iberia, who still hasn't shown up to join them. Ageha explains that she healed his injuries, but he's sleeping from exhaustion. Ryuto is impressed that a level 7 like him managed to clear nightmare mode, but Saya suddenly chokes and points behind him with a look of pure panic on her face. Ryuto doesn't understand a thing, as a sinister shadow appears right behind him in the room. The shadowy figure then whispers that it wants food, looking like a completely starved zombie. It was just Iberia, who knocks Ryuto out of his chair and charges towards the table. The cook scolds him for the scare, while the blonde devours everything in sight. With his head down, Iberia shows his empty bowl, asking for even more food. Ryuto gets embarrassed, asking why his friend is mad at him of all people, but Iberia lifts his face and, with a smile, says the food is delicious. Ryuto brags, saying his cooking definitely brought his friend back to normal. Iberia says he has more talent as a chef, and Ryuto isn't sure if it's a compliment. Hento then interrupts the mess, saying he has an important question to ask. He looks at everyone at the table, wanting to know what the scariest thing is for them. Ryuto thinks for a moment and explains that his dream is to travel the world eating well. Therefore, his biggest fear is getting old and not being able to enjoy life properly anymore. He gets goosebumps, saying that just thinking about it gives him the chills. Hento then turns to Saya, who begins to tell them she was born into a family of doctors. With tears in his eyes, Itsuki remembers the warmth he felt from that negative world. After that, he met his master, Ageha, and even the clumsy Iberia. It's as if he had found new companions, as if his family had grown. He smiles, saying it's been a long time since he felt this safe, and that he wanted it to last. Out loud, he answers that more than anything, he was afraid of living alone. Ageha notices his aura is calm and peaceful, completely different from before. But Iberia throws himself at him, shouting that he'll never abandon him, making Itsuki embarrassed. Hento then explains that he asked this because regret is something a savior cannot have. He warns that a death without regrets is the goal of every savior in the world. With the lesson taught, he tells everyone to finish eating and go rest soon. The group says goodbye, promising to meet again at the national tournament. Itsuki asks when Iberia got so close to Ryuto, and he gets embarrassed. As they walk, Itsuki remembers he had something to ask Saya, but decides to save it for later. He looks to the side and wonders about Ageha, who seems to be gone. Suddenly, he sees her running desperately and wonders why she's in such a hurry. Hento asks what happened, and she explains that it's a secret report from the southern continent. She says the information is top secret and can only be told to high-level saviors, but Hento tells her to say it, saying he trusts them both and that it's no problem. She then reveals Balgar's prophecy about a massive beast attack in 3 days. Itsuki asks if the prophecy is reliable, and Hento confirms that he is the best. Ageha tries to convince her father to flee, but he says he's the target. With this, Hento understands that if he stays, he'll serve as great bait. Itsuki and Ageha offer to fight, but Hento immediately refuses their help. He says he's already made up his mind, and that he has something important for Tenma to do. With that, he asks them both to protect Aiden, Iberia's father and a great craftsman. Itsuki understands that his master is trying to keep him away from the battlefield. Ageha then approaches, saying she also has 3 requests for her father. She orders to evacuate the citizens, notify the awakened, and protect the most populated areas. At night, Ageha says she's already made the arrangements, and Hento apologizes for the trouble. She gives him a suspicious look, as if she doesn't believe her father's words. Hento asks if she's worried, but Ageha says she'll have to defeat everyone. She then remarks that, as expected, her father always sees through everything. He explains that he sent Tenma away because if he fought, his abilities would be exposed. Hento also reveals that from his battles, he realized the boy lacks offensive power, and that's why he sent him to Aiden, who has an artifact that increases power. If he succeeds, a perfect awakened being with all attributes will finally be born. On the first day of the prophecy, stone monuments fall all over the northern continent. Itsuki and Iberia are running, and the blonde one says they still have 100 kilometers to go. The protagonist thinks they need to hurry, as the attack could start soon. Suddenly, Iberia stops and points to the sky, yelling for his friend to look. Itsuki turns and sees what his friend was pointing at, completely shocked by the sight. A flaming stone monument was falling right into the middle of their city area. The giant pillar hits the ground with full force, causing an explosion that lights up the night. Itsuki thinks the evacuation must still be in progress, and that a beast now would be a disaster. In the city, a group of awakened ones warns that a beast is coming and tells everyone to run. Iberia notices that a barrier has formed and thinks about the dilemma between helping and their mission. Itsuki thinks Iberia is tired and worried, and that suggesting they save the civilians would just annoy him. But the blonde surprises him, saying the beast inside is strong, and they need to help. With that, they change their plans, deciding to take care of the beast in the city first. The ground then starts to shake, and a stone creature emerges from the earth. It was a flame golem, a level 21 beast, much stronger than the awakened ones. One of the fighters says that even as a group, it'll be tough to beat such a strong monster. The group's leader creates a stone shield, shouting for no one to break formation. He tells the others to look for an opening while he holds off the golem's attack. But the creature hurls a fireball that hits the leader head-on, sending him flying. The man crashes against a wall, saying it's impossible he survived that hit. The others panic, because if even their strongest couldn't take it, they don't stand a chance. One of them yells to run, but the golem appears and strikes him before he can escape. He then yells to the others, telling them to watch out for the attack. But when he turns around, he sees the golem right in front of him, its red eyes glowing. Desperate, he fires his water cannon, begging for the monster not to kill him. He thinks it's over, but then remembers that as a water element user, he has an advantage. The others wonder if he succeeded, but decide to finish the golem off anyway. But the man stands up, saying he defeated the beast alone and should be the one to finish it. But the golem regenerates and grabs him, leaving all the awakened ones shocked at the scene. The creature then unleashes a blast of fire, and everyone thinks it's over for them. Suddenly, a wall of black ice appears and blocks the attack, protecting everyone. Itsuki and Iberia arrive, and the blonde tells them to leave the monster to the Double E duo. Itsuki tells Iberia to evacuate the civilians, while he uses his ice to block the flames. The awakened ones wonder if they're saviors, and Iberia says he'll be stronger one day. The blonde scolds them, and the man wonders how an awakened one defeated a beast. He then notices the ice armor, wondering if it's an artifact. Itsuki remembers Hento's words about his sphere being powerful but slow to charge. He should avoid using the sphere in normal battles and save it as a trump card. With a crowd nearby, he knows he can't use his sphere at all, so he decides he'll have to suppress the monster using only brute force. The protagonist dodges the golem's strike and counters with a blow to its chest. He then uses his thunder wave to leap over the monster's head. The creature tries to grab him in midair, but he dodges and lands another hit on its chin. With the golem stunned, he prepares his next attack, shrouded in electrical energy. A blue and black aura surrounds him, and he strikes the monster's chest with everything he has. The blow sends the creature flying, carving a huge crater in the middle of the street. The civilians are shocked, and one of them says the beast must have already been injured. One of the awakened ones turns pale, unable to believe the scene he just witnessed. He doesn't understand how a level 21 golem can't even fight back. After the dust settles, the awakened one wonders where the young man went. Another says it was thanks to him, but the leader admits he couldn't even follow his speed. Itsuki and Iberia run, and the hero thinks this isn't a good sign for the future. He looks at his stats and realizes that one way or another, he needs to increase his attack power. Iberia praises his speed, but Itsuki says it's useless without power. The blonde is left breathless, admitting he'd never thought of that before. Itsuki then tells him that if he wants more power, there's a good way to get it. Excited, Iberia says his father's warehouse is full of tools that boost attack power. He starts drooling, imagining what Itsuki would look like with one of those items. Itsuki stares at him, wondering about his creepy laugh. The blonde then tells him to come on, but Itsuki notices he's holding back, so he picks up his friend, warning him that if he gets tired, he won't be able to fight. Iberia yells that he's not ready yet as Itsuki carries him through the city. He complains about the speed, and Itsuki says they're already too late for the mission. After a while, they finally reach their destination, a house in the middle of the forest. Iberia celebrates their arrival, thinking his arms were about to fall off. He explains that his father prefers the forest because the city is too noisy. Itsuki activates his detection skill, and Iberia warns him the house is full of traps. With a smile, he says it's no problem, as long as his friend stays close. Iberia brags, but Itsuki thinks he can dodge the traps alone with his detection. But halfway there, the blonde accidentally steps on one of the traps. He looks embarrassed, and Itsuki wonders if this is really his house. The ground then starts to shake, and the mana fluctuations become much more intense. Suddenly, a giant iron golem emerges from the ground, preparing to attack. Itsuki is shocked, as he didn't expect to find humanoid tools out here. The golem then attacks Iberia, who tries to defend himself from the creature's powerful blow, but the blow is so strong it sends him flying towards where Itsuki was standing. The protagonist dives to the ground to dodge, and the golem's fist creates a crater. Itsuki gets angry because even a tool has more attack power than him, and it's indestructible. He asks Iberia if there's a way to stop the golem, and the blonde answers. He yells, telling his friend to aim for the stone right in the creature's chest. With a smile, Itsuki activates his thunder wave, saying this just got a lot easier. He dodges the golem's attack and creates 2 electric clones to distract it. With the monster confused, he rushes forward, preparing to hit its weak spot. Using the distraction, he gets close and prepares to rip out the golem's core. With a single pull, he yanks the green stone from the creature's chest with his bare hand. Without its power source, the golem stops moving instantly, deactivated. Itsuki holds the stone, wondering if it will be enough for what he wants. But suddenly, Iberia shouts, telling someone named Yusuke-san to stop immediately. A mysterious man appears and attacks Itsuki, who blocks the blow with a dagger. The man is surprised, and Itsuki wonders when he managed to get so close. He introduces himself as Bokuto Yusuke and says he thought they were bandits. Itsuki is confused because he couldn't sense the man's mana before the attack. During the distraction, Yusuke steals Itsuki's dagger, who then realizes his sword is gone. Iberia then introduces Itsuki, but his friend cuts him off, asking where his father is. Yusuke points behind them, warning them to be careful, as the master is there. Iberia's father appears, and the guard warns that he doesn't seem to be in a good mood. Iberia runs to him, shouting that he passed the tournament preliminaries. He brags, saying he came in 4th place and wants to choose a tool, but his father slaps him across the face, sending him flying with the force of the blow. Iberia is completely confused, asking why his father hit him like that. Furious, the old man yells, telling him to return the dragon armor he stole. He scolds his son, saying something irreversible could happen if he uses it too much. Annoyed, Iberia throws his bag on the ground and says he'll never use any of his father's things again. Itsuki then introduces himself as Tenma Itsuki, saying it's a pleasure to meet him. He explains that his master sent him for protection because of Balgar's prophecy. Aiden wonders why Hento would choose such an ordinary-looking young man as his disciple. But suddenly, his eyes widen as he notices something very strange about the boy. With a powerful aura, he asks if his level is fixed, and the screen confirms it. Aiden asks if he's using a karma artifact to fake his stats. With the answer, he understands why Hento asked him for that specific item. He says the boy's master always calculates everything, and that there must be a reward. But Itsuki is surprised, as Hento never mentioned an artifact in exchange. Aiden says he doesn't mind giving him the item, as he was just curious about the choice. Itsuki doesn't understand and asks why he called the artifact a failure. The old man explains that the item was a masterpiece that doubled attack on a critical hit, but suddenly, a crack formed in the crystal, completely changing its effect. Now, the item multiplies attack by 10, but it resets the critical hit rate with each level up. That's why the artifact is useless for a normal awakened one, but perfect for the boy. Itsuki then takes the crystal, which merges with his hand in a golden glow. Aiden says that since he doesn't level up, the artifact is ideal for him. Over time, his critical hit rate will reach 100%, and his attacks will become stronger. A golden aura surrounds him, and we see the name of his new skill. But he realizes the rate only increases against stronger enemies, which is a problem. The system screen shows the details of the new crystal's effect. Aiden says it seems the item is quite compatible with him, and Itsuki agrees. Suddenly, a flaming arrow hits the forest, and Aiden says it's impossible. A stone pillar then crashes down, and the impact sends out a shockwave. The guards who were outside are thrown back by the force of the explosion. Iberia comes out of the house, not understanding what's happening outside. Startled, he notices a giant green barrier has appeared around them. He doesn't understand the reason for the barrier and panics at the situation. Aiden wonders if it's a coincidence, since only the commanders knew his location. Yusuke shouts, warning that the calamity beasts are heading in their direction. With his eyes glowing, Itsuki senses something approaching at an incredible speed. He can see 6 creatures running through the forest trees, but he corrects himself immediately, realizing there are actually 8 of them coming to attack. A one-horned demon appears, and Itsuki yells that they've finally arrived. The creature tries to attack from behind, but the protagonist grabs it by the neck. Itsuki activates his ice wall, impaling the demon on a sharp spike. But the other demons don't stop, surrounding the protagonist with bloodlust. He thinks he could use Lotus Explosion to finish them off right now. He knows that Yusuke, who is also fighting, might be able to withstand the blow. The problem is that Aiden and Iberia are hiding in the shed right behind him. If he uses the explosion carelessly, the 2 of them could get caught in the fire. Surrounded by fallen enemies, he realizes he's much better suited to fighting alone. Suddenly, he senses another wave of mana, much more intense than the previous ones. Just then, a level 24, 2-horned guardian demon appears before him. The scene changes to the demon realm, where the first wave of the attack was sent from. They then discuss which of the 8 demon kings will lead the main attack force. The king says that thanks to his eye, he noticed the existence of an important person. One of the 8 kings, Enmaraku, wonders who will lead the attack, but the king decides to leave it to a general, so as not to risk destroying his eye. He then hands over command of the main force to the demon Enshokuma. The king remarks that he hasn't eaten a human in a long time, and must be starving. Suddenly, Iberia's scream echoes through the forest, and Itsuki wonders what happened. The 2-horned demon attacks him, but he defends himself, protecting his body. With the enemy in front of him, he decides he has no choice but to use that. Itsuki prepares to strike the demon, dodging its powerful blow. He sees a chance to increase his critical hit rate and prepares his purple sphere. The protagonist then fires the sphere, which flies at high speed toward the monster. The attack hits, and the system screen announces that his critical hit rate has increased. He tells Yusuke to handle the beast that entered the house, leaving the rest to him. Shrouded in lightning, Itsuki runs toward the cabin to help his friend. But inside the house, Iberia is already down and injured, his dragon armor gone. He knows the situation is bad, and if this keeps up, it's over for him. The demon grabs him by the neck, and the blonde man screams desperately for Itsuki's help. But Aiden suddenly appears and smashes the monster's head with a sledgehammer. Iberia explains that his father isn't a fighter, but he isn't afraid of the beasts. The creature then turns, staring at the old man with a look of pure rage. With a shove, Aiden throws the beast out of the house and says the rest is up to them. Itsuki then arrives, lightning enveloping his body, ready for a fight. He activates his ice wall and defends against the creature's claw attack. Next, he pierces the monster's chest, sending blood flying everywhere. He apologizes for being late, and Aiden asks about the situation outside. Itsuki explains that he suspects Yusuke has already taken care of all the other beasts. Outside, Iberia and Aiden are shocked to see the man standing among the demons. But Yusuke warns them not to let their guard down, as more beasts will keep coming. He says he'll destroy the barrier, but if any beasts get through, it's on them. But Itsuki interrupts, telling him to stay and protect the other 2. Aiden notices his eyes, realizing there's no fear, only a thirst for battle. With that, he decides to trust the boy, and leaves the barrier's destruction to him. Yusuke warns that beasts from a green barrier are at least level 250. With a glint in his eyes, Itsuki prepares to leave, lightning crackling from his body. He smiles, saying he can finally fight with everything he's got, without holding back. Iberia offers to go, but his father stops him, saying he can't. He explains that they live in completely different worlds, and that it's pathetic. The blonde doesn't understand, saying they're a team and they cover each other's weaknesses. But his father shouts, saying he's not supporting him, he's just dead weight. He warns that if he keeps this up, he'll get Tenma killed. Aiden explains that Tenma is special, and that no one from his generation even comes close. He asks if Iberia has ever seen his eyes when he faces a calamity beast. Meanwhile, Itsuki detects 5 enemies, and his mana is restored to its maximum. He's surrounded by the demons, but remains unfazed by their numbers. With a shout, he tells them to get out of his way, an electric aura surrounding him. He then activates his Lotus Explosion, defeating all 5 enemies at once. With this victory, he knows he won't let any beast get near the others. Iberia looks toward the forest, seeing the smoke from the explosion that just occurred. He and Yusuke wonder where it came from, deducing that Itsuki found more beasts. Yusuke thinks that an explosion on that scale isn't something a level 0 could pull off. Itsuki finally reaches the green barrier and realizes the beasts inside are stronger. He tries to use his mana detection, but the barrier completely blocks his ability. Then, he remembers that the color green means the beasts are level 26 to 50. With a lotus symbol in his hand, he thinks about the massive amount of experience he's about to gain. With that, he decides to summon his Shinigami, the Death Hound, which emerges from the shadows. We see the creature's stats, a B-rank wolf with the ability to track mana. Itsuki pets the wolf, promising to give it all the experience points, but he warns it not to touch any of the beasts until it receives the order. With a menacing look, he declares that every beast in there is his prey. Ageha informs her father that the awakened guards have finally arrived to help with the defense. A man introduces himself as Kei Chirijima, a first-class savior who will protect her. Hento asks about Akira, and Ageha says he was guarding the area's perimeter. She explains that he was on his way, but she lost contact with him. Ageha worries he might be in trouble, since he's one of the pillars. Hento then tells her to keep trying, as only a special-class savior can fight. But Chirijima says she's overestimating the special-class saviors, who are only human. He believes there isn't much of a difference, and that he can also defeat a strong beast. But Hento cuts him off, saying it's good to be confident, but not that much. With a powerful aura, he warns that Chirijima only thinks that way because he's never truly fought. Suddenly, a beast falls from the sky, and he shouts, warning that the attack has begun. Hento looks at the portal, saying the enemy has finally arrived for battle. Chirijima says that if a special class doesn't show up, they can't be counted on. With a determined look, he vows to prove he's just as capable as a special class. The scene ends by showing us a green sphere of energy glowing in the middle of the night. Itsuki enters the barrier, noticing the landscape isn't much different from the outside, but he feels a strange aura coming from a pillar of light, which makes him uncomfortable. He activates his detection skill, but can't sense anything outside the barrier, as if they were separate spaces. His mana recovers, and he gets an idea of where the 5 enemies are located. He then orders his Death Hound to stay put, telling it to eat any beasts that try to escape. With a smile, he activates his Thunder Wave, ready to start moving through the area. 2 dog-like beasts run through the forest, preparing to attack the intruder. But Itsuki dashes past them with absurd speed, leaving them completely confused. He then creates an ice wall and throws himself against the demons, trapping them. With an electric sword, he cuts down the beasts, defeating both enemies at once. He keeps advancing and defeats the others, his lightning bolt striking all the demons. But the last one, the strongest, faces him, preparing for the final confrontation. Itsuki then activates his piercing sphere, aiming right for the middle of the monster's forehead. The sphere hits the target dead on, piercing the demon's head with ease. With that, his critical hit rate increases to 3%, and the fight ends. Itsuki calculates that with 3%, he should land a critical hit about every 100 attacks. He approaches the Pillar of Light, noting that it's the first time he's seen one up close. With a determined look, he thinks that if he breaks the pillar, the barrier should disappear. But suddenly, his detection pings, warning him that another enemy has been found. With lightning surrounding his body, he prepares to fight, as there's still one left. The creature launches several black spikes from the ground, trying to pierce the protagonist, but he narrowly dodges, thinking that if he hadn't sensed the mana, he would have been a goner. On the ground, he realizes he would have been impaled if he hadn't been alert. He then sees tentacles hiding behind the pillar and understands everything. The creature then reveals itself, showing it's a very different kind of beast from the others. The green barrier begins to fade, revealing the night sky outside. Back at the house, Iberia looks at his father, his face full of guilt. Yusuke warns him to stay inside, as not even Tenma might be able to handle everything. He tries to calm the blonde boy, but Iberia feels like dead weight in this situation. Outside, Yusuke asks if he could beat a level 26 beast. Yusuke tells him not to get down, because even he didn't have that kind of courage at his age. Iberia is surprised, and Yusuke explains that the difference between the barriers is huge. He says the gray beasts have no intelligence and just repeat a cycle of destruction. But in the green barriers, the creatures are intelligent, just like normal humans. Suddenly, a beast in blue armor appears, a level 34 general. Yusuke comments that few young people of their generation could defeat this beast. He explains that Iberia isn't dead weight because he's immature, but for another reason. It's that Tenma is just too strong. He can even speak their language. The beast asks what he's muttering about, if he's perhaps begging for his life. It calls him a coward and says he can't stop trembling with fear in front of it. But Itsuki smiles, saying he's just excited because he wanted to ask something. With a sadistic look, the beast says it will grant his last wish if he likes. And with his eyes blazing, Itsuki asks if the creature can feel pain. The beast says a mere human can't make it feel pain and calls him bold. With a leap, the creature warns that it specializes in causing others agony. Its tentacles lash out like blades, slicing the ground and carving craters in the forest. Itsuki dodges the attacks, moving at high speed amidst the destruction. With one strike, he severs a tentacle, creating an opening to counterattack. He wonders if it was a direct hit, but then he notices the monster's mana expanding even further. The tentacles get faster, and he can barely dodge the slicing attacks. But he knows that when it comes to speed, he still has the upper hand in this battle. The problem is, without raw power, he can hardly damage the enemy. The beast can't believe a level 0 has this much speed and asks for his level. It says it doesn't matter since he's still just a slightly faster insect. The creature warns him that if he takes a single hit, it's an instant checkmate. Itsuki charges forward, slicing another tentacle and preparing for the final blow. He dodges just in time, the tentacle grazing past his ear, nearly hitting him. Throwing his arm back, he manages to block the attack, defending himself from the blade. He successfully defends, but the impact of the blow sends him flying into a tree. With a tentacle caught on his arm, he braces himself to counter the monster's attack. Itsuki then challenges the beast, telling it to bring its best shot. The creature taunts him, saying his electricity is only good for boosting his speed. But Itsuki realizes overmimesis won't activate, as the tentacles are part of its body. He keeps striking the monster, wondering how many hits he's landed so far. But the creature says it's useless, as his mana is nearly depleted. With his red eyes, he realizes that if he keeps this up, his speed will drop. He decides he needs to increase the frequency of his attacks to land a critical hit. With his electric aura, he rushes in and starts unleashing a flurry of blows on the monster. He thinks that he has to keep attacking to increase the chance of a critical hit. The creature strikes him with a tentacle, but he endures the pain and keeps attacking. But the monster impales him with one of its tentacles, severely wounding him in the process. The beast calls him a fool for throwing himself into an attack so recklessly. It then taunts him, asking why he isn't making it feel any pain. The creature is surprised he's still alive, noting that his defense is quite high. But Itsuki smirks, and the system announces his next attack will be a 100% critical hit. With a single strike, he lands a devastating critical hit on the creature's chest. The beast screams in pain, unable to believe the power it just felt from the attack. The blow is so powerful it sends the beast flying into the trees, defeating it for good. Fallen on the ground, it wonders what just happened and where all that power came from. Itsuki wipes the blood from his mouth, realizing the power was greater than he had imagined. With this victory, he feels a pleasure and satisfaction he has never felt before. He notices his wound, but realizes he's not feeling any pain, even though he's bleeding. With smoke coming from his mouth, he says he's feeling incredible right now. He approaches the beast and asks if it felt any pain from his strike. He places his hand on the monster's head, which asks what he plans to do. With a sadistic look, he says the beast he's faced before had no intelligence. He squeezes the creature's head, saying its scream of pain is a wonderful sound. The beast panics, screaming that he's not a human, but a demon. With a final blow, he crushes the monster's head, increasing his critical hit rate. He turns to the creature's body, saying it's finally been finished off. But as the adrenaline fades, he begins to feel the intense pain from his wounds. He then looks around and sees the barrier has become transparent, with no more beasts in sight. With the area clear, he knows all that's left is to destroy the pillar. With one hit, he easily shatters the monument, thinking it was more fragile than he expected. Exhausted, he sits down, thinking he needs to check one more thing before heading back. He looks up at the sky and calls for his death hound in a weak voice. The Shinigami appears before him, and he tells the creature to show its face. The wolf approaches, and Itsuki asks if it's gotten bigger than before. He looks closer, and realizes it's not just the size that's changed. The system screen shows that the wolf has leveled up 3 times, and gained new stats. He understands it wasn't his imagination, and that its body grows with its level. With a smile, he wonders just how big the creature will get. The scene focuses on the sky, as the green barrier completely disappears into the forest. Iberia celebrates, shouting that the barrier is gone and Itsuki actually did it. Yusuke is impressed. He destroyed the barrier in 10 minutes, an incredible time. But Itsuki is exhausted. His body has reached its limit from the blood loss. He commands his death hound to follow his mana trail and lead it to Iberia. The wolf howls and starts running through the forest, following its master's orders. Suddenly, a beast's howl echoes through the forest, catching everyone's attention. Yusuke doesn't understand. The barrier was already destroyed, so there shouldn't be anything else. He tells Iberia to go back to the room, preparing for another intense battle. But Iberia recognizes the howl, saying he's heard that sound somewhere before. The creature approaches with sharp claws and a look of pure fury. Yusuke readies his sword, saying the sound is getting closer and closer. A giant wolf appears, and he says that if it's a beast, he'll have to cut it down. Iberia then recognizes the creature, saying it's the hound Itsuki claimed as a Shinigami. He shouts, trying to warn Yusuke that the wolf is their friend's Shinigami. The man attacks anyway, and the wolf slams him to the ground with one blow. Yusuke is shocked to see Itsuki on the ground, brought by Tenma's Shinigami. He doesn't understand, as he thought only Shinigami users could have one. Iberia runs to help, while Yusuke thinks that Itsuki is a complete enigma. He kneels, asking what happened, since his friend is covered in blood. But Itsuki just asks to rest for a bit, then closes his eyes and passes out instantly. Iberia panics, screaming for him and not knowing what to do. Yusuke calms him down, saying he's not dead and doesn't need to cry like that. The blonde is relieved, wondering if his friend really hadn't died. Yusuke points, showing that he's still breathing despite his serious injuries. He then tells Iberia to use his bandages to treat their friend's wounds. Iberia thinks that he might never catch up to him in power, but there are things only he can do. He explains that his class is a wind elementalist, focused on support. The screen displays his gift, which reduces damage and increases healing speed. With a determined look, he says he'll use his gift as many times as needed. With a green aura, Iberia prepares to use his healing skill, Healing Wind. He sends the energy to Itsuki, willing him to get better soon for the sake of their duo. Itsuki remains in a cold sweat, seemingly trapped in a terrible nightmare. The scene changes, and a purple barrier expands near the Izumi residence. Just then, one of the stone monuments comes crashing down, destroying part of the house. Ageha finds Chirijima on the ground and screams his name, desperate at the sight. She tries to heal him with her butterfly, but he can only tell her to run. He warns her that the monster is too strong, and that not even humanity stands a chance against it. The creature reveals itself, a level 81 Ox Warrior, extremely powerful. Defeated, Chirijima begs for Izumi and his daughter to escape in time. The Ox Warrior then faces Hento, identifying him by his strange and unique clothes. The beast celebrates finding its target, and Hento is relieved that he is the objective. Suddenly, a brilliant white explosion of energy illuminates the entire area. Ageha screams in despair for her father, who was caught in the middle of the blast. With a tear in his eye, Chirijima thinks that this is it, that it's all finally over. From the dust, Hento emerges, saying he's late to the party. With his red eyes glowing, Akira arrives, ready to join the battle. He apologizes for being late and says to leave the giant monster to him. The Ox Warrior scoffs, saying he's pretty cocky for someone who just arrived. Wounded, Chirijima shouts a warning to be careful, as the creature is very strong. But Akira blocks the blow with his arm and retaliates with a strike to the monster's chest. The blow is so powerful it pierces the beast's body, sending blood flying. Chirijima is dumbfounded, unable to believe the scene he just witnessed. He wonders if this is the true power of a special class savior. He thought they were human, but Akira is a monster with absurd strength. Ageha celebrates the victory, but Akira warns that the real fight is just beginning. Suddenly, the barrier that was purple changes color, turning completely red. Inside, a demon wonders how Lord Enshiruma will play with humanity. He reveals himself as the Red Flame Demon King and says he would love to watch. Behind him, a level 49 White Oni appears, preparing to attack. The Red Flame Demon King warns them to do nothing, as their mission is to capture one person. Then, the Frost Demon King explains they were sent to the same barrier so they wouldn't stand out. Lord Enshakuma's red barrier will attract the strongest humans, serving as a distraction. With that, the other demons decide to head to their destination, while Enshokuma fights the humans. One of them explains that Lord Linga's magic eye will guide them to the target. It turns out the magic eye is in the same location as the target, who is, in this case, Itsuki. Our hero then suddenly wakes up, in a cold sweat, sensing the presence of the magic eye. Lying in bed, Itsuki starts having a flashback to his traumatic childhood. He remembers telling his mother he found a beast that could feel pain. With an innocent smile, he celebrates crushing the creature's skull with his bare hands. But his mother appears, telling him to stop that attitude at once. She warns him that there are more important things than getting revenge on the beasts. The woman says he shouldn't use his power for revenge, but to protect. With a dark expression, the boy shouts that it's completely impossible for him. He declares that he'll never forgive the beast that killed his mother and father. With eyes red with rage, he swears he will kill every single one of them. His mother just watches him with a sad look, not knowing what to do. She says she has to go, and her body starts to dissolve into particles of light. Desperate, Itsuki yells, asking where she's going and that he has so much to tell her. She reaches out her hand and begs him not to be consumed by hatred. He tries to reach her, but her body fades away and all he can do is scream for her. Their fingers touch for a moment before she disappears completely into the light. Alone in the darkness, Itsuki reaches out his hand, a look of pure despair on his face. With a tear in his eye, he sits up, feeling the weight of loss and loneliness. A mysterious voice then mocks him, saying that crying for the dead is pathetic. The boy turns around, his eye red with rage, trying to see who's there. With a furious shout, he glares at the figure, recognizing the evil presence. He yells that it's Linga, the demon of ruin, who's mocking him for crying. With his body transformed, Itsuki screams, calling the demon a bastard with pure hatred. He lunges forward, vowing to kill him, a red aura of fury surrounding him. Linga taunts him, telling him not to be in a hurry, because he's going to make him suffer. With a single blow, the demon throws him to the ground, showing him what true despair is. Itsuki falls amidst shards of glass, screaming that he'll kill Linga no matter what. But he suddenly wakes up, his red eye glowing, realizing it was a nightmare. He looks around and sees Iberia sleeping beside him, understanding it was a dream. But he feels a terrible pain in his eyes, not understanding why. He looks in the mirror, and his left eye glows red with a sinister aura. Itsuki wakes up and notices his wounds have been healed thanks to the bandages. He looks to his side and sees Iberia sleeping, glad his friend was able to rest. To avoid waking him, he makes a shushing gesture to his death hound, but the wolf opens its mouth as if to bark, sending the protagonist into a panic. Itsuki turns pale, cursing his luck for the situation he's in. Iberia wakes up startled, thinking it's a beast and that he needs to protect his friend. Itsuki thinks that a breeze like that wouldn't even tickle a real beast, but the blonde man sees him and celebrates, shouting that he finally woke up. He hugs him tightly, and Itsuki asks how long he was out. Iberia says it's been 3 hours, and Itsuki asks if the other two are okay. With a smile, the blonde man replies that no beasts have shown up since he passed out. Itsuki remembers the dream, thinking that Linga's words are bothering him. On the second day of the prophecy, he gets dressed, knowing he can't let his guard down. Iberia is happy to see him recovered, and Itsuki says that reinforcements should be arriving. He then opens the door, saying he's going to check the situation with Yusuke first. Iberia asks for the Shinigami's name, and he says it's just Death Hound. He offers to pick a name, but Itsuki tells him he's not a user. Blonde man is disappointed, and Itsuki thinks there's no way he's letting him name it. Yusuke looks at the burnt bodies, realizing that Iberia used his real ability. Itsuki asks if he's a healer type, and Iberia says he also uses defensive skills. He asks Yusuke if any more saviors have arrived, but the answer is no. The man then questions his reason for asking, with a suspicious look on his face. Itsuki explains that they're deep in the forest, and that it's strange. He knows Yusuke has a point, but he feels that something is very wrong. A dark aura begins to spread through the forest, as if something evil is approaching. We then see a group of saviors, running at high speed through the trees. One of them asks how much further, and the other says just a few more kilometers. They celebrate that they're getting a promotion, but complain about the target's remote location. Suddenly, a woman with pink hair yells, telling them all to stop at once. But it's too late, and one of the saviors steps on a trap on the ground. She warns that she felt something strange, as if a presence was approaching. From the shadows, a voice emerges, saying she finally noticed him there. Suddenly, a beast attacks, and one of the saviors defeats it with a single sword strike. But then, 2 giant creatures appear, asking where they're going in such a hurry. With an evil smile, the Red Flame Demon King asks if they aren't all heading to the same place. Amidst the flames, we see the skeleton of one of the saviors, completely burned. The Fire Demon King comments that humans are quite fragile after all. He then turns to the White Oni, asking if he has finished the job. The creature opens its hand, which is covered in blood, showing that it has already taken care of everyone. He says the humans were crushed, and the Demon King calls him cruel. The woman wonders where they came from, since there are no barriers nearby. With a fireball in his hand, the Demon King explains they traveled a long way to get here. She begins to cry, desperate about the situation and afraid of what will happen. But the Frost Demon King warns him not to kill the humans for now. Ice starts to form on his body, and he doesn't understand what's happening. The other warns that if he ignores his orders again, the consequences will be severe. Desperate, the Fire King begs him to release the spell before his body freezes. The ice then shatters, and he is free from the spell that bound him. He engulfs himself in flames, saying he thought he was going to freeze to death right there. The woman looks at them, wondering if they will finally let her go. The Fire Demon King wonders if the woman has any special power, but the other explains that he just wants to test the new ability Lord Linga gave him. With shadow tentacles, he captures her and begins to envelop her with his energy. She screams in pain as her body is corrupted by the demon's dark aura. When the transformation is complete, she stands still, her face covered by shadows. Fire Demon wonders if she died, but the other explains what happened. With red eyes and a crystal on her forehead, the woman awakens her new powers. He explains that she has undergone demonization and now she is on their side. Kneeling, she asks for Lord Spectral King's orders. He tells her to hide her identity and wait for the day Lord Linga descends. She also needs to report that she was the only survivor, thanks to the sacrifice of the others. With her mission assigned, he tells her to go, and the woman obeys immediately. With her face covered by shadow, she turns, ready to carry out her new task. She looks back one last time, and the demons watch her walk away. With incredible speed, she runs through the forest, now an ally of the demons. The fire demon questions the reason for recruiting someone so weak for their army. The other explains that tens of thousands of humans have also been demonized. They will play a crucial role when Lord Linga finally unifies the world. The Frost King then tells the others to stop fooling around and follow him on their mission. On the second day of the prophecy, the Iron Golem is standing still, like a guard at the house. Yusuke comments that its stats are equivalent to a level 30 awakened one. Iberia asks where Tenma is, and Yusuke explains that he went to the workshop. In the workshop, Aiden asks about the critical hit he landed on the beast. Itsuki explains that it was 3%, but after the fight it went up to 4. The old man says he was lucky to get a critical hit with such a low rate. Itsuki then explains that after the blow, he felt as if he were omnipotent. Aiden stops what he's doing, turning around, surprised by the boy's revelation. He describes a sensation of heightened senses, but with complete calm and control. With a smile, Itsuki confirms that's exactly the feeling he had. Aiden then says he's surprised, as the boy managed to enter a flow state. Aiden explains that a flow state happens when you are completely immersed in something. Itsuki is confused, and the old man sums it up, saying it's when you get in the zone. He gives examples like a painter, an athlete, or even a very focused student. He explains that in this state, your senses become much sharper than normal, and on top of that, your stats and skills increase by 120%. Aiden scolds him, saying that few people in the world can enter this state. Itsuki is surprised, as he didn't know the requirements were so strict. The old man explains that not even the mighty Wajin Tei can enter it at will. He says he only managed to enter his flow state after 2 years, and for Itsuki to have achieved it in a month is truly impressive. But he stops talking and asks if the boy is actually listening to the conversation. Itsuki warns that 3 individuals with immense mana are approaching the house. He feels the mana wave is more like a beast's, not an awakened one's. With a bad feeling, he says he's going to check on the situation just in case. He thinks that he already cleared the barrier and hopes it's all just his imagination. With a push, Itsuki opens the workshop door, going out to check on the situation. Iberia is glad he's out, but Yusuke asks why he looks so tense. He explains that he felt a wave of mana and thought a beast was nearby, but Iberia says there are no barriers, and with the golem they can handle it. Suddenly, a mysterious attack destroys the iron golem in the blink of an eye. Smoke clears, revealing the metal creature completely in pieces on the ground. Yusuke is stunned, as the golem was defeated before it could even react to the attack. Then, the 3 demons appear, and the Spectral King says defeating them will be a piece of cake. On the second day of the prophecy, a dark red aura hangs over the forest. Itsuki realizes these demons are on a whole different level from the previous ones. He's never felt mana as overwhelming as the leaders of that group. The Spectral King says he'll capture the target and leaves the rest to them. He warns them just to be careful not to damage the magic eye in the process. The other 2 demons agree, saying they won't even break a sweat. Itsuki is shocked, realizing the beasts were communicating with each other. But the Spectral King warns him that he won't get past him that easily. Suddenly, Itsuki appears in front of Iberia, with Yusuke right behind him. Yusuke is stunned, wondering how the kid got there so fast. With his eyes red with rage, Itsuki realizes the enemy is incredibly fast. He yells that he'll stop him no matter what, and that he won't get near Aiden. The Spectral King then creates a wall of ice, preparing for the attack. Yusuke is blocked by the wall and wonders what that ice barrier is. He tries to break it, but realizes the wall is incredibly dense and resistant. Iberia screams, warning Yusuke to be careful as the white Oni is behind him. With his sword, Yusuke defends against the creature's attack, grabbing its hand, but the Oni throws him away with a single blow, defeating him easily. Worried, Itsuki yells his name, afraid of what might have happened, but the Fire Demon King warns that he's in no position to worry. He then launches his red flame bullet, an A-rank skill, in his direction. Itsuki tells Iberia to get out of the way and creates his ice wall to try and protect himself, but the fireball pierces through the ice and hits him, causing a massive explosion. His overmimesis activates, and the analysis of the A-rank skill begins immediately. The screen shows the progress, and he's surprised by how strong the skill is. With his arms burned, he thinks he put too much faith in his ice wall. The Demon King mocks him, saying he was a fool for thinking the ice would hold. But he looks at the boy and wonders if he might be the magic eye. Burned, Itsuki gets up, with the system showing he's still level 0. The demon smiles, saying he's just a human, and can be incinerated without any trouble. With his clothes torn, Itsuki summons his death hound for battle. The demon scoffs, asking if he plans to fight 2-on-1. He then unleashes a blast of fire, saying he doesn't stand a chance. But Itsuki orders the wolf to protect Aiden, preparing to fight alone. The demon is surprised that he dodged the attack, not understanding his strategy. He notices the Shinigami, wondering if the creature is heading for the target. He then looks at Itsuki, wondering if he thinks he can beat him alone. Itsuki realizes that if he plays the victim, he can buy time for the analysis. The system screen shows that the enemy's skill analysis has reached 36%, but he can't stand it and decides he won't act like a coward in front of a beast. With a sadistic smile, he faces the demon and asks if he has a problem. Wreathed in lightning, he yells that the demon looks pretty pathetic too, after all. The creature becomes furious, calling him a despicable and arrogant human for his audacity. He creates a pillar of fire, saying he'll turn him to ash right now. But Itsuki notices he got bigger, but his speed didn't increase at all. He realizes the demon is a long-range type and that he can win. The demon is surprised, not understanding what the kid is planning to do. With incredible speed, Itsuki closes the distance and lands a blow on the enemy. The demon just watches him with a disdainful look, unfazed by the blow. With a confident smile, he prepares to counter the boy's attack. He creates a shield of flames, which blocks Itsuki's attack with ease. The protagonist wonders what that is and realizes it's a fire shield. The demon mocks him, asking if he thought he didn't know his weaknesses. He then hurls a fireball, which hits Itsuki head-on and sends him flying. Lying on the ground, he thinks that's it, that he finally got him. Itsuki is thrown against a tree, his arms completely burned and injured. He blames himself for being careless against such an intelligent beast. The demon says he completely fooled him, and that he's no level 0. Burned and injured, Itsuki stands up, radiating a dark and menacing aura. The demon asks if he still wants to fight, a sadistic smile on his face. He warns that it would be easier if he just stayed on the ground and accepted defeat. But Itsuki glares at him, saying the analysis is taking too long because it's A rank. On the second day of the prophecy, at Aiden Hill, we see the blacksmith's workshop. The Frost Demon King praises the old man, saying he's crafted many powerful artifacts. He calls him the most talented craftsman of the human race, recognizing his worth. But Aiden scoffs, and the demon says he won't kill him, as long as he's useful. The old man refuses, saying he's not the type to take orders from anyone. With a knife in hand, he prepares to fight, an aura of rage surrounding him. Ice begins to cover his body as he prepares to use a powerful skill. The demon is surprised, as the ice skill is at least A rank, but he warns that it's useless, as the decision to live or die is his to make. Hiding, Iberia panics, unsure if he should launch a surprise attack. Suddenly, a suit of armor in the corner of the room starts moving on its own. The Death Hound appears out of nowhere, and Iberia recognizes it as Itsuki's Shinigami. The wolf lunges at the demon with sharp teeth and a furious gaze. The Frost King faces the creature, unfazed by the wolf's surprise attack. With a single blow, he freezes the Death Hound, trapping it in a prison of ice. The ice trapping the Death Hound shatters, freeing the creature to fight. The Frost King wonders if reinforcements have finally arrived to spoil the fun. Iberia is in shock, as not even Itsuki's Shinigami can get close to him. He thinks there's no way to win, and that he needs to find Itsuki for help, but he remembers his father's words, that he would only be a dead weight. Iberia recalls the state Itsuki was in, all burned and injured in the forest. He knows that if he goes after him now, he might put him in even more danger. With a determined look, he decides he'll save his father alone, no matter the cost. He then remembers the dragon armor and knows he might have a chance. With that, he runs to the room, saying the armor must be under the bed. He yells, shouting that he's going to save his father and for him to hold on. The Frost King realizes someone was hiding and calls them a coward. He then turns to Aiden, saying he will take him to his fate. Outside, the Fire King decides to leave the cleanup to the other two, and prepares himself. Itsuki, injured, uses his ice wall to cover his burned leg and move. Itsuki activates his thunder wave, throwing himself into the enemy's fiery blast. The demon mocks him, saying his speed has dropped because of his injuries. He then prepares for another attack, asking how long he can hold out. Itsuki defends with both hands, preparing to counter the blow. The demon then unleashes a blast of fire, with several fireballs heading his way. With a determined gaze, Itsuki faces the attack, breaking into a cold sweat under the pressure. He finds himself surrounded by fireballs with nowhere to run or escape. Even with his speed, he knows he can't dodge so many attacks. He thinks that in his current state, there's no way he can dodge them all. As the explosion nears, he thinks it's over, that there's nothing more he can do. The system shows the analysis has reached 90%, almost complete. He's hit head-on by the flames, and the analysis continues to climb rapidly. As his body burns, he remembers the last time he felt that heat. The analysis reaches 96%. And the explosion rages on. Near the end, he says, more flames, just like that time. We see the image of his mother, half of her body dissolving in flames. The demon concentrates its power, preparing a massive fireball to attack. With a shout, he launches the red flame bullet, wanting to end the fight. Itsuki wonders if he made it in time, as a blue barrier appears before him. The skill analysis finally reaches 100%, and the explosion erupts. The demon is confused, wondering what that blue energy sphere is. With the analysis complete, Itsuki gains Black Ice Wall level 3. His stats increase by 50, and all his injuries are healed instantly. Now, he knows he no longer needs to fear the enemy's fireballs. The demon doesn't understand, as the attack didn't even scratch his defensive barrier. An ice lotus flower appears, and the demon recognizes it with a look of surprise. He realizes he already knew the boy was stronger than he seemed. With a fiery aura, he warns that playtime is over, and it's time to end this. But he stops suddenly, eyes wide, not believing what he's seeing. Itsuki emerges from the smoke, his body fully recovered and surrounded by a dark aura. He also reveals he was planning to leave the demon for later and go save Aiden. But he says the enemy's flames brought back some very bad memories, and with a look of pure hatred, he declares he will crush the demon first. Deep within a dense forest, a sudden movement shatters the stillness of the dark night. Sent hurtling through the air, the warrior is shocked by his opponent's unbelievable strength. He realizes he only survived the attack because he managed to block the blow with his artifact. He slams his sword deep into the ground, trying to break his momentum. Finally screeching to a halt, he wonders just how incredibly far that impact threw him. Realizing these aren't ordinary enemies, he decides he needs to attack faster. At that exact moment, another violent impact rocks the area nearby, kicking up a cloud of dirt and dust. He turns his head, wondering if the man he faced earlier had followed him here. Instead, a bizarre, horrendous creature emerges from the shadows, bearing its claws and tongue. Seeing the monster, he readies himself for a fight. He remarks that this will actually make things easier for Tenma. He considers that the real problems are his master and the powerful Iberia. So, he decides to wrap this up as quickly as possible so he can return and provide backup. The scene shifts to a cluttered table, where someone believes the item they're searching for is close by. Beneath the floorboards, a young blonde man stretches out his hand, trying to reach something vital. With some effort, his fingertips finally brush against a loose board and push it aside. Finding what he was looking for, his eyes light up, and he celebrates finally locating the item. Smiling, he recognizes the dragon equipment, declaring that he can finally fight now. Inside the box, a complete set of epic armor awaited, ready for the imminent battle. Now equipped with the suit, he tells himself to focus entirely on the enemy right in front of him. Facing the battle, he vows with conviction that this time, he won't be dead weight to anyone. Remembering his father's warning, he knows there will be side effects if he uses it for too long. He bursts out of his hiding place, guaranteeing he'll save his father within the time limit. The scene changes. A hooded figure questions if it's wise for the other to be so relaxed and still. The creature boasts that only a special class savior could truly threaten him, but, he adds, they're all too busy fighting the Demon King right now. Trying to buy time, the older man asks if they came all this way just to capture him. In response, the creature warns him not to flatter himself. There are several other targets active. The prisoner begins to question who else they are hunting at this exact dangerous moment. Sensing an approach, the hooded figure complains about how extremely persistent these enemies are in their attacks. At that same instant, a swift shadow approaches along the forest floor, drawing closer and closer. Trapped, the man wonders if it's Jusuke or Tenma approaching, worried about their chances. Suddenly, a warrior flies at high speed toward the black hooded creature. Landing roughly, he shouts furiously, demanding they immediately return his dear father. Surprised by the arrival, the creature wonders what the hell these humans think they're doing. The scene shifts again. A man with a head of fire stares down another figure emerging from bluish energy. He notices that the opponent's body, previously burned, has recovered impressively. Perplexed by the scene, he questions how his rival managed to recover so fully after being wounded. Irritated, he warns that regeneration doesn't matter. The fight's outcome will be the same. He unleashes a barrage of fire attacks toward his powerful opponent. Surrounded by projectiles, the man activates an ice wall to protect himself from the onslaught. The fire attacks explode violently against the ground, kicking up a dust cloud. Seeing the explosion, he mocks him, saying it was foolish to take the attack head-on and that he'll turn to charcoal. But emerging from the smoke, the man warns that flames of that level no longer work against his body. Immediately, he activates a new ability, warning that his opponent is the one actually in danger. Watching his speed increase, the enemy is surprised, but trusts in his red flame barrier. Advancing furiously, he shouts that he will destroy every part of his enemy's body. In the blink of an eye, his shadowy form moves across the battlefield with impressive speed. The demon wonders if the boy forgot he still had a protective barrier, but the blow hits the barrier squarely, cracking its entire defensive structure. Breaking through the defense, he lands a powerful blow that completely shatters the enemy's energy protection. With a war cry, he continues his relentless advance against his now totally desperate opponent. At that instant, the fire demon is terrified to see his best defense rendered completely useless. He advances, warning with a smile that now it's time to cook. Realizing the danger, the demon thinks he needs to run. He's finished if he gets caught. He starts running, shouting desperately for help to escape the deadly situation. But his body is thrown violently against the ground, creating a small crater with the impact. Down on the ground, he begs for help, trying to stand and flee the impending attack. His opponent catches him, gripping his head tightly to prevent any attempt at escape. In his final moments, he screams in disbelief that he's being killed by a simple human. With a final blow, his head is completely disintegrated, ending the fight instantly. Fallen to his knees, the enemy can't believe he was defeated by someone of such a low level. Channeling dark energy, he receives a notification that his next attack will be a critical hit. Witnessing that power, the Demon King begins to sweat cold and screams that he is a monster. Defeated on the ground, the enemy panics, screaming that he is actually a powerful demon. The protagonist surges forward with absurd speed. He readies his body for the final decisive strike. With a single attack, he hits the opponent dead on. An explosion of energy and dust erupts. Instantly, the violent impact blasts a crater into the ground, ending the fight. He steps closer and stomps on the enemy's body, confirming his crushing victory, but he complains. The critical hit ended it too fast. He wanted to make the opponent suffer more. Feeling his power, he realizes he's activated the flow state again, just like last time. He theorizes that landing a critical hit might be the automatic trigger for his transformation. Checking his stats, he notes his total has already crossed the 2,000 mark. Just then, an energy orb appears, making him wonder if it's the beast's karma. Suddenly, the green energy flies off, heading deep into the dark forest. Watching its path, he suspects the karma is hunting for Yusuke, who was in that same area. Seeing the energy head toward the workshop, he finds it strange the orb didn't split to follow different signatures. Knowing his Shinigami is immortal, he prepares to run, grasping the urgency of the situation. Sprinting as fast as he can, he worries something bad has already happened to Aiden. Attacking with everything he has, the armored warrior lands a blow, but the enemy defends against it easily. He's shocked to see that even his full power strike couldn't break the block. Determined to win, he warns that he'll keep attacking forcefully until the defense finally shatters. Meanwhile, the creature mocks the old man trapped in ice, who desperately screams the name Iberia. Enraged, the old man yells at his son, reminding him that the artifact carries a terrible price. Falling toward the ground, the son says he doesn't care. He was trying to save his father. He justifies himself, saying his friend Itsuki surely would have made the same choice. Seeing his son's determination, the father screams desperately and forcefully, begging him to stop. The enemy grabs the ice prison, commenting on how sentimental familial love is. Then, the creature warns it has no more time to waste on the boy. Using its ability, the creature creates an ice monster and hurls it at the armored warrior. Hit squarely, the young man is thrown back as the enemy tells him to know his place. Trapped, the father watches in horror as his son is completely defeated by the shadow creature's blow. The ice creature flies off as the armor's usage time reaches 3 minutes. Scene change. An ice being starts to crack while rising to power level 20. Breaking the ice cocoon, a wolf-like creature emerges, freeing itself completely. The protagonist faces his Shinigami, who goes by the name Death, and stands before him. Noticing his level increased, he realizes the creature absorbed the released karma. Next, the Shinigami questions what happened to Aiden and the other disaster beast there. Hearing the question, the young man's eyes widen. He begins to understand the situation and the grave danger. He turns and sees a hole in the wall, wondering what the hell happened here. Facing the passage, he feels an extremely intense wave of mana coming from that direction. He decides to act alone, stating he has no time to wait for Jusuke's help. Scene change. We see Jusuke landing a solid hit on the creature with his greatsword, but the monster manages to defend against the attack, using its own arm as a protective shield. The force of the impact drags him backward. He uses his sword to break against the ground. He realizes the wound he caused on the creature is already closing rapidly. Seeing the regeneration, he concludes this is the worst type of opponent he could face in battle. Seeing an orb approaching, he braces himself, saying he needs to hold firm for his companions. He prepares for a new attack, noticing the monster always protects its head and neck, but the warrior manages to grab the creature's arm, releasing very powerful reddish energy. With that, he attacks the monster's neck, confirming it was its true weak point. Knowing how to defeat it, the warrior fills with confidence and says he can handle this now. He advances again against the creature, readying his body for the next decisive attack. Decisive, he attacks and manages to cut off both the monster's arms, which take a second to regenerate. Focused on the fight, he knows that single second is more than enough. With its arms severed, The creature's weak point is totally open and completely exposed to the blow. Concentrating all his strength, his eyes shine with truly impressive and terrifying fury and intensity. Then, he lands the final blow right on the weak point, dealing massive damage to the creature. The attack's impact generates an energy wave that violently throws the monster back. Seeing the fallen beast's body, he can't believe it took so much work to defeat one monster. He turns, thinking he needs to regroup with Tenma as quickly as possible to help. But instantly, he realizes the other disaster beast is creating a path of ice. Scene change. The old man feels pain in the ice prison, and the creature notices his suffering. The villain allows him to speak, so the old man begs him to let his son go. But the villain warns he can no longer control the ice from that distance, and soon the old man will obey him. Furthermore, he reveals he recognized the boy's armor, forged from a very powerful magical dragon. Remembering the past, he explains that the dragon's consciousness remains in its remnants even after death. Because of this, that residual consciousness eventually swallows the mind of the user who wears the armor too long. In the end, the user's body is completely dominated, transforming into something much more dangerous. Completing the explanation, he reveals that the armor's host becomes a true, powerful dragon. Meanwhile, the armor's assimilation completes, transforming the young warrior into an uncontrollable draconic beast. Rewinding a bit, Jusuk was saying goodbye to Iberia, telling him to be careful and come back safe. Jusuk commented that Iberia seemed to really admire Tenma, but the boy said he wanted to be like Itsuki, so he asked why. The question caught the young man off guard, leaving him a bit awkward. Jusuke explained his point. Iberia had already met many incredible people stronger than himself. Listing examples, he cited Aiden, the powerful Wajin-Te, and even the famous Nentu Izumi. He kept talking, saying that even he had more fame and battle experience than Tenma. That's why he questioned why, of all people, he specifically wanted to be like Itsuki. Caught off guard, Iberia froze, not knowing exactly how to respond. Seeing the boy hesitate, Jusuke told him not to worry. It was just curiosity on his part, but the question made him think. He wondered about the true reason for his admiration, going back 10 years. We see little Iberia, super excited, holding a wooden sword. Smiling at her son, his mother asked if he liked the birthday present he just got. All pumped up, he decided to name the Sword of the Invincible Hero of Justice. With a giant smile, he yelled that he was an awakened and warned the disaster beasts to get ready. Running through the house, he told his mom he was going to show off the new sword to everyone. His mom asked him to be careful, but his dad doubted he even had friends to show it off to. Arriving at the square, he proudly showed off his new sword to a group of boys. But suddenly, the boys' expressions changed. They looked much more threatening and strange. One of them asked to borrow the sword for a second, reaching out his hand. Confused, little Iberia was totally shocked and scared by their unexpected request. Surrounding the boy, they said his dad could make another sword, promising they'd give it back later. Scared, he refused to hand it over. He said the sword was his, and he just got it. The group leader pressured him, asking if he wouldn't even lend them the toy. Pressured by the boys, he got extremely nervous and cornered. He didn't know what to do. Forcing a smile, he stuttered that it was okay, and agreed to hand the sword over to the boys. Grabbing the sword, the bullies ran off, mocking his awakened hero cry from before. Soon after, little Iberia was left behind, completely alone in the middle of that huge courtyard. Head down, he quietly asked them to remember to give the sword back after playing. Then he watched his parents from afar, feeling very sad and totally disappointed with what happened. When he got home, his mom welcomed him back and asked if he managed to have fun. Forcing a smile, he lied to his mother, saying he had a lot of fun outside. But she noticed the lie on her son's face, getting suspicious and very worried about him. Instantly, his father asked where the sword was, assuming the boys had taken it again. Hearing this, the mother was shocked. She said they needed to go retrieve it immediately. His dad argued that even if he got it back, it would just happen again next time. Furious, he yelled that his son couldn't even protect what was his or ask for help. Disappointed, he said he didn't remember raising a coward, while the boy cried, curled up alone. In his dark room, the boy wondered why he admired the powerful and brave Itsuki so much. Months later, in a hospital, the father argued with the doctor, who said he had done everything possible for his wife. He revolted, asking if all they could do was wait for her to just die there. Lying in bed, running out of time, the mother called for her dear son, little Iberia. Coming closer, the boy started crying, but she asked him not to shed any more tears. She then said his father thought he was weak, but in truth he was just very kind. But she warned that kindness without power could be cruel. She asked him to make an important promise. Holding his hands, she asked him to stay strong, believing one day he would be a great savior. As her last request, she asked her son to take care of his father for her in the future. At that instant, her hand lost strength, and the heart monitor stopped working completely. Crying hard, He promised to become the strongest of all, a kind and very good savior. Alone in the room, he questioned himself again why he wished so badly to be like the strong Itsuki. Remembering the past, he said that when they met, he felt very afraid of Itsuki's strength. Over time, he realized his new companion wasn't just strong, but something more. It didn't matter if the opponent was an army of awakened or a giant, very powerful creature. He simply possessed an incredible fighting spirit that never at any moment seemed to shake. Despite his serious appearance, he showed unexpected and sincere kindness to all his allies. Back to the present, he finally understood the real reason he wanted to be like Itsuki. So he explained that Itsuki is strong, brave, and also has a very kind and good heart. But he called himself a coward, saying becoming a savior like him was an impossible dream. However, he said that fighting alongside his hero would already be enough for him to be happy. Back to the fight. The now transformed draconic creature let out a long, tired sigh of smoke. Right after, it started running, making Jusuke yell and wonder if that was still Iberia. Turning its head toward its target, the draconic creature focused its gaze on the new opponent. Up ahead, it found Tenma already standing there, calmly waiting for the monster's next attack move. Then, the face of the dragon and a demon king appeared together, as if connected. High above the forest, the draconic creature glared at its opponent, waiting patiently on the ground. Realizing the situation, Tenma wondered why Iberia was using that forbidden equipment again. He noticed his friend's reaction seemed very strange. It was almost like Iberia didn't recognize him. With a serious look, he carefully analyzed the creature, trying to understand what was happening right then. Then he realized the monster's appearance was very different from the last time. The creature let out a strange sound, speaking a language he couldn't quite understand. Confused by the scene, Tenma asked where Aiden was, trying to connect with his friend somehow. Ignoring the question completely, the creature roared and charged with incredible speed and uncontrollable fury. Its rapid movement destroyed the ground, leaving a trail of destruction wherever it passed. In the blink of an eye, the monster suddenly appeared right behind Tenma, preparing to attack. But Tenma managed to hold the creature, grabbing a part of its body with great strength and determination. Then he screamed with all his might, begging desperately for his friend Iberia to finally wake up. But the creature ignored him, starting to run toward where the warrior Jusuk had been fighting earlier. As it ran, it let out another strange sound. This time, it sounded like a cry of pure agony. Right after, it activated a wind blade, readying its claw for a totally devastating and deadly attack. Launching its attack, the creature fired a sharp gust of wind straight at its opponent. Tenma activated his mana detection, his eyes glowing to analyze the enemy's technique. Recognizing the ability, he said that was the power of a true wind elementalist. Managing to dodge by a hair, the blow grazed past him and hit a tree right next to him. Then he said he didn't know if it was a side effect or if Iberia was being controlled by the sub-beast. Ordering the monster to stay put, he fired a powerful electric attack to try and immobilize the creature. But even hit head-on, the dragon managed to resist the blow, glaring at Tenma with intense fury. Letting smoke out of its mouth, the creature seemed even more furious after taking the electric attack. Analyzing the mana, he confirmed the fluctuation belonged to Iberia, but he didn't understand the attack. With his eyes glowing red, he shouted furiously, wondering what the hell happened to his friend. Suddenly, the creature opened its mouth and asked for Itsuki to kill it once and for all. Hearing his friend's voice, a tear ran down Tenma's cheek, shocked by that request. At that same instant, the creature grabbed him tightly, readying its body for a new, violent blow. Then it attacked without hesitation, piercing Tenma's chest with its sharp and very powerful claw. In the background, another warrior shouted desperately, telling his companion to be very careful there. Spinning his body, Yusuke landed a blow that threw the monster far away with great force. With the impact, the creature was launched violently against the ground, kicking up dust and opening a crater. Then he warned Tenma that the worst had happened, referring to the complete transformation of his friend Iberia. Instantly, the creature stood up and charged with absurd speed, disappearing from their sight. Soon after, it appeared again, moving rapidly in circles around the two warriors. Observing the movement, Tenma realized that Iberia had been consumed and totally lost control of his body. He concluded that, as he imagined, all of this was a side effect. He needed to get the armor off his friend, but Jusuke warned that it was too late. The armor had already completely fused to Iberia's body. Remembering the past, he said he had seen an awakened one dominated by the armor before, and that it doesn't come off. He completed his explanation by saying the only way to remove the armor is with the death of the user. Disbelieving what he heard, Tenma was shocked and refused to accept that terrible, harsh reality. Jaosuk said they had no choice and needed to kill their friend to stop the threat. Then he offered to finish the fight, telling Tenma to leave the area if he couldn't handle watching, but Tenma replied that he would do it himself, stopping Daosuke from carrying such a heavy burden. Then he sent his Shinigami to track Aiden and asked Daosuke to save him, taking on the difficult fight alone. Telling him to go, Tenma said he still had important things to talk about with his friend Iberia, so Jusuk agreed to the request, saying he was totally counting on his battle partner. Right after, he explained they needed to end Iberia there so he wouldn't get even stronger. At the same instant, the creature fired an energy blow toward the two warriors on the ground. Charging together, Tenma and his Shinigami managed to defend against the blow with a powerful combined attack. From the impact, the monster was dragged backward, using its claws to break on the ground. Immediately following, it prepared a wind blade, spinning its body for a new quick attack. Realizing the ability didn't activate, Tenma understood what might be happening with his friend, but the attack grazed him, causing a cut on his neck and making blood flow. With a sad look, he asked if Iberia really didn't want him to get hurt in the battle. Ignoring the question, the creature let out a roar, preparing for another violent and deadly attack. Then it activated 1,000 wind blades, joining its hands to channel an absurd amount of energy. Right after, it fired the blades in Tenma's direction, who became surrounded on all sides. Hit full on, his body was cut multiple times by the extremely sharp wind blades. With that, his body was covered in wounds, gushing a large amount of blood everywhere. Seeing its friend wounded, the draconic creature began to cry, with tears running down its face. The scene shifts. A subordinate reports that Aiden has been captured, but the other demons were completely wiped out. With an air of indifference, the Lord replies that capturing Aiden was the only thing that truly mattered to the plan. The servant then warns that Lord Ape Eater is facing great difficulty in battle. He adds that the opponent is just a single, solitary special class savior. Surprised, the Lord asks for the name of the human capable of suppressing his servant like that. The servant reveals the man is Heitensho, possessor of the supreme physical body. Cutting to the fight, a man is hurled away by a powerful blast of reddish energy. Moments later, two warriors clash, exchanging energy blows with absurd, destructive intensity. The massive battle rages on, completely devastating the landscape around their direct confrontation. Watching from a distance, a man is shocked that the fight, which started yesterday, still hasn't ended. An instant later, a new clash of powers illuminates the entire battlefield with raw energy. We then see one of the 8 demon kings, known as Ape Eater, roaring and smashing the ground with incredible force. Watching the struggle, a woman worries about blows strong enough to destroy the earth itself. Realizing the risk, she decides she must do something to help against the beast. Touching her thigh, she seems to prepare to enter the intense combat. But a warrior stops her, telling her not to worry. Heighten wouldn't die so easily. Far away, another man is shocked by the battle's power level, which is cracking the cliff floor. The masked warrior then warns them not to underestimate the saviors, because every single one of them is a monster. On the battlefield, the monkey demon prepares himself, flexing his body for a massive, powerful attack. Gritting his teeth, he stares at his opponent with a look of pure fury and uncontrollable rage. He then increases his size, becoming a colossal giant before the small human in front of him. Seeing the scene, the masked man remarks, "It's been a while since he saw Heighten's second form." With his body transformed, Heighten raises his arm, dark energy emanating from his entire being. The woman notes his presence has changed, and the warrior explains that his stats increase, but he becomes cruel. Facing the giant, Heighten smiles sinisterly, preparing for combat in his transformed state. He then charges at high speed, leaving a trail of destruction and a crater in the ground. The masked man reveals that in this form, Heighten receives a special title feared by all. With a war cry, he advances against the giant's leg, unleashing powerful reddish energy. His blow manages to wound the creature, which screams in pain from the totally unexpected attack. Immediately after, he positions himself beneath the giant, releasing his power for the final, decisive strike. After the battle, Heighten leaps away with his wounded body, leaving a cloud of dust behind. Entirely battered, he moves forward with a determined look, focused on his goal. The woman asks where he is going, and the masked man says he's going to destroy the barrier monument. Surprised, she comments that it's impressive he kept his reason even after transforming. The masked warrior responds that if he attacked everyone, his power would bring disaster. Completing the thought, he states that Heighten wouldn't be a true guardian of humanity if he did that. Arriving at his destination, Heighten hits the stone structure with a single, powerful, accurate blow. With a shining eye, he observes the result of his attack, his face covered in blood. Suddenly, his eyes return to normal, and he seems confused, Not understanding where he is or what happened, he asks why he's there as his body slowly returns to its normal shape and size. Looking down, he sees the enemy's body and asks if they already took care of the monster he was facing. Approaching, the masked warrior holds him, commenting that he remains as meddlesome as he always was. In the distance, a large mass of reddish energy begins to undo itself, indicating the end of the Great Barrier. With a sigh of relief, the woman wonders if the long, dangerous battle is finally over. But the masked man questions her, asking if she tried to heal Haiten at the cost of her own life. He continues, saying she is becoming more and more like Tenma in her actions and decisions. With a flushed face, she denies the accusation, saying she has absolutely nothing to do with that. She then changes the subject, wondering how Tenma is doing now and hoping he is okay. Changing the scene, Iberia screams desperately, asking why Itsuki isn't dodging his attacks. He concludes that physical pain that isn't avoided ends up striking and wounding the heart of the attacker. With his entire body injured, Tenma approaches the creature, which seems totally out of control and crazed. He grabs the monster's face, preparing to use his ability and end the fight. With his friend in his arms, he absorbs the energy from the armor, calling out his companion's name. Channeling the energy, he warns that this is the end, preparing his final and most powerful attack. Right after, he fires a sphere of dark energy that hits the creature squarely in the chest. Passing through the monster's body, the blow removes the armor's energy and dissipates it into the air. Falling to its knees, the creature turns back into Iberia as the armor breaks into several pieces. The parts of the armor fall to the ground, coming undone and freeing the body of the young blonde boy. Tenma holds him in his arms as the dark energy dissipates and vanishes completely from the location. Crying, the boy apologizes for ruining everything and failing his friends once again. He continues, saying he just didn't want to be dead weight to his friend and companion, Itsuki. But Tenma responds with sincerity, saying he never thought of him as a burden at any moment. With tears in his eyes, Iberia asks if that's true, and his friend confirms that it is, absolutely. Grabbing his shirt, he says he heard the creature say it wouldn't kill his father, but dominate him. He then begs Itsuki to save his father, trusting totally in his friend's strength and power. Seeing the shadowy creature in the distance, Tenma promises he will crush it with his own hands. With a determined look, he prepares for battle, tears of fury running down his face. Meanwhile, Iberia begins to lose consciousness, his eyes closing slowly and calmly. His breathing becomes weaker, with blood and tears mixing on his wounded face. With a last smile, he says he's happy to have spoken with his friend one last time. In his final moments, he asks Tenma to take care of everyone for him, saying goodbye slowly. With a hole in his chest, Iberia's body finally loses its life in his friend's arms. Observing from afar, the Demon King says the boy succeeded, but that this was only the beginning. With an evil smile, he promises he will cruelly erase everything precious to his enemy. In the middle of a forest, a group of 3 walked quietly through the dark night. One of them commented that he thought defeating the beast would solve everything. Instead, they were escorting Izumi through the mountains. He added that Haiten could barely stand after the battle, unable to complete the mission. Suddenly, the woman warned that her equipment detected an abnormal, very strong emotional wave nearby. She pointed ahead, saying the source was right in front of them on the path. Arriving at the spot, the warrior was startled by a sitting figure. He demanded to know who was there in the dark. Beside him, the woman recognized the silhouette. She was surprised by what she saw. She wondered if it was really Tenma, unable to believe she found him in such a strange place. With a wounded face, Tenma recognized his master, calling her name with a very weak voice. Shocked, she asked what happened to him, terrified by his grave injuries. Then, another voice emerged from the darkness, promising to explain everything that happened to their companion. Hearing the voice, they were startled and asked if anyone else was there with them. Stepping from the shadows, Jusuke introduced himself as a first-class savior, surprising everyone. The master asked why Aiden's bodyguard was there, questioning the whole situation. With a serious look, Jusuke began to think back on everything that happened in that intense, dangerous battle. With a defeated look, he admitted that in the end, they completely lost the battle. The prophecy was fulfilled with the death of Iberia and the kidnapping of his father, the legendary artisan. Jusuke began to recount that after the master was taken, he tried to find the creature. He continued, saying he used his Shinigami to track the mana, but the search was in vain. All he could find were clones of the creature, hindering him from finding the true target. He concluded the beast was cunning, leaving various clones to avoid being located. Sitting at a table, he asked about Tenma's condition after such an intense fight. She replied that the bleeding had stopped, but he refused to let her treat his wounds. Furthermore, she said she felt rage burning inside him, stronger than ever before. Worried, she feared that if it continued, his heart would be completely swallowed by pure hatred. In his room, Tenma looked at a picture frame on the table with a sad, melancholic expression. In the photo, a happy family smiled, with little Iberia happily in the middle of his parents. Then he remembered the day they met, when Iberia introduced himself, all animated and curious. He also remembered carrying him on his back after another very difficult battle. In his memory, Iberia said he would never leave him, refusing to leave his friend's side. Remembering the past, he recalled Iberia offering to creatively name his Shinigami. Turning with his heavily wounded face, he prepared to finally leave the room and depart. Then he called his Shinigami Death, saying it was time for them to go on the hunt. Hearing its master, the creature howled, preparing for the mission ahead. With his wounded body, he announced he would hunt the disaster beast that caused all that tragedy. With a look of pure fury, he promised to crush the creature with his own hands. Then he left the room, walking beside his Shinigami, ready for the vengeance he planned. Outside, he found a masked warrior standing at the door, as if waiting for him. Seeing the man, Tenma was surprised and questioned what he and the others were doing there. Just then, another man questioned if that battered boy was Izumi's second disciple. He continued, saying he heard Tenma destroyed the barrier and defeated a level 30 beast. He concluded that despite being strong, Tenma was merciless for raising his hand against a friend. The masked warrior asked where he thought he was going. Tenma replied that he was going to rescue Aiden, but the warrior stopped him, saying he wasn't going anywhere, much to Tenma's surprise. Explaining the situation, he revealed the incident was classified as special class by the Alliance. From inside, a voice warned that to participate in the operation, he needed to be a second-class savior. Hearing this, he became furious, as they said he didn't yet have the necessary qualifications to go. He revolted, yelling that he was going anyway, because he promised to save Aiden no matter what. Watching the scene, a guy was astonished by his audacity, while the woman asked her father to take it easy. But the armored figure asked if he would be okay with someone dying because of his actions. Hearing this, the boy was completely shocked by the question, not knowing how to respond in the moment. The warrior then said he understood his feelings and assumed total blame for everything. Continuing the conversation, he explained that going now with his current strength level would just be a useless death. Without an answer, the protagonist just clenched his fist tightly, showing all his frustration. But the armored man soon revealed that he possessed unlimited potential to surpass the special class. He promised that when that happened, he himself would entrust the rescue mission directly to the boy. Then the young man faced him with determination and asked what he could do to surpass that class right now. In response, he was informed he could participate in the camp known as the Apex Field. Confused by the proposal, the boy asked exactly what this Apex Field was. Shortly after, it was explained that only the top 10 from the Alliance National Tournament are invited there. Finishing the explanation, he revealed that this year's camp would happen in just 3 days. Discussing the camp, the warrior says a high tournament ranking is guaranteed. He understands this is also a shortcut to becoming a special class savior. Without hesitating, he confirms his participation in the dangerous camp to get stronger. But first, the warrior warns they need to treat the boy's battered body. Shifting locations, the woman begins using her powers to heal all his wounds. While being healed, he asks the young woman if she knows anything about this camp. She questions the sudden interest. He says his master recommended the place for training. With a serious expression, she explains that only the greatest geniuses can participate. Because of that, people always seen as prodigies end up joining the training. She reveals these prodigies are spoiled and live in a bubble of superiority. But there, they realize they aren't special at all and have mental breakdowns from the shock. That's why she warns him. The place is a training ground, but also a graveyard. She reveals the level is so brutally high that fatalities happen every single year. Hearing the warning, he just smiles and says that's perfect for him. Seeing his reaction, the healer is astonished and stops what she's doing for a moment. He explains that if the opponents are weak, his power won't even activate against them. With a serious look, he says fighting strong beasts near death is his duty. Hearing his strong determination, the healer is left completely stunned and instantly blushes. Noticing her face, he asks if she's red because healing is tiring her out. Flustered, she denies it, claiming that using her abilities for too long just heats up her body. She places her hand on her chest, realizing it's the first time she's heard her own heartbeat. Afterward, she wonders what the hell she's thinking, acting so weird. As he leaves, he thanks her for the healing, but she immediately asks where he's going now. He replies he's off to make important farewells before leaving for training. The scene shifts. Night falls in a dark, dense forest. In the middle of the woods, 2 men stand before a well-maintained tombstone. On the tombstone, a name is visible, along with a bouquet and a sword left as a tribute. The older man apologizes for leaving this task to him, but the young man says it's fine. He confirms he's leaving for the camp soon, so he can kill the beast with his own hands. Before leaving, he reveals that without his master, he never would have become an awakened. Holding the sword, he says that armor and weapon are inheritances from his master. He reveals the master gave him everything, and that's why he will find him again. Seeing his determination, the other guy approaches and lightly punches his arm. Then they step back and keep staring at each other right there in the dark forest. Fist clenched, he promises to rescue everyone and asks the other not to die. Seeing the young man's attitude, the warrior gives a slight smile and says he's embarrassing him. Nearby, the tombstone seems to respond that yes, it will wait for their return. Immediately after, the two bump fists in a final gesture, sealing the promise made. From afar, the woman and the helmed warrior observe the entire interaction between the young men. The leader comments on how fast the youth recovered, but she says it's just a facade. Completing the thought, he says the young man bottled everything up to unleash his anger later. Then he announces he will gather the commanders because of the last suspicious attack. As he leaves, he asks her to take good care of the boy during his absence. With a confident smile, she replies for him to leave everything to her and go in peace. Back in the room, he sees her standing there like a blushing statue and asks why she seems so happy. Asking about the master, he wants to know where he's going, but she says it's confidential information. Then she announces that from now on, she will be his guardian. He agrees, a bit awkward. Not knowing what to do, he asks what the next step is, and she simply points forward. Extending her hand, she says they are going straight to the camp on the central continent right now. Flashing back in time, a massive explosion suddenly occurs in a place completely devastated by fighting. The protagonist advances rapidly in his shadow form, charging at his opponent. Under attack, the man with glasses screams in pain as he takes a blow that shatters his defense. Completely defeated, he falls to his knees, lacking the strength to get up alone. The protagonist stands before him, staring down at the fallen man with a menacing look. Fist clenched, he prepares to deliver the final blow and end the fight. Back in the present, the bandaged man screams desperately while having a nightmare about the beating. Waking up scared, he thrashes in the hospital bed, drawing the attention of a woman nearby. Soon after, his mother approaches, asking him to calm down and not be afraid. Seeing his state, she asks if he had another dream about the person who hurt him so badly. Grinding his teeth in hatred, he swears revenge, promising to make the other guy taste hell. Promising a terrible revenge. With a dark look, she announces that his older brother has returned to avenge him. Hearing this, the injured boy turns slowly in bed, looking toward the door. A huge man appears in the doorway and says that must have hurt him a lot. Desperate, the younger brother begs him to make the bastard pay for everything he did. The newcomer asks if it was Tenma Itsuki who did all that to his brother. He confirms it was the orphan and adds that the rival placed first in the preliminaries. Grasping the situation, the older brother understands that he will also be participating in the elite camp. With an evil smile, he promises to crush his rival right there without any mercy. Scene change. The Guardian finally announces they've arrived at his long-awaited destination. Looking up, he's impressed with the place, mentioning it's very different from what he imagined. As he watches, he sees groups of people entering the massive dome, just as she had said. Warriors gather around him, and he notices they all seem very proud to be there. Then the Guardian informs him she can't enter, leaving him on his own from that moment on. Shortly after, she returns a bracelet she'd been keeping, calling it an essential item. Handing the object over, she asks him not to do anything that draws too much attention to himself. With a nod, he says he already knows and walks toward the entrance of the great building. Watching him leave, she can't help but worry, knowing the boy's personality well. Arriving at reception, he approaches the counter and asks to register as a participant. Without even looking at him, the receptionist just holds out his hand and asks him to show the bracelet. He promptly hands over the item so the man can register him in the camp system. Using a device, the employee scans the bracelet info to confirm the new participant's identity. In that moment, the boy is surprised to realize that even the reception staff has a very high level. On screen, his data appears, showing his name, level 0, and his special class gift. Seeing level 0, the receptionist questions how he got in, assuming he used some kind of connection. But he believes that without real skill, those connections are worthless here. Then he tells the rookie to hurry up, choose a room, and pay the accommodation fee to stay. Surprised by the charge, the boy asks in shock if it really costs money to stay there. With a mocking tone, the employee replies that obviously they aren't running a charity. Completely desolate, he laments not having money, and his guardian not warning him. Then, the receptionist reminds him he must have some points for passing the tournament preliminaries. He explains that everyone's wealth here is determined by points earned in previous stages. And inside here, points are the currency to buy everything, from food to accommodation itself. Hearing the explanation, he understands the importance of points and figures he must have enough saved up. Impatient, the receptionist tells him to hurry up and choose a room because he's waiting, but he surprises the man, asking how much the most luxurious room available costs. Options are shown, ranging from a normal room for 100 points to a villa for 2,000. Remembering his companion, he thinks a cramped room won't be enough for the two of them together. With total confidence, he faces the receptionist and states he wants the villa. Astonished by the choice, the man warns that points shouldn't be spent recklessly, but the boy says he's decided and asks him to process the paperwork quickly. Irritated by the stubbornness, he warns the kid not to come crying when he regrets it later. Soon after, he returns the bracelet, now duly registered in the elite camp's official system. He also warns that inside, everyone's status becomes private to others. Watching the boy walk away, he wonders how many points the rookie managed in the preliminaries. Moved by curiosity, the receptionist decides to use the computer to check the kid's data. Seeing the result on the screen, he's completely stunned and can't believe what appeared. He wonders if the absurd amount of points is some kind of bug, but the screen confirms the boy has 106,600 points accumulated there. Comparing it to his own points, the man falls back, totally shocked by the rookie's value. Meanwhile, the boy joins the other participants waiting outside. Midway there, he stops suddenly, realizing he made a small slip-up. Hand on head, he laments forgetting to ask where the villa was. He decides he has to go back to reception to get the exact location. On the way back, two strange participants approach him looking unfriendly. Turning back, he asks seriously if they need something from him right now. With fake smiles, they offer to show him the place, since he seems lost. So he simply says he wants to go to the villa and asks if they know the way. Hearing this, the two are shocked and shout, asking if it's really the villa. He asks if something is wrong, but one covers it up, saying he's trying to remember the location. Seeing them whispering, the boy wonders if the duo is planning something weird. From afar, a girl with cat ears observes the whole scene with an air of superiority. Her cat comments that they are again using the guide excuse to extort rookies. Smiling, she wonders which idiot fell for the scam this time. But suddenly, her eyes widen as she recognizes the face of the boy standing there. She remembers he's the monster who scored over 100,000 points in the preliminaries. Realizing the situation, she says this is going to be very interesting to watch from the sidelines. Whispering, they guess he must be a top ranker who doesn't know the value of points. One deduces he's just a spoiled rich kid with no sense of danger. With a look of disdain, he claims these rich kids are cowards and easy targets. They plan to strip him of every single point, but the young man loses patience and decides to leave. The duo hurries up, saying they remembered the way and will take him. Across the field, participants gather and prepare for the camp to begin. Watching from afar, two men comment that the rookie fell into the two con artists' trap. They say the kid already looks weak and is about to lose all his points. Nearby, a man with a hammer on his back also watches the scene closely. He recognizes the guy from the strange questions before the preliminaries and regrets he got involved. But he quickly decides it's not his problem. His only goal is to surpass the protagonist. Arriving at the spot, they show him the villa area. The young man is impressed by its size. The two scoundrels position themselves behind him, ready to pounce and rob him. With a malicious smile, the blonde says it's time to pay the guide fee. Turning to them, the young man agrees that as guides, they deserve at least a tip. Surprised by the answer, the duo doesn't understand why he agreed so easily. Remaining calm, he asks directly how much they want for their help. The blonde interrupts his partner and demands 1,000 points for the small favor. Thinking it's a bit expensive, he agrees to pay, leaving the pair even more confused. Seeing his attitude, the con artist thinks he's not just a coward, but an idiot. So they decide to raise the stakes, now asking for a total of 5,000 points for the service. With threatening looks, they shout that if he doesn't have it, he needs to hand over everything he's got. Hearing the absurdity, he just lowers his head and says he finally understands the situation. Suddenly turning dark, he stares at the duo and asks if they are trying to extort him. Seeing the personality shift, the scoundrels are shocked and don't understand what's happening. Then they confirm the extortion, ordering him to hand over the points so he doesn't get badly hurt. Advancing slowly, he warns that he's already irritated, so they shouldn't complain later. Irritated by the audacity, the blonde says he won't lose and prepares to attack. Yelling that he'll turn him to ashes, he rushes in and tries to land a direct hit on the young man. But the protagonist simply stops the blow with one hand, absorbing all the power of his attack. Shocked by the scene, the blonde doesn't understand how his attack didn't even tickle the enemy. Immediately after, he's hit by a quick strike that throws him far away. Seeing his speed, the big partner is stunned that he can't follow his movements with his eyes. So he decides to end the fight in one blow, preparing his arm with full force. Concentrating his power, he advances and hits the ground with a blow that destroys everything around. But at the moment of impact, the young man manages to stop the giant attack using only one hand. He realizes the other guy also alters his body and shouts that he's going to attack with both arms. Using all his power, he unleashes a sequence of blows with his gigantic fists against the protagonist. However, the young man says he's too slow and defends himself with his own multiple arms. After defending himself, he walks slowly toward the enemy, who is left wondering what to do. Getting closer, he simply grabs the big guy's two enormous arms, nullifying all his strength. Unable to react, he shouts that it's impossible and asks what kind of monster is in front of him. Staring down the big guy, he warns that his stats don't even come close to his own, even with buffs. With just one blow, he knocks the giant to the ground, who can no longer move. Then he turns and reveals his name is Itsuki Tenma, from the northern continent. Activating his crystal, he prepares a strike with a 100% critical hit chance. Seeing the final attack approaching, the blonde screams in despair while waiting for the impact of the blow, but his fist stops inches from the guy's face, leaving the partner shocked by the scene. Realizing the danger, he thinks he almost did something irreversible, as the blow would have been fatal. With a deadly look, he just tells the two to get out of his sight right now. The two run away terrified, screaming that the guy is a real monster. From afar, the girl says he's a terrible man for having won so easily. Soon after, an announcement on the loudspeakers summons all participants to the main square immediately. Preparing to leave, the girl tells her cat it's time to start working. Hearing the call, he remembers that 50% of participants are eliminated in this first phase, so he walks determinedly to the location, thinking he'll have to give it his all. Arriving at the square, he faces elites from every continent. He immediately notices the high caliber of the participants. Suddenly, amid the crowd, someone taps his shoulder to grab his attention. Reacting on instinct, he spins around with a menacing glare, ready to strike, but he halts his attack at the very last second. It's a girl with pink hair. Surprised by her sudden appearance, he asks if it's really Saya standing in front of him. A friend chimes in, questioning his boldness for trying to attack her. He apologizes, explaining he thought she was an enemy. The girl just complains about how tense he is. Then the friend asks where Iberia is, since the three of them were always inseparable. Hearing the name triggers a memory of a blonde girl appearing injured. Seeing his reaction, the pink-haired girl worriedly asks if their friend was hurt in the last attack. With a distant, sad look, he simply replies that Iberia had to stay home. Trying to cheer him up, the friend mentions the girl has been worried about him since the attack. Irritated by the comment, she smacks the guy, making him instantly yell in pain. Addressing both of them, he says he'll use this camp to improve his skills with everything he's got. Confused, they question how he could possibly be weak. She then hushes them. The test is about to begin. On stage, a mysterious figure appears, shouting for silence among the gathered participants. Using a megaphone, he announces something important they all need to know before starting. He explains that all information except for names will be kept absolutely secret during the camp. This means that no matter past achievements, everyone starts from zero. Surprised by the rule, his friend questions if all information will truly remain hidden from everyone. To prove it, he shows his own status screen. It now displays everything as undisclosed. The instructor then announces the enlistment test starts now, and everyone must enter. As a portal opens, the participants begin walking in single file toward the test site. Lowering his megaphone, the mysterious man watches all the warriors enter the massive blue portal. On the other side, they arrive at a gigantic space. The friend comments it's even bigger than the last one. Walking alone, he hears a familiar voice calling him out, the punk from the southern continent who humiliated them. Confused, he turns to face the two con artists from before, but now they're accompanied by a leader. Their leader is the top ranker from the southern continent's preliminaries. He stares at the boy with contempt. The two henchmen accuse him of attacking them when they tried to collect the reward for the guide. With a cold look, the leader approaches and demands the boy explain himself regarding the incident. The girl jumps to his defense, saying they must have tried to extort her friend first. In a mocking tone, the friend says they merely disciplined the lackeys, and they should be grateful. Enraged, the leader advances and lands a blow, throwing the boy hard onto the ground. Warning them back, he threatens to rip the arm off anyone who touches him. Angered by the audacity, the friend stands up to charge the leader, but he is held back. Out of patience, the protagonist says he won't explain anything and stares down the white-haired one. With a deadly glare, he warns him, touch his friends again and he'll kill him. The two lock eyes, ready to start a brawl right there in the middle of everyone, but the girl asks them to stop, while the henchmen warn their leader about the penalties for violence. So, the white-haired leader suggests they settle it in the training field after the test is over. Agreeing to the proposal, the boy says that's fine by him and accepts the challenge. Suddenly, an entrance opens in the floor, and participants start complaining about the darkness. Amid the confusion, one participant remarks they can't do anything in this environment, but moments later, a bright light floods the area, revealing what's ahead. Then the instructor appears, saying he hopes everyone maintains this energy until the test ends. With his back to the crowd, The instructor says he will explain the enlistment test rules. Grinning, he reveals that for this test, there are absolutely no rules to follow. The participants are shocked and confused, questioning how a test can have 0 rules. He then explains they must enter 4 rooms and complete 4 different status tests. The objective is simple: increase their stats as much as possible and pass the tests. Some get excited by the lack of restrictions, thinking it will be an easy task. But the protagonist's friend laments not grabbing any items, saying he's at a disadvantage now. The girl asks the friend which status test they should tackle first. He replies that it doesn't matter since they have to do them all anyway, and suggests going to the nearest one. Smiling, the friend says that's perfect. The nearest room is the defense test. He explains that as a metal elementalist, he's quite confident in his defensive abilities. Entering the room, they face a massive corridor with a man standing at the far end. The friend points, asking if that guy down the hall is the test examiner. The man introduces himself as the defense test examiner, remarking that they seem quite strong. He warns that he will attack using 5 types of rocks, with difficulties ranging from 1 to 5. Finishing his explanation, he reveals their only task is to defend against the attacks. As the test began, the examiner told the trainees to step forward when their names were called. Hearing his name, the protagonist's friend was startled to be up first. Getting ready, he said he could handle a few rocks no problem. He told everyone not to worry. Up front, the examiner announced they were starting and gave permission to activate abilities. Deciding to go all out, he activated his technique, transforming his body into metal for defense. Defense active, he crossed his arms and yelled for the examiner to bring it on. The instructor announced the first test would be a difficulty level 1 rock. He launched a small stone projectile at high speed straight at the participant. Defending easily, he smiled. He said he didn't feel a thing from such a weak blow. Finding it boring, he asked the instructor to skip right to level 2. The examiner agreed. He prepared a new projectile, much larger and more powerful than the first. Then he fired the spinning attack with far greater force and speed. Hit squarely, he was thrown backward by the impact's force. The projectile struck his chest directly, crushing him against the ground with overwhelming pressure. Seeing her friend down, the girl yelled in worry, asking if he was okay. He gave a thumbs up, stood up, and told everyone he was feeling fine. Watching closely, the protagonist activated his mana detection to better analyze the attacks. He realized they weren't normal rocks, but mana stones capable of massive damage. Seeing his friend's hand shaking, he wondered if he would really be okay. Arms numb, the participant admitted the attacks were stronger than expected. The examiner asked if he wished to continue. He responded that he wanted level 3. He told himself it was just 1 level up. He could hold firm. The instructor prepared an even bigger, more powerful rock for the next attack. Despite his fear, he yelled that he wouldn't be scared just because the stone was a little bigger. But when hit, his defense failed, and the projectile dragged him across the ground. The impact threw him high into the air. He crashed back down, kicking up a cloud of dust. Shocked by the scene, the girl covered her mouth in disbelief. Through the smoke, his fallen body appeared completely motionless after the powerful strike. Worried, his 2 friends ran over to check on him and see if he needed help. With difficulty, he raised a hand and said in a weak voice that he was okay. Getting up, he said level 3 was at least 3 times stronger than the last one. Impressed, the examiner praised the young man, noting he should get a decent score. Then the instructor called the next participant, the protagonist from the northern province. The fallen friend got up with his help, looking exhausted after his attempt. He warned his friend not to push too hard, as the rock's power increased with every level. Approaching, the examiner asked the young man which difficulty level he wanted to start with. Analyzing the situation, he calculated his defense was already more than double his friend's. Thinking he was afraid, the instructor said he didn't blame him for hesitating. He warned that if the boy didn't choose, they would automatically start at the lowest level. But the protagonist interrupted, asking to start straight at difficulty level 5, the highest. Shocked by the request, the examiner asked him to repeat himself, disbelieving the boy's audacity. Hand extended, he confirmed he wanted to attempt the level 5 challenge. His friends panicked, shouting that level 5 was suicide since 3 had been the limit. In the audience, other participants commented that he was the national #1 and a show-off. The examiner prepared the level 5 rock, muttering that there was always one reckless attention seeker. He added that those reckless types always ended up gravely injured or unconscious by the end of the test, and without even taking the other tests, they got expelled from the camp forever. With a yell, the examiner launched the enormous level 5 rock at the participant. The audience was terrified by the attack's size, saying he would be annihilated. He permitted the boy to use his abilities, but the boy responded he was fine just like that. Confused, the instructor wondered if the boy was even preparing for the final attack. Then he launched the projectile, hurtling with impressive speed and force toward the boy. Motionless, he just watched the gigantic rock coming his way, showing zero fear. At the moment of impact, a massive explosion occurred, sending a huge shockwave through the area. All the other participants shielded themselves from the dust and flying debris. The shock kicked up a cloud of smoke, preventing everyone from seeing the attack's result. Shocked by the power, they commented the attack was basically a meteor, and that the boy was dead. The examiner grabbed his radio and requested medical reinforcements, calling himself an idiot for accepting. But suddenly, one of the participants pointed at the smoke, yelling that there was a shadow inside. Looking closely, the instructor was startled to realize something was moving within the dust. Amidst the smoke, a silhouette appeared, indicating he was still standing after the attack. On the radio, the medical unit asked for the victim's location, but the instructor remained silent. He turned off the device, still stunned and unable to believe what he had just seen. Amidst the dust, the boy calmly asked if that was difficulty level 5. The examiner thought that in 3 years, he had never seen anyone withstand that attack without using abilities. Then the boy said goodbye and walked away, leaving the instructor thinking that he was the strongest monster he'd ever seen. Impressed, the other participants back away from him. He wonders why everyone is avoiding him. His friends approach and congratulate him. They say he surprised them once again with his power. He replies that no one is perfect. He's sure there's something his friend is better at, but he can't think of anything. He just tells him to forget it, leaving his friend confused. Soon after, the girl is called for her test. Her friends wish her luck. The examiner allows her to use her ability. She gets into position to begin. Then she activates her water technique. She creates a wall of water around herself for protection. Making a brave choice, she asks the instructor to start straight at difficulty level 3. He throws the rock. She uses her water wall to try and stop the incoming attack. The rock collides with the water, creating immense pressure. She struggles to maintain her defense. With great determination, she withstands the impact. She holds firm against the powerful projectile. The rock punches through the water wall, losing strength and speed from the liquid's friction. Ultimately, the projectile hits the ground, completely stopped by the girl's defensive skill. The examiner praises her. He says what she did there was a very smart choice. He explains that she used the water's flow to deflect the impact instead of stopping it dead. He states that quick thinking in battle is the most important quality for a savior. Her friends congratulate her. They tell her what she did was incredible and that they think she's amazing. Smiling, she turns and says she can't believe her friend actually praised her. Leaving the room, they wonder which test to take next. Then they spot the attack test. At the test site, a huge crowd of participants gathers for the next challenge. Sitting in a chair, an instructor wearing sunglasses notes that the second group has arrived. Standing up, he shouts at the brats to listen carefully to the attack test rules. Pointing a finger, he explains they will be scored based on the strength of their strikes. The protagonist's friend asks who they are supposed to attack. The girl calls him an idiot. Smiling, the instructor says the target isn't him, but his Shinigami. He then summons a giant, bizarre creature. It materializes right in the middle of the room. The friends are spooked by the thing's appearance, calling it gross and poorly made. But the protagonist, eyes sparkling, says he finds the creature incredibly cute and adorable. The instructor then announces they can use weapons or their bare hands to attack the beast. One participant asks what happens if they manage to break the Shinigami during the test. Smiling, he says, not even a level 50 awakened could break his creature. Then he gives the beast a light punch to demonstrate how the scoring works for everyone. The Shinigami then announces that the instructor's blow was worth 50 points towards the test total. He explains the scoring is adjusted, so his punch equals 50, and the maximum score is 100. But he reveals the theoretical maximum is 99, because perfection is impossible. Sitting back comfortably, he announces the start of the attack power test for the participants. The first to be called is a fighter from the eastern continent. He says he's going full throttle, but the protagonist warns that the instructor's punch, while seemingly weak, is on another level. Relaxing, the examiner tells the next person to attack when ready, without him needing to repeat it. The fighter says he hates hitting a defenseless target, but he needs to harden his heart. Concentrating his energy, he prepares to unleash a strike with all his might. Yelling for the creature to go back to the earth, he charges in for the attack with everything he has. He lands a direct hit on the Shinigami, but the target doesn't even budge from the impact. Looking up, he sees his hit was worth only 37 points, even using an ability. Sipping his tea, the instructor tells him to stop dragging his feet and calls the next participant. Another participant attacks with a fire punch, but manages only 28 points of damage. Using a spear, a competitor hits the target with a spinning strike, scoring 49 points. A fighter in white unleashes an energy blow, reaching 77 points, the highest score so far. Flipping through a magazine, the instructor calls the next participant from the northern continent for his test. The redhead brags, saying it's a joke that no one has managed to reach 80 points. He stares at the Shinigami, thinking the creature must be insanely tough to withstand all that. But he states he has absolute confidence in his strength and prepares for the attack. With his hammer, he charges and deals a blow with all his might against the creature. The impact of the blow is so strong that the Shinigami is dragged backward by the smash. Lowering his magazine, the instructor says the hit wasn't bad at all, seeming impressed. The Shinigami deforms from the attack and announces the score was 91. Irritated, he didn't get 100 points. The redhead turns away, looking quite frustrated with the result, but he consoles himself, thinking no one there can beat him in power, and that 91 is enough. Then he starts looking for the protagonist in the crowd, wanting to see his score. The instructor finally calls the young man's name, announcing it's his turn for the test. Hearing the name, the redhead stops mid-stride and turns with a surprised look. With shining eyes, he stares at the guy and says he finally found him in this place. Then he says he'll finally see what the kid is made of, anxiously awaiting the test. The protagonist just stretches and prepares, while the redhead shouts his name in anger. He boasts that no one can beat his raw power when he's using his hammer. His weapon, the Hammer of the 100, boosts his attack power by over 100 points. The redhead declares he doesn't care about coming in first place because his power is unrivaled anyway. Approaching the target, the protagonist remarks that he feels bad about being cruel to the creature. The instructor scoffs. He thinks this kid is just another weakling who won't achieve anything. Suddenly, the protagonist focuses a massive amount of energy into his hand, prepping his attack. His eyes glowing red, he readies himself to unleash a full power strike. He rushes forward and lands a devastating blow on the creature, generating a massive shockwave. His attack tears right through the Shinigami, leaving a trail of destruction in the air. The hit lands squarely, piercing its body and scattering its remains everywhere. Meanwhile, reading his magazine, the instructor comments on a model's curves, but he's interrupted by an explosion as Shinigami remains rained down near him. Startled, he loses his balance and tumbles out of his chair, totally confused about what just happened. Shocked, he wonders how a mere trainee managed to destroy his Shinigami with bare hands. The protagonist just stands up, mentioning he knew his critical hits were still stacked. Looking down, he's surprised to see the cute little creature is actually still alive. The Shinigami's head is lying on the ground, but it can still communicate. So he asks for his score, and the creature replies that it's 100 points. The audience is floored by the perfect score. That Shinigami was supposed to be indestructible. Devastated, the redhead realizes the gap between them isn't just 9 points. He understands the guy only scored 100 because the scale doesn't go any higher. Recognizing his own arrogance, he turns and leaves, admitting he was a puffed-up fool. The instructor states that a perfect score requires level 50 power. He turns and stares at the young man, wondering if he's already reached that level. Not understanding the stare, the protagonist wonders if the instructor is mad at him. Scared, he apologizes and tries to sneak away before the man gets furious. But the instructor pauses the test for 10 minutes just to recover from the shock. His friends congratulate him, saying his power is just as insane as his absurd defense. Then his friend yells at everyone who doubted him, bragging that his buddy got a perfect score. Seeing that the current test will take a while, the girl suggests he take another one while they wait. He agrees and tells them to meet in the square when everything is over. Then he decides the next test will be mana measurement. Arriving at the location, he and the other participants face the test gate. A red-haired instructor says she'll explain the test now that everyone has arrived. The participants are enchanted by her beauty. One guy even says he wants to date her. The cat-haired girl rolls her eyes, remarking that men are all the same. Suddenly, she notices the protagonist is there too, looking at the instructor. She complains that he's staring at the woman, proving that all men really are the same. But he's just wondering if the test device is under that red cloth. The instructor announces they'll be using a device she created to measure mana. She removes the cloth to reveal a mana storage crystal, a very rare tool. Explaining the method, she says they just need to place their hand on it and pour in their mana. The more mana they have, the higher their final score will be. One participant raises his hand and asks what happens for the other tests if they use it all up. Smiling, she reveals the crystal can drain and return the mana completely. The guy nods, seeming a bit embarrassed by her answer. Then the instructor says, if there are no more questions, they can begin. She advises there's no set order, so whoever wants to can go first. With a gesture, the protagonist volunteers to start, and she praises his initiative. She gets closer and tells him to start when ready, making him nervous. Determined to impress her, he prepares to pour all his mana into the crystal. Then he releases all his energy at once, flooding the device with his power. But he's shocked to see that even with everything he's got, the crystal isn't even half full. His mana only fills a small section at the base of the crystal sphere. The instructor tells him to calm down. She forgot to mention one detail. She reveals the crystal has previously drained the mana of several level 80 awakeners. The crowd complained about the difficulty of the test. They claimed not even a level 40 could fill the mana sphere. The examiner approached a candidate, letting him know she was about to return his used mana. Leaning in close, she whispered that she could read a person just by the energy they left behind in the crystal. She touched the boy's chin and commented on his innocent soul, leaving him completely flustered. Stepping away from the boy, she immediately called out, asking who the next challenger would be. Seeing this, the other candidates grew terrified. They'd rather redo the defense and agility tests than face her. Standing to the side, the protagonist noticed the shift in the room. Everyone was suddenly afraid. He decided it was his turn. He started walking alone toward the test platform. Noticing his approach, the woman smiled. She announced that the second challenger had finally appeared, but the protagonist was confused. He said he was only just starting to raise his hand. At that very instant, someone else cut in front of him. It was the second-ranked competitor on the continent. Everyone was surprised to recognize her. The protagonist finally understood why she looked so familiar. Meanwhile, a girl with cat ears commented that the top two competitors were now present. Facing the new candidate, the examiner explained that the rules were unchanged. She could begin whenever she was ready. Steeling herself for the test, the girl finally placed her hand on the crystal sphere. Releasing her energy, she began pouring a massive amount of power into the sphere. But to everyone's surprise, the crystal barely registered any energy. It didn't even reach the halfway mark. Seeing the disappointing result, the spectators questioned if this was truly the power of the second-ranked fighter. The other candidates taunted her. They told her to leave so they could show her the true power of the South. Then, silently, she simply reached for the hilt of the sword she carried on her back. She pressed a detail on the weapon's grip, subtly activating a hidden mechanism. Instantly, as the blade was drawn from the sheath, it began releasing a tremendous amount of energy. The sword was fully drawn, causing its full power to finally explode outwards. With a determined look, she prepared to use her true strength for the mana test. The audience reacted with awe, noting that her mana had suddenly become drastically stronger. Watching from afar, the protagonist realized her sword was the true source of all that power. He noticed that drawing the weapon caused the stored mana to flow directly into her body. Channeling this new power, the crystal sphere filled up rapidly, stunning everyone present. Blade in hand, she continued transferring her energy, maintaining total focus on the task. The examiner remarked that with 80%, she would have been number 1 for the last 5 years. Finishing the test, he slowly sheathed his sword as the mana sphere finally depleted. The examiner praised her strength, but to her surprise, he revealed that he was actually a man. The audience and the protagonist were completely shocked by the news. His face had been totally deceiving. Noticing everyone's disappointment, the woman commented that the local boys must be devastated. Then she asked if he was ready for her to return the mana used in the test. Upon finishing, the woman sighed. She said transferring that much energy at once was exhausting. Catching her breath, she turned to the crowd and called for the next challenger to step forward. Instantly, the protagonist raised his hand, shouting that he was ready to take the test. Looking in his direction, the examiner called him a handsome boy and asked him to introduce himself first. Walking to the center, he revealed himself as Itsuki Tenma, the top-ranked fighter in his region. Behind him, the previous competitor watched seriously, curious to see what he was capable of, but the rest of the crowd doubted him, commenting that he didn't look strong enough to compete. Standing before him, the woman simply smiled and told him to begin the test whenever he was ready. Placing his hand on the crystal, he activated his passive ability, which detected the mana of everyone around him. Immense energy exploded from him as his mana recovered for every single person he detected, including everyone in the room. He realized that every single person there was a source of mana. Even the examiner became a battery for his special ability. Expanding his aura, he transformed all the awakened present into personal power sources. Because of this, his mana reserve became practically infinite, restoring itself every second. The crowd was perplexed, questioning how he could possess such power without using any magical tools. Distressed, the woman realized the measuring crystal was nearing its maximum limit. As he continued pouring in his power, the sphere began to shine with absurd intensity. But he noticed there was still space, even though the crystal looked completely full. Determined to see it through, he kept forcing his energy into the object. Desperate, the examiner screamed for him to stop. warning that it was already enough. Ignoring the warning, he simply continued the process, keeping his hand firm on the sphere. Instantly, cracks began to appear all over the crystal's surface. The object couldn't handle the pressure and exploded, releasing all the accumulated energy. Frightened by the explosion, the woman shielded herself with her arms to avoid being hit. On the other side of the room, the audience reacted to the noise. One person commented that they heard something break. When the dust settled, he remained standing in front of the debris of the test platform. Turning to the woman, he said he was just adding mana and asked if he would have to pay for the damage. Seeing the scene, the crowd questioned what kind of monster he was to shatter the crystal. The examiner wondered how many years it had been since she'd witnessed such a thing. Thinking back, she recalled the last time was a decade ago, with a man named Kazutaka. She was impressed. After 10 long years, another true outlier had finally appeared among them. Reassuring the boy, she told him they had spare parts and asked if he still had enough mana for the remaining tests. Unconcerned, he replied that he still had energy to spare. The woman was completely confused. She was shocked. She couldn't fathom how he still had power after expending so much during the test. Noticing his lingering energy in the area, she decided to take a look and see what kind of person he really was. Touching the remnants of his power, she tried to sense the true nature of this candidate. Instantly, the essence of his soul manifested aggressively toward her. Completely breathless, she recoiled, feeling a crushing power that left her too weak to react. Within the energy, she sensed a swirling mass of negative emotions: rage, regret, and hatred. Watching him walk away, she realized that this whirlwind of emotions was something extremely dangerous. Meanwhile, he reflected that using his ability felt like cheating, but not everyone could bear the burden. Concluding he hadn't technically broken any rules, he walked toward the final stage, the agility test. Suddenly, he stopped. He heard someone shouting his name from afar and turned around. A girl appeared, running in his direction, yelling for him to wait up. As she approached, she asked if he was already finished with the test, and he confirmed that he was. Whispering, she mentioned that their friend's pride was hurt because he got a lower score. Hearing the gossip, the friend turned around angrily, warning them that he could hear everything they were saying. After snapping at them, he lamented that at this rate, they wouldn't pass the honor evaluation. Trying to console his friend, the protagonist said he was sure both of them would pass without any problems, but the friend got irritated, complaining that it was easy for the protagonist since his spot was already guaranteed. Then the friend started begging, pleading not to fail the test no matter what. Telling him not to worry about it, the girl told him to focus on the test, promising they would do their best too. Looking at her, the protagonist just told her to rest later as she seemed quite tired. With a nod, she confirmed what he said, appearing more determined for the next stage. Wishing them luck, he said goodbye to his friends and walked toward the testing area. Waving back, the girl thanked him and said they would meet up later. As soon as he walked away, her expression changed, revealing enormous tension about what was coming. Striking him, the girl asked indignantly why he had spoken to Itsuki in that manner, but he said it was no problem, while she worried that their friend might take it easy on purpose. Laughing at her concern, he guaranteed that their friend's score was already too high for that. He reinforced that Itsuki wouldn't throw away the honor spot just for some extra training. Far from there, the protagonist decided he would indeed keep his final score below 80. Checking his points, he thought that he didn't need the bonus and wanted to stay together with his friends. Besides, the most important thing for him was getting the extra training that the observation group received. That's why he planned to get the lowest score possible, preferably getting a nice round 0 on the test. At that very instant, a voice interrupted him, shouting for that bastard from Hokushu to stop right there. A group of 3 guys appeared, one of them asking if he was running away from them. Turning to face them, the protagonist asked very directly if they wanted to get beaten up again. But the white-haired one intervened, reminding him that he hadn't forgotten the promise of a duel. Staring down the boy, he warned him not to rush things, promising the rematch after the test. Having said that, the rival simply turned his back and walked away, leaving the protagonist totally surprised. Completely confused, he wondered why the guy was acting like he was doing him a favor. Putting the confusion aside, he decided to focus on the upcoming test. Arriving at the agility arena, he found an enormous red circle drawn on the ground. The test instructor appeared, explaining that the trial would be like a game of cat and mouse. Basically, the cat had to chase the mouse, while the mouse did everything it could to escape. With a confident smile, he revealed himself as the cat, a level 40 order breaker. Right after, he pointed to the candidates, announcing that they would all be mere mice. Stepping onto the line, the instructor explained that the goal was to run for as long as possible. He then set the time limit at 1 minute, with a perfect score for anyone who survived. Hearing this, the participants thought it was too easy, treating the challenge like a simple bonus stage. With everything explained, the instructor called the first mouse, a candidate from Nanshu named Fumiya. Pushing his friend forward, The protagonist's rival warned him not to embarrass their region, but the boy guaranteed he would do well, as agility was his greatest specialty. Before starting, the instructor warned that if he were touched, he would be eliminated instantly. Filling his body with energy, the candidate taunted, asking the cat not to get caught by the mouse. The instructor just smiled, replying that everything would depend on what kind of mouse he was. As the test began, the instructor vanished instantly, making the candidate scream in surprise at his disappearance. Suddenly, a shadow with red eyes appeared behind him, leaving the boy completely terrified. With no chance to react, the instructor simply placed his hand on the boy's head, catching him. Right next to his ear, the instructor whispered that a slow mouse like him was the perfect prey. Slamming the boy to the ground, the instructor ended the test with brutal ruthlessness. He then revealed the total capture time. Just 47 seconds. The other candidates were shocked. It happened too fast for them to follow. Unlike the others, the protagonist and his rival realized he had used a special ability. Yet, even with that speed, they both noted the instructor's movements weren't impossible to track. The instructor turned and announced the next challenger, Kagan from the southern continent. With a confident gesture, Kagan told his supportive friend not to worry. Looking at the protagonist, he promised to get a perfect score and told him to watch closely. Standing before the instructor, his name was recognized, but Kagan told him not to get the wrong idea. Proudly, the boy made it clear his family had nothing to do with him being number one. He declared with absolute certainty that the real reason was simply because he was strong. Hearing this, the instructor smiled and said he hoped all that confidence wasn't just talk. Seeing the same move, the first candidate screamed desperately, warning that the instructor was behind him. But the rival managed to turn in time, seeing the instructor's hand coming right at him. Dodging the attack, he faced his opponent and claimed he could see him perfectly. Leaping back, the boy barely avoided the instructor's rapid follow-up. Impressed, his friends cheered, one claiming it was thanks to his warning. But the protagonist disagreed. The boy's body had reacted long before the warning was given. He wondered how the rival sensed the instructor's position without even using his eyes. Smiling, the instructor praised the boy's skill, saying it wasn't bad at all. Gritting his teeth, the candidate admitted it was tough, but not impossible to handle. Noticing his hesitation, the instructor charged, asking if he really had time to think. Understanding the situation, the boy focused completely. He needed total concentration against such a strong opponent. The chase restarted. The instructor hunted the candidate, giving him no time to rest. Dodging and counterattacking, the two traded blows at incredible speed, moving across the entire arena. The audience was amazed by the speed, saying they could only see after images. With glowing eyes, the protagonist could see everything, having activated one of his special abilities. He realized that although the rival was dodging, his speed was dropping. He was at his limit. Mocking the candidate, the instructor asked if the little mouse was finally showing its tail. In a last-ditch effort, the boy tried to flee, but the instructor reached him with an attack. Determined not to be caught, he thought he needed to endure longer to surpass all his rivals. So he used a wind ability, creating a strong blast of air with his hand. Using the recoil to his advantage, he propelled himself away from the instructor. The instructor admitted it was a very smart strategy for escaping, but instantly he charged again, questioning how the boy would dodge from that awkward position. Without hesitating a second, the boy used the same ability again, but at full power. The impact of the blow threw the instructor backward, creating more distance between them. Analyzing the situation, the instructor praised the impressive strategy of creating distance to recover. Right after, he used the recoil once more, moving rapidly across the arena. Impressed by the scene, the audience commented on the clever way he used the ability. Meanwhile, the instructor called him a genius for his ability to apply techniques in combat. Despite the strategy, the boy was already at his physical limit, barely having enough breath to continue. Noticing his weakness, the instructor warned that the game was over and prepared to attack. Unable to react, the boy admitted he had no stamina left to endure the test. Completely cornered, he realized there was no other possible escape route on the ground. Watching from afar, the protagonist realized there was still one last escape route for the boy. As the instructor advanced, the candidate looked up, focusing his gaze on the arena skies. Then he used his wind ability on his feet, propelling himself high with a powerful jump. With his technique, he started jumping in mid-air, using the vacuum as support to climb. Perplexed, the audience commented that he was flying, but hadn't broken the test rules. Analyzing the movement, the protagonist understood he was solidifying the air to create a path. Confident, the boy thought the instructor couldn't pursue him since he couldn't fly. But suddenly, the instructor appeared right in front of him, leaving the boy completely shocked and unable to react. Grabbing his neck, the instructor announced he had finally caught him and threw him to the ground. With the fall, a huge curtain of dust rose up while the boy coughed heavily on the ground. Getting up from the impact, The candidate was met by the instructor, who was also recovering from the blow. Stopwatch in hand, he lamented that the boy was close but didn't make it. Announcing the result, the instructor congratulated the candidate, who survived for 1 minute and 2 seconds. Despite the result, the boy looked frustrated for having been caught at the very last second. The test ends, and the crowd goes wild, celebrating Kagen's survival. Watching his rival, the protagonist realizes he's actually looking forward to their duel. It's Kagen's intellect that interests him. Carrying his unconscious friend, the big guy celebrates the feat, calling the boy the pride of Nanshu. The instructor helps the boy stand, assisting him as he recovers from the fall's impact. Smiling, he praises the candidate, saying he was the most impressive in recent years. Flustered by the praise, the boy says thanks and turns to leave, still shaking it off. Next, the instructor calls the next candidate, Kazutora Sano, also from Nanshu. Wishing him luck, Kagen tells him that he's already figured out the patterns. He stares down the protagonist, warning that he'll wait for his test. He hopes it won't be a waste of time. The protagonist just smiles. He warns he might end up disappointing him, which confuses the rival. But Kazutora gets caught in less than a second. The instructor doesn't repeat patterns. Watching the defeated candidate, the protagonist notes he wasn't much use as a demonstration. Ashamed, Kazutora apologizes to his friend. The friend just curses him out for staining the region's reputation. Next, the instructor calls the only representative from Hokushu, the protagonist, Itsuki. As he walks up, the crowd murmurs that he doesn't look as strong as Kagen. Heading into the test, he considers his original plan, just standing still and taking a 0. But after seeing his rival's performance, he's actually a little curious about the challenge now. Meanwhile, the Nanshu group complains about the delay, blaming whoever broke the equipment in the previous test. Kagen looks on seriously. He wants to see just how strong the national #1 really is. Facing the protagonist, the instructor remarks he's been looking forward to testing the record breaker. Itsuki holds up 5 fingers. He announces he's decided to only last 5 seconds, so as not to disappoint anyone. Wasting no time, the instructor charges with a swift strike, telling him not to be modest. He dodges the attack and slips past the instructor, who praises his speed. Just as expected from #1, the protagonist uses the recoil from an air blast to propel himself to the other side. But the instructor intercepts him mid-air, asking where he thinks he's going. As time ticks by, he just counts the seconds, remaining totally focused on his movement. Running at high speed, he begins circling the arena's red line. The crowd is confused, questioning why he's retreating to the edge. His rival is disappointed too. He thinks the guy is an idiot for cornering himself like that. Believing the result is obvious, he turns to leave. It's just a waste of time. The instructor smiles, not understanding what the boy is thinking since he isn't using any abilities. Completing a full lap, the protagonist purposely lures him toward the center of the arena. Instantly, he activates his lightning wave, boosting his agility by 100%. Sensing the change, the instructor charges in, declaring it's too late to use an ability now, but the protagonist easily dodges the attack, flashing past him in the blink of an eye. Stunned, the instructor wonders how he managed to dodge, left completely speechless. He realizes the acceleration was so fast his brain couldn't even process the movement. Then, he feels a tap on his shoulder. He realizes the boy is mocking him. From the other side, the protagonist comments that the tap just made the instructor angrier. His honor wounded, the instructor recalls catching many rats before, but that was just a game. Unleashing all his power, he announces the game is over. This is the first time he's fighting seriously. With a maniacal smile, he declares that a mouse can't make a fool of the cat. He charges at an absurd speed, moving like a bolt of lightning toward the protagonist. Glaring with hatred, the instructor promises to make him regret what he did. He prepares a final attack, yelling that he'll end this before the boy can even react. At the 4th second, the protagonist simply turns his face, bracing for the final impact. Shocked, the instructor realizes the boy tracked his movements despite his immense speed. The blow slams into the ground, creating a smokescreen and kicking up a massive cloud of dust. Watching the impact, the audience wonders what happened, but Kagen says it's already over. As the dust settles on the attack, the instructor appears, holding the protagonist down on the ground. Confused, he asks why the boy didn't dodge since he clearly managed to react in time. Lying on the ground, the boy replies that he managed to survive the 5 seconds he promised. Looking at his stopwatch, the instructor is shocked. He can't understand what just happened. The clock reads exactly 5 seconds. The protagonist did exactly what he said he would. Perplexed, he stares at the boy, still unable to believe he planned the whole thing from the start. In the audience, Everyone comments on the instructor's expression, noticing something is wrong. Still on the ground, the protagonist asks him to please announce the results and let him go. With a trembling voice, the instructor announces the result, revealing that the survival time was exact. Looking at the result, he realized that even perfect scores would land him in the observation group. As he left, Kagan taunted him, claiming he'd never win with such poor flexibility. Unfazed, the protagonist simply asked when and where their promised duel would take place. Kagan set it for after the tests, vowing to absolutely crush him. Glaring angrily, he prepared for what was coming, determined to win. He turned and just walked away with his friends without another word. On the way, the big guy asked about his chances, but he told him not to worry. With total confidence, he claimed there was no way the protagonist could beat him. Laughing, his friends agreed, calling Kagan the strongest candidate of the year. He told his friends to worry about their own tests and stop interfering. In the main hall, a group wondered why so many people were just standing around. One explained that the mana crystal broke because some guy with too much power shattered it. Overhearing, Kagan walked over and asked if they knew the mysterious candidate's name. After thinking, the boy replied it was the top-ranked guy from the north, someone named Tenma. Shocked, Kagan called his friends over. They immediately teased him about the southern champion. Silencing them, he made it clear that, obviously, Kagan of the south was the strongest. With a new crystal ready, the examiner called next, and Kagan volunteered. Raising his hand, he declared that strength is proven in practice, not with mere words. He walked to the center, introducing himself as Kagan Imamichi from the southern continent. Enchanted, the woman noticed his silver hair and eyes, blushing furiously. She explained the rules, telling him to input his mana. He confirmed he already knew how. Meanwhile, the crowd placed bets on who had more mana, most favoring Tenma. Beginning the test, he placed his hand on the sphere, which glowed with seemingly infinite mana. Taking advantage of the moment, he asked the examiner out for food, but she refused. Determined to impress, he decided he would break the orb too, just to surpass his rival. He poured in all his strength. The crystal began to tremble, displaying overwhelming power. Impressed, the woman praised his capacity and promised to return the mana later. With a serious look, he continued pouring in his power, focused on breaking his limit. Desperate, the examiner begged him to stop. The crystal couldn't handle any more power, but he didn't stop. He released all his energy in an explosion that threw him backward. The crowd cheered at the explosion, shocked that Kagan had also managed to break the mana crystal. Near the debris, he waved off the examiner's help, saying he still had plenty of mana left. His friends congratulated him, certain this would secure him first place in the test, but he said it meant nothing. The only thing he cared about was his rival. Far away, the protagonist's friend was shocked to learn he only lasted 5 seconds. Explaining, he said the instructor's speed was insane, while the girl just stared at him. Laughing at his friend, he celebrated finally beating him in a test, since he lasted 8 seconds. Then, a voice announced that the tests were over, and results would be out in a minute. The protagonist's friends waited anxiously, one praying for at least 60 points. Suddenly, everyone's bracelets started beeping, indicating the results had arrived. With 61 points, he discovered he passed, but was placed in the observation group. Crying with relief, he celebrated making it, while his female friend didn't understand his happiness. With 62 points, she also passed, scoring just 1 point higher than her friend. Joking, he told her that as members of the observation group, they should get along. Worried, the protagonist calculated that his score might land him in the honors group. Curious, his friends asked for his score, already assuming he passed with honors. Smiling, he agreed, saying he thought that's exactly what happened. But seeing the result, his friends were shocked, asking if he had pissed off an instructor. With 80 points, he missed the cutoff and landed in the observation group by just 1 point. Despite the frustration, he celebrated with his friends, saying now the 3 of them could train together. Happy with the result, he thought to himself that he got exactly the 80 points he wanted. From afar, Kagan approached and taunted them, questioning if Northerners lacked ambition. Outraged, the protagonist's friend asked what his score was to be acting so arrogant. Kagan's friend revealed he got perfect scores in everything, totaling 100 points. Staring down his rival, the protagonist asked if he had forgotten their earlier promise. Clapping, an instructor appeared and praised the spark between the two youths. Suddenly, all the other instructors appeared, surrounding the two groups in the middle of the arena. One of them commented that they heard they were planning a little duel. Smiling, the instructor said they supported the idea, but there was one condition. Smiling, the instructor said such a highly anticipated duel would be boring without an audience. So, he announced that as instructors, they would invite everyone to watch the main event. Addressing everyone, he scheduled the duel between Itsuki and Kagan for 8 o'clock tonight. Pointing at the pair, the instructor warned nobody to miss the fight that was about to go down. At the news, the crowd went wild, already starting to place bets on the winner. The time finally arrived. The two faced off, as the duel between the strongest was about to begin.